vai ter carnaval. Até que enfim um descanso pra não passar em branco. Uma cerveja na mesa e tá bom. A fábrica de confete fechou. Ivete se aposentou. A loja de Abadá virou padaria e o trio elétrico foi pra sucataria. Não vai ter murro no olho. Meu do chiclete tá de molho. Não vai ter caravela na avenida, nem história de ancestrais da colonização. Não vai ter carnaval. Até que enfim um descanso pra não passar em branco. Uma cerveja na mesa e tá bom. A fábrica de confete fechou. Ivete se aposentou. A loja de que é pra mim. Não vou me precipitar. Paciência é uma ciência, é o tempo. Vou descobrir.
One, two, three.
Now you can hear hi.
Hey.
Guys,
Hi,
I
guys.
dropped my social security number. I dropped my tax return.
Here, scoot in a little more.
Yeah,
that way we're all
scoot
on
in.
camera.
Guys, we have everyone in. Well, minus Mina, but
Mina.
we'll get Mina in.
We're missing the.
Yeah. We're missing. Actually, we are missing the G.
The G.
The G
We're
of that.
missing the
Right
G.
now, we're just va. We're va.
We don't have that G.
The ball.
Not the G spot.
Our G spot is vacant.
So without Mina, we're just VAs.
We're just.
We're
bad.
just VAs.
We're just
I like
bad.
Oh my god.
I know I don't like that.
Turn that down.
I need Mina.
Guys.
Hi Ace, what's up, you guys?
Hey. So yeah, here we are. So we made a fun discovery. First of all, I would like to point out
Yeah.
that when my starting soon music started playing, the bossa nova, Camden literally said not the French music, and I looked at
Well,
him,
because we were
and
doing,
I said,
we have a French theme today.
and then I said it's Portuguese.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I did that once in Duolingo. A long
Did you know
time
I got
ago.
sponsored one time by Babbel to learn French?
How'd it go?
How'd it go?
Nah. I don't remember anything
So you're
I
fluent,
learned.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is gonna be really easy for
Oui.
Molly.
Oui. Dulce.
Dulce oui.
Dulce yaoi.
Sacre bleu, yaoi.
I'm trying. Floor.
Okay, that's a
Floor.
word.
Fleur.
Wait, floor?
Floor.
Wait, what word were you trying to say?
FLEUR.
Okay.
What does it mean?
Flower.
Ah,
Yeah,
floor.
fleur de la cour.
Flower.
Fleur. But
Fleur.
not flour like baking flour, but like
Yeah.
the fleur.
Flower.
Like Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
No.
Yeah.
Well, like fleur de la cour, yes, but like.
See? I was right.
No,
I'm
he said,
French.
like, Harry Potter and then the Goblet of Fire. I was like, no, that's fire. That's feu.
So as you can
Yes.
see, our French is
Feu.
really good.
Feu.
The fleur is in the fleur.
Fleur is in the Goblet of Feu. Yes. Feu. It's the
All
same.
of
It's
this
the
to
same
say
e
is that
sound.
we're French.
No, actually, no.
See?
It's e versus
So this is gonna go really good.
So this is what we're going to do. Somehow, like the topic of like.
Christian, credit Christian.
Yeah, this is
This is Christian's
This is
idea.
Christian's
My
idea.
26 and me said that I was French.
Are you really?
No.
And it's
Damn.
23andMe, isn't it?
I love this already.
So
This is
the
fun.
de lis. It's the fleur de lis. It's the basically the type of flower it is basically. But yeah, so this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I am going to randomly pick a Pokemon,
Uh-huh.
and I am going to say the French name,
Okay.
and Molly and Camden are going to try to figure out what
Pokemon it is.
Pokemon I'm talking about.
We're
Now, do
translating.
we-
Okay, so everyone, imagination
translation's
brains. It's as if we were in Paris, France, and Molly
Is
and
it
I.
Paris?
Paris.
Paris.
I'm better at French
Right.
too.
See, no, I know. This is what. See, we each have different strengths that we bring to our French.
I think that's what they're saying. Chinese.
Right. So it's as if we were in
know
France, and then like Molly and me are the interpreters for you guys, and then this is the like native
I am
French
the
speaker.
French person who doesn't really speak English, so they're going to.
All right.
try to
Oui,
do-
oui, gimme, oui.
Your French accent is so pretty.
Yeah, so that's because I know how to do one.
No, I know.
It's because with French and with Italian, I actually I try to think about it in terms of the way that I actually speak it.
I love
So
it.
it's kind of I do this, and this is why I get cast as a lot of French characters.
I don't.
She's an icon.
It's,
I don't
it's-
either.
I actually-
oh my
imagine
god!
So actually, genuinely speaking, at one point I was the second choice for something, and but I found out because they brought in an actress. They had her play this French character, and I think they recorded the entire script, and then the French localization team were like, she's not French, you can't, no, find an actual French person.
Me.
And they hired me instead. And I'm
You're
technically
so French.
not really French, though. That's the thing.
Seeing Molly in the same screen as Camden Allegra is giving me the same feeling I had when I saw the Avengers for the first time.
Well, that's the thing. Actually, did you know
I love this.
all of Vag has
Yeah.
been together once,
A
but we
year
were
ago.
not yet Vag.
We were Vag before we were Vag.
Because we all went to
Pentaconey.
IHOP together. No,
Yes,
you left. You
this
didn't-
was before.
You left.
No, I was there.
No,
I
you were
was
she
there. Were
was
you
there.
actually there for the
Yeah,
IHOP
yeah.
part?
Yeah.
So all four of us
Because
went
Mina
to
and I were
IHOP
at
together.
the same hotel.
Yes, that's right.
Dude.
So we all went to IHOP together after the
That
Pentaconey
was when
event.
we first like.
That's
were
when we
really
all
meeting.
first met. So like I had met Camden like once before.
Yeah, we had that.
I had
other
never
thing.
met you.
Never met.
We met. Well, obviously
No,
I'd done the
I
stream.
met her and she fixed my dress.
It's true,
On the
I-
first.
So sweet.
I ripped it right when I put it
No,
on.
she didn't. She didn't rip it. There was a flaw in the seam.
Oh, I thought I ripped it.
No, I don't think so. So hold on, let me find like a garment. I
What?
can.
Oh.
I had known
girl.
Mina though. I had known Mina for quite a while before that event.
So
That's why we were. That's why
this
we're
is a
sleeping
pair of
together.
Pajama pants I have. So basically, when you look at a garment from the inside, I used to cosplay and I used to sew, so I know
So fun.
this stuff. So like when you look at a garment from the inside, you know how you have this like this border here.
Yeah.
This is how it makes the seam, and then the fabric on the inside usually is about like a fraction of an inch in some capacity, and it's cut and sewn together with a machine called a serger, which creates this kind of border
Oh, is that what
at the edge.
ripped?
Damn.
This,
Stitch broke.
yeah. So there was a hole in like that entire thing. There was a gap in that. So I went in and I just did a really simple whip stitch to patch that hole. It
That's a
did
bad
not.
bitch
It
move.
did not look like
There
you had
was-
popped it. It looked like there had been like
It was just unsewn.
like a manufacturing
Well,
error.
she fixed it, but
I
my
had a-
first instinct was to tape it. So that
Yeah, I
shows a
literally look at that, and I looked at that, and Molly's like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god!" And I was
I
like,
didn't know what to do.
I was like, "Girl, I got you." That was like the first full conversation we had.
Yeah, and then
was
she
like,
also got me butterfly hair clips. It was
I
very cute.
did. You did. You already had some in your hair.
I
but-
wore it the next day though.
Oh yeah, I didn't see you the next day.
We
but
went to
I
round
had seen them when I was going to get my own hair accessories, and I saw them at Target, and I was
They were
like,
butterflies.
They're butterflies. I'm gonna get them. So we had like, you and I had met on stream,
Mm-hmm.
so we'd done the stream together. Camden and I had actually met in person, but that was
I
that.
met you before that event too. We had
Yeah,
fun with
you-
Alejandro
yeah.
and Howard and Emily.
That was so fun.
That was a.
And then we went to Cold Stone after.
Yeah, that was the first time we
Ooh,
met.
that's fun. And then that was I had already done the poll stream with Mina a couple days earlier.
Right.
So I had done the epic Acheron stream.
But
Had
that was
happened.
everyone all together.
Yeah, but that was the four of us. That's the time the
beautiful.
four of us were together, but we were not yet a streaming unit. We were not like
We weren't as
friends.
close as
we were not.
yeah.
We had
friends.
We were
we
not
had the
friends.
cast stream. We didn't have Vag stream.
We didn't have
Yeah.
because Vag stream started in August.
Yeah.
Something like that. After
Yeah.
strike.
It was August because it was after the strike started, and I was like, I never want to stream again. And you guys were like, hey, you I think you messaged me, and you were just like, hey,
playing
we were
Lethal?
thinking of playing like. No, it started with Chain Together.
Was it
Yeah.
Chain Together?
Chain
the
Together was our
one?
first game.
You
Yeah.
and I played
We
Keep
had tried
Talking
a
and
couple
Nobody
of that one
Explodes.
was too smart for us.
That one.
Chernobyl?
That was-
No, to
Keep talking and nobody
exploding
explodes.
something.
That was fun.
Oh, I would
because
be good at that.
You would be so good.
I just- that game.
You know what? I bet Mina and I would fucking crush that one.
I bet you
Because
would.
Mina and I have we discovered this especially when playing Portal. She and I have really good gaming skills.
She's also like actually calm when she plays games for the
Yeah.
most part. So she'll actually talk to you. The rest of them, will just, the rest of us will just run.
yeah. No, the rest of Molly just starts panicking and screaming because a shrimp is there. And Camden, no matter what, he just sees anything and he goes, "Oh my gosh!"
No, he would do that. Like,
Yeah.
He does that.
He would tell me to cut the red wire, and then I would do it, and he'd be like, "Oh my gosh!" And I was like, "What? What is it?" Or he'll tell me to cut the red wire without the "oh my gosh," and I'll cut the wrong one.
To be fair, you guys didn't want to read the manual.
It was 23 pages.
Oh my
really
god!
We're not gonna.
No
we're
one
like,
was
I can't
actually.
decide.
yeah.
I love. Can we talk about the fact that I've taken my hair up and down like about 6 times on the past minute because I can't decide what I'm doing with it because I just keep looking at my
didn't
hair.
even notice.
I keep looking at my hair and being like, what is going on with it? And so I just keep going up and down and up and down. Yeah. The number of times, Camden, literally, especially because it's like, whether it's positive or negative, it's always, oh my gosh, every single time.
It
Like,
is-
there's a shrimp. There's a coil head. Actually, no. You know coil head by. No. You know Camden coil head by. Oh, I love them.
I do.
I do. Something's wrong with you.
No, for sure.
And you know when I found a bracken by going, oh, look away, look away, look away, look away.
And then I don't.
And then I go,
don't, and
ooh,
I
what's
die.
that? Look away from what?
I look away from the eyes, not the whole thing.
Yeah, you have to look
Yeah,
away
yeah.
from the whole
I can't
fucking
tell
thing.
where he is sometimes because he just blends in
Right.
the background.
You're like, which way am I looking
No,
away
okay,
from?
so when Camden and I were playing just the two of us together,
Just the two of
that
us.
bracken would not leave me alone.
No, I know. He was
That
Can
bracken.
we have a mod for like a more aggressive bracken?
No, I don't need it. That bracken lost me too much.
No, but like, do we
No, the
have one
bracken
activated on
wouldn't
the
leave me
stick?
alone because it was after Mina left. The two of us kept playing, and that
Yeah.
bracken would not leave me the fuck.
It was like for 3 runs in a row.
It's just
it was instant bracken, instant next snap.
No, it didn't. It only got me once, but I would like turn around and I would just see the bracken and I'd turn away, and then we'd go to the next map and I would turn around and the bracken was there. I'm like, ugh. Although there was that time
Bracken's
I was
after
like,
you.
I literally turned around at one point and the bracken was there and it got me immediately. That sucked.
Yeah.
That sucked, especially because I was just like, oh, we're just gonna go this way. Ah! And then Camden's like, you cut to Camden in the other room, like, I think she's dead. Yeah, we'll just bring Amma.
For sure.
Bring Amma, and then like maybe the bracken will
Yeah.
get distracted by
Please,
Amma.
please.
That would be
She
lovely.
can take her man. I don't want her man.
Yeah.
He's trash to me. He's a
My
he's
voice,
a,
my
he's
voice
a
is
man.
better. My
He's a
voice is
man,
better.
so I automatically.
Well, not really, but it's fine.
We're gonna get you some more water. We're gonna hydrate you. Do you need some
No,
more water
it's,
right
it's
now?
so much better now. It's really bad in the morning still, but like once it's warmed up, it's usually good.
Okay.
Okay. hell
That's
yeah.
why morning sessions, I was like, can it not be until after 2 o'clock?
Well, guess what? Not happening this time. All right, let me see if I can do it so that it just like randomly picks a Pokemon for me.
Okay.
Hold on.
Cute.
Random Pokemon.
I like the bathtub
generator.
for the ducks.
Yes,
It's
isn't it
cute,
great?
right?
That's very cute. I like how Acheron does not fit
I'm
in this.
obsessed with all of your
No,
plushies.
none of them do. It's insane. Here, generate a webpage to pick a random Pokemon. Okay. So I'm gonna have to do it this way.
Pick a Pokemon and then search the French name.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. We got this.
Okay, and I'm going to. Do you want me to stick to just Gen 1 right now, for instance, so we start easy? And
Yes.
It's not.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We
I
have like
start-
a barometer.
I start forgetting the names as we go on.
Let's do the
Okay,
fort
so I'm
in the
gonna go
garbage
to-
disposal. Let's do the fort in the garbage disposal. Ding 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 ding
That's the
ding
fort.
ding 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 ding.
Oh, where's the little? Is the blurb thing still there? Yeah, it's
Blurb.
there. It should have popped up. There we go. Okay. Now, all right. Let me open the different tag that has Bulbapedia in it. Sorry, this is a little less artful than I want it to be. I wish I could just like pick a random page on Bulbapedia, but it doesn't seem to be what I can do. Okay. Don't just keep doing blurbs, guys. Hold on. Walk through. Oh la la. Characters. Pokemon. Here we go.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
All right.
We're gonna crush it.
Okay.
We are the ultimate French interpreters.
Interpretweeze.
Interpreters?
Super tweets.
All right.
So if you were ever going on vacation in France, you know who to take. Because we got
Move, I'm
we
gay.
translate everything for you guys.
Alright. I'm
We
ready.
this is
Okay.
all the months of yaoi, of our fast food simulator, of our ranch simulator. What other? We've done so many simulators.
There's
Okay.
more. We'll
So we're
always do
in.
more.
So we're in Generation 1.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right. Papillusion.
Oh, I was like Poplio, but then that
That's
one's later.
Gen 7. So
Okay.
no.
Can
Was
I
I close?
say it again? How many syllables?
4 syllables.
Pop illusion.
Papillusion.
Psyduck.
No.
Happy.
Popilu. Pop.
Papillusion.
Papillusion. Okay, so poppy is like pop,
Rap.
like bubble. Oh my god. Oh, Squirtle.
You already had your guess, and I told you no. You can't. Okay, fine.
Yes,
I'll
I
be
can
nice.
guess.
All right, and it's not Squirtle anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
But
Papillusion.
okay, wait. Can we ask for hints?
Do you want to know what the-
Element.
Yeah.
Is
Is it water?
No. It's a bug Pokemon.
Okay.
Butterfree.
Yes.
Ben,
Papillion,
you're
papillion.
so
Papillon.
French.
Papillon is butterfly. So it's
Okay.
papillon and illusion. So papillusion.
Because disappear illusions of the past. Papillusion.
I felt the connection.
Yeah. Okay, it makes sense.
Okay. Wait, no,
Okay.
we need to. You know what I need to do?
What do you need to do?
I need to do. We're gonna keep a little score.
It's a contest now.
Yes.
What,
You're
but
going
we're
down.
teamwork makes the dream work. Why am I lowercase?
I fixed it.
Not the 0.
Hold on,
Zero,
let me do
zero.
outline. There we go. And then let's make this font a little smaller because this is too big.
For
Oh
sure.
God, how do I make this font smaller?
I think you just like click and
I'm just
drag.
gonna have to do that way, yeah.
Hell yeah.
But let me get the outline to be a little bigger. Hold on. Here, outline size. Oh, wait, the outline is also white for some reason. Non. Merci. Oh là là. Merci beaucoup.
I know that one. Well, I don't know what it means. but-
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Next.
Yeah.
Next week.
Next week.
All right. Let's see what the next one was on this because it generated 4. So.
Okay.
All right. I gotta go to it. This is not very artful, but at least I can type in the.
Oui, croissant. Redeemed a door. Oh, fun.
Don't worry about it.
I love
You're not gonna get this one.
it. Watch us.
Sablero.
Can you say it again?
Sablero.
That's Psyduck.
No. I hope Psyduck never comes up and you just keep guessing.
Shut
Psyduck.
up.
It would be so good.
Charmeleon.
Arcanine.
In there.
No. Is there what?
And like a Wii, and is like an off distance of like a cousin in the family.
Element,
is a
element.
Wii.
It's still all Gen 1. I don't know how much knowing the element is going to help you because that's technically the word that you would get most easily. It's ground Pokemon.
Geodude.
No.
Crap.
Sablero.
See, when you give us the element, we start guessing
Yeah.
random shit.
Yeah.
Until one of us gets it. Sublime.
So this one's going to be a little tough for you.
Okay.
Because like the easiest word in there is sable, which means sand. So
Sandshrew.
no,
Sandslash.
Slash.
it's sand slash.
Ah, we got it.
But technically speaking, it's like that wasn't going to be that. Just knowing that
We were never
sand
gonna
was
get
one
that.
of the words.
Yeah.
We were never gonna get
Is
that.
like okay, so ground type, you know. But
Okay.
yeah, sablero. Blero means badger,
Cute.
Sand badger.
sand badger.
Do they say that when in Pokemon? Sablejo, sablejo.
You know, I have never watched the Pokemon thing, and Belette, I'm guessing, I don't actually know that word very well. It's probably baby badger is my guess, and
Okay.
it's Sablette is is Sandshrew, and Belette. Oh, it's a weasel. Yeah, so it's weasel versus badger. So yeah. So Sablette is Sandshrew, and Sablero is Sandslash.
My first thought went to Sabotage.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, never the same, totally
Okay, so
unique,
that
completely
goes to
not
Molly.
ever been done before.
Oh.
You technically Molly got it.
She got
wait.
Sandshrew. and
You
then
said
I
Sandslash.
said well, we said it at the same time. I think that's a both of us.
Okay, you guys can both get a point.
Yay, we're all
Camden,
winners.
Camden is finally on the board.
Yay!
I just said you're finally on the board.
Oh my god! Once we get past Gen 3, it's over because I don't even know what the Pokemon are anymore.
Oh my god.
Can we have a Pokédex too?
Oh, okay. This one's really easy. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Arbok.
Arbok.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
bro, send it now.
I know.
Wait, is that really? It's French name?
Yeah, it's the same. Arbok.
Arbok?
It's the same thing. Yeah, Arbok.
Okay, cute.
Spelled the exact same way.
Wow.
Okay. Okay.
So sometimes the Pokemon name is the exact same as it is in English or Japanese.
Oh, I love that.
But sometimes
Okay.
it's not.
I thought English was Arbok because Cobra. So I guess
Backwards.
French
Yeah,
also
I think
did
the
the same
Japanese.
thing.
I think the Japanese is also Arbok.
Oh, that's probably why they kept it like that then.
They just everything. Let me check.
Okay.
Yes. The Japanese is from Cobra spelled backwards.
Someone
so
said,
they-
"Oh man, my guess was Flareon."
Okay, let's see how this one turns out because I don't always know the names of them. Oh, maybe I'll get this one. Dracofeu.
Dragonite?
No,
Dragonair?
no.
Charizard?
Yes.
Cause
Bitch.
Drac.
And
so,
feu. You
dude,
should've-
you're so French.
And you should
I
have
don't know
known
what
this
that
one because we
means.
talked about it. Feu. The word feu
Oh,
means
dude.
fire. Feu.
Yeah.
You
I
would
didn't know
literally.
that.
I know.
You and I
Bitch,
were-
you
I
think I
didn't know
remember
that.
that far back?
You just guessed all the dragons already. So I went to the next dragon.
No, this is good because we have to be together in order to make one coherent French person.
Okay.
To make a fourth of a coherent French person.
All right. I've got the next.
It's because you
four.
had that babble.
Thank you, Babel, for teaching
Babble
me
pulling
Pokemon
through.
names.
And this is how you know. Download now. Use code Molly.
All right.
Okay.
We've got the next one, and I have a funny thing to say about me searching it and what it
Yeah.
auto-corrected to.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
You're not gonna get this one. All right, we're still on Gen 1.
Okay.
Scarabrute.
What? I feel like this is scare. No, that's a later one.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Scarabrute.
But this is the second one that sounded like Sacré Bleu.
Did you say it sounds like Sacré Bleu?
It sounds like Sacré Bleu, which is the other one that you had said. Which was that one? No, that one was the Poppin' and Lockin', which was Butterfree.
The fuck you say to me?
I'm so French. Okay.
I want to point out that you're losing. Yeah, Scarabrute.
Hey,
they
Ma,
wrote it out.
I
for us.
walked so Molly could run. Okay, wait, say it one more time.
Scarabrute and Soul Mechanism spelled it out for you.
That doesn't. I still don't know.
Scarabrute.
Okay, so it's not Skitty. It's not
Gengar.
the Sudowoodo.
No.
Oh, cause Scary Brood.
That's what
Okay.
I was
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
for.
Okay, no, I see
I
what
don't
you
think,
did there. I see
I don't
what you
think
did
these
there.
are the root words. I just want you to know.
Oh, what's Geodude's evolved one? Graveler? Graveler.
No.
Is that
Golem.
what it is
No.
though?
Element.
Yes, that's Graveler and Golem are the evolutions of it,
Oh,
but it is
I
not the
forgot
correct
about Gollum.
answer.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
I
that's-
thought that
that's
we were
Molly
just
got the
doing
next
like
one.
a Lord of the Rings reference.
No. Golem is the rounder one.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
smoother rounder
The-
one, where
yeah.
the rocks
Right.
are like polished. Give me the element.
Bug.
Oh, what the fuck?
Caterpie!
No.
A Weedle!
No.
None of those are
All
scary
right.
brutes. Bug.
All right, I feel like I need to limit Camden
No,
at this
you
point.
don't.
All he's doing is just guessing every single Pokemon he can think
No,
of.
Who? What other?
Metapod.
The Mega Drill, Horn Drill,
Pinsir!
Pinsir.
Pinsir.
Oh!
Dude! See, the two of us have to be together in order to figure that
I will
out.
count it for both of
This
you.
is two brain cells.
This is two brain cells that need each other.
Scarabrute comes from Scarabée and
Dude,
Brute.
you're so good at French.
Actually, is it actually Scary Brood or is it something else?
Scarab.
Oh, we were not close. We
I mean,
guessed. That
we
was a
still
guess.
got there.
Well, that was
we
a
still
lucky
got there.
guess. We
No,
were
no, no, no,
not
no,
Because
no.
close.
Scarabée
There's-
is Scarab
there's a
and
method.
Brute.
We
So,
thought it was Scary
Scarab.
Brew.
No, it's Scarab.
Scarab.
Because
Okay,
it's
cute.
because the words are allied together.
Two French brain cells ping pong.
All right, what's the next one? I can't even remember who. Oh, right. So as I typed in Pinsir,
Yeah.
it auto corrected to Pundit. I just
like a-
thought
is
that
that
was
like a-
very funny.
Is that French or is that?
No,
Oh.
Pundit, like the English
Oh.
word pundit. Like I was just
Oh
thought that
man,
was
my
very.
English and French are bad. I don't know what that is.
It's true, you guys are a cling clang.
Clink, clink. Hey, that's the key.
Oh, no, it's
No.
the gears.
Oh.
Camden gets a point.
For something not
I don't know
French.
anything after Jen, whatever.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, hit us with the next
All right. I'm pulling it up.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god, no. Just pull up the actual Pokemon
Taking
page.
turns with the brain cell.
Sharing is caring.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Because I'm looking at the etymology and I was like, really, that word? Okay.
Yeah.
Florizard.
Floor is Bellossom.
No.
Bellsprout.
No. And Blossom is also
Vileplume.
Gen 2.
No, fuck.
Vileplume.
No.
No, wait, did I say
Flower.
Bellsprout?
Yes.
I said that's like, okay,
Yeah,
no.
Blossom
Weaving
is
Bell.
No. And Blossom is Gen 2.
That is true.
Yeah.
Okay, flower. It's flower. It's fleur.
Say that.
Florizard.
Fleuriza.
Fleur is definitely flower.
So, okay, so it's a flower,
else is
it's a
flowers?
bug. So
I never said typing.
No, you never did, but I'm getting myself there. Okay, you
We already
watch.
said all the flower. What else is flowers?
No, we're not thinking like deep enough. Okay,
We
so
did
something.
Vileplume. We did Valsprout.
Oh, wait.
We did
Wait, what did you say? Vileplume?
But I said Vileplume.
That's
right?
like the third one.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
okay.
not Gloom. There's no. Is Gloom?
It's not Gloom.
No, I don't. It can't be Oddish. Oddish has no flower. We heard
Unless-
one word in there that we recognized,
It's
and
like
we're like
the
sticking
flower
to it.
because we're French. And we,
That is the I will my hint is that is the better word to stick to.
Okay.
Because the other one, the other half of it, I was surprised that was the choice they made.
Flower.
Okay, flower. So something flower.
Yeah, they are. Adventuring Snazzy Hat says waiting for the brain cell to hit the corner of the TV.
Flower.
Okay, flower. So-
Bulbasaur.
No.
Venusaur.
Yes.
Dude,
Flower.
you're so good at this.
I'm really sticking with the
No,
flower.
you're
I'm
so
really just sticking with the
Fleur,
flower.
which is like not fleur but fleur. I'm like okay,
Yeah.
and then bizarre.
What
was
is
it?
bizarre?
Bizarre means
Like-
weird, and so that was
weird
weird
flower?
I was surprised by that. Like if anything, like I almost was thinking like it almost had the lizard part, like like. The
Yeah, I
Charmander,
would've thought flower,
Charmeleon,
lizard.
Charizard. Charizard is for lizard. The Izard is for lizard. So at first I thought maybe like a Florizard is like flower lizard or something like that, even though it's more of a frog than a lizard.
Okay.
But it was for bizarre, and I was like, c'est bizarre. It's weird, but but yeah, you're on fire, Molly.
For real.
I'm guessing.
You're the
That's
best
it.
guesser. No,
It's actually guessing.
it's
like,
your
sign up
experience.
for anything
Right.
I say.
It's the babble.
No, I know.
Babbel.
Damn, Babbel really works.
Guys, babble.
Guys, you heard it here first.
You don't know how struggling that session was.
I could imagine.
Like towards the end, they quiz you, and I was like, fuck.
Not the quiz.
It was
French
so
is
hard.
also not an easy language.
No,
For
it's
sure
not.
Okay.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
Tortank.
Donk donk.
No.
Tortank.
Chansey.
Psyduck. I heard duck in there.
You're right. There's donk. Donk.
Okay.
Donk donk. It's not.
Donk.
It's not donk donk. It's tortank.
That's donk.
It's like duck tank. Psyduck.
donk donk.
Okay.
Blastoise.
Yes.
I just thought tank.
Yes.
Because he has.
That's
Really?
exactly, that is exactly correct. Yes.
Bitch, I'm guessing.
Not you. And you're
Bitch, I'm guessing.
You're 26 and me. You're actually. She's actually
23. It's 23. What it is that Molly. What it is that Molly is successfully using context clues. What's funny?
But she can't use context clues unless she knows the language, so she's French.
No, she literally no. It's actually no. Actually, no. Actually, I am gonna argue you on this one. I think we need to hit him with a shovel.
My 26 and me became 27. Because it's another brain cell.
Camden, please.
It's another brain. What's brain cell in French?
I don't even remember.
Brain cell,
honestly. My vocabulary is like the first thing that comes to me. So actually, it was you got it exactly correct. actually not even sure if that is exactly how you pronounce it. I made an educated guess because
Oh my god.
it's from Tuktu and the word tank. So you actually got it exactly correct because it is T-A-N-K at the end. So
I
it is
went with the only
literally,
word I recognize.
it is literally a tank. And it's funny because you said that. You said
That's how I
you
thought of it,
said-
'cause you
because you said
Because again, we both have to be here to make one French interpreter. I can't explain how we get there, but
rather
it
than
does.
pitting two queens against each other.
Yeah,
I
what-
think
see-
what we need
see,
to do.
that's what they do.
I
They
think
like
we
to
need
divide
structure.
us.
I think what's got to be is
Okay.
you give us 3 guesses before we can ask for the element, and then we get another 3 guesses. And if we
Okay.
don't get it,
Is
you
this a
get the point.
collective guess?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you can't spitfire anymore.
Yeah, you
And then
can't
if we don't get it
anymore.
after 6 tries, which is sufficient, then you get the point.
Okay.
Okay,
Let's do
okay.
it that way.
Because we
Okay,
do we wanna reset
can,
then?
Okay, but
Reset.
yeah.
two,
No,
what do we
but-
call it?
we're 2 halves of half a French interpreter.
Two halves.
2 halves of a French
Hold on.
interpreter.
2 halves of half a French interpreter.
Two non-francophones sharing
What is
a
francophone?
brain cell. Person who speaks French.
Oh,
And then Allegra.
We're francophones?
no.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
just non.
Oh, 2 non-francophones sharing a brain cell.
Okay.
I'm trying to remain like as calm as I can so I don't lose my voice again, but also like I'm crying.
Yeah, no.
Here, let's do this. Hey, babe. Christian, can you bring us some water, please? So Molly can have some water. All right. All
I'm
right.
sorry.
We're starting for real.
Okay,
Great,
that was
with-
warm-up
with the
round.
new, with the new structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Christian gave us the idea like an hour ago.
That's true.
Okay, this one
Okay.
actually
Yeah.
for our first official.
Gen 1.
Okay.
Gen 1
It's
still?
still, we're all still in
Okay.
Gen 1.
Okay.
This
Okay.
one,
Okay.
actually, I think you guys are going to get if you remember this Pokemon.
Okay.
Okay, this
Psyduck?
No, doesn't count. Doesn't count. Doesn't count.
What do you think? Chat, do you think it should
No.
count?
No.
I think
Just
it
say
should.
no.
No,
Just say
I'm
no.
saying this is an easy one, so I'm counting
Okay.
it.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Amonistar.
Stop. Star. I heard star.
You?
Can I get a repeat of the word, please?
Can you use it in a sentence?
Is that allowed? Can we ask that?
I'm asking. I'll say it a second time.
Okay.
You want it in a sentence? Wow! C'est un Amonistar.
Okay, which part of that was Pokemon?
C'est de Amonistar.
Amonistar.
Amonistar. Like amethyst, like jewel, like
Oh,
star.
I thought it was sea
star
anemone. A sea anemone. What is it? Sea anemone?
Sea anemone.
Sea anemone?
I can't
Star.
comment on any of this.
I think it's either Staryu.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it's either Staryu or Starmie.
I'm okay. Yeah.
Staryu or Starmie.
Thank you. It's gotta be either Staryu or Starmie.
I hear the star.
Yeah, I hear the
And
star.
then the
too.
Amonista, I don't know what that
Okay,
part
but
is.
also all of this is under the assumption that like star in French is star in English, which I mean I assume it's probably
Star is
not.
universal.
Okay.
Because it's
okay.
not that in Chinese.
I like that.
It's not universal, I lied.
Oh.
So, hey, chat. If you, think, I don't want you guys to guess in chat on the off chance
Let
that
them
you
guess,
are.
we'll look
yeah,
away.
yeah. We'll
Okay,
just look at
okay,
each other.
okay. You know what? Yeah, don't look at chat.
That way
then.
they have some engagement.
Okay, yeah. So please don't look at chat.
Okay.
I'm
okay.
gonna. I'll move it over here. So it's
I
closer
didn't
to me.
even see it.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
Because one person did guess it correctly.
A.
I'm going to lock in Starmie.
No.
Okay.
That's 1 star down. How many stars are there?
2.
Okay, so
There's
that's-
star U.
Staryu.
No. Okay, so
What are
now.
stars?
Okay, wait. Now
So
we
no,
get a hint.
now you get your hint.
If
Yeah.
you say water, I'm gonna die.
If it's got 2 typing, should I give both types?
Yes.
Oh, 2 typings is already a start.
Okay. Well.
If it's 2 type, no, that's too much. Give us one of the 2 typings, but tell us it's 2 types.
give
It's
us
2 types.
one of the types.
Water.
Oh shit.
See, okay, we
Should
were
I be
right.
kinder to the? Should I be kinder? Should I be kinder? Should I give them both types?
No,
Let
no,
us
no,
guess
wait.
again,
Okay.
and then.
Let us guess.
No,
Let's guess.
no, it's
Yeah.
6. We're going up to 6.
Yeah, we still have 3. We
Yeah,
still have 3.
yeah, yeah.
Think.
Oh, hi, Nazzy.
What's up, Nazi?
Hi, Nizzy. Oh, don't look at chat. Hi, Nizzy.
Go, hi, Nazi.
Okay. Are you
Okay.
in LA, Nizzy? Tell me what he says.
Okay, come on.
Star,
You got
star,
three.
Two types.
Okay,
One
okay,
is
so
water.
one is water.
Not seahorse, not kingdra.
Wait.
Star.
Okay, star. What's look like star? 5 points.
What is the? There's a Pokemon named Star. The squid. What's the?
Tentacruel?
No,
Tentacool?
no. That's not. There's a. Sayu da da da. Oh no, that one. From the Pokerap.
Women.
Oh no,
Yeah.
no. And the Pokemon, it goes Oma Star. That one. Oma. No.
Almost star.
Oma, the squid guy. What's his?
Ten-
What's the Helix called?
Don't help. Well, okay, no. You do you want to give? He doesn't know the answer. He is going to. Would you like to phone a friend? Would you like to phone a Christian?
Phone a Christian.
Phone a Christian.
Okay. How does phoning a Christian help with the scoring? Does it?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It's just like it just adds.
He's part of the collective.
He's part of
Are
the
you?
collective.
Hey,
yeah.
do you want to be two non-francophones sharing a brain cell?
I'm sorry, what happened?
Do you want to be two non-francophones sharing a brain cell?
Do you?
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay,
he's one
so
of us.
now it's 3. All right.
I add
Yeah.
zero help to this.
No.
No, but
we believe.
No, but you might be able to identify the Pokemon that
She's
they're.
not, we're now 3 non-francophones, so you have to join us now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So Molly
know
was
the
trying to
Pokemon?
figure out.
Yes.
Where it goes,
Which-
Oma Star. What's the pre-evolution for that?
First of all, Almanite?
Almanite? Was
so-
Almanite in?
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I'm thinking of the
I
Pokemon
don't
rap.
think there's an Omastar.
Oh, is there not an Oma Star?
Are you talking about like the fossil thing that I thought was really cute, that's blue, that has its arms like this? It's
Yeah,
like-
I thought it was that, but now I don't think so, because Oma
Oh.
Star apparently isn't real, so I got it wrong.
Well, no. I mean,
I'm purely checking if I know the name of this Pokemon that I am talking about. Or if
No,
I'm
okay, yeah, no, okay, no, Almastar, okay.
I don't think his name is Oma Star.
No.
It's not Omastar. Omastar
Okay.
does not exist.
I thought it was Oma Star.
Actually, no, that's not true. Omastar does exist.
Oh! Wait.
See,
Which
you're
one?
French.
Which one is Oma Star? Is it the pre?
That's
is
like
it
the
3
shell
tier?
with the blue in the
Yes,
front,
but there's
right?
a pre-evolution and there's like another one.
There's like Kabutops.
The
No, no,
pre-evolution. I'm sorry, this is painful to me. The pre-evolution is Almanite.
Almanite.
into
Is that the one that I was thinking that was Almastar?
The
one that's like-
Almanite is the one you think is cute.
Okay.
Not
Is it
that
Almanite?
one.
Then is it Almastar? What does Almastar look like? I forgot.
It doesn't have a star. I just remember
Imagine
the name has a
Almanite
star.
and then imagine more Almanite.
Bigger? Okay.
I'm gonna guess that one just because it has star in the name, but I don't.
Yes.
visually-
Yes.
Oh.
Yay!
Just. I had to
She's
give
like,
that
for
one.
the love of everything, yes, next one.
It was so easy. It's literally Amonistar.
Oh. I forgot the word.
Amonistar.
I just heard star.
I only heard star.
Amonistar is Ammonite star, which is also the
What
same
is
basis.
ammonite?
Ammonite is a type of
Rock.
fossil.
Oh.
Okay, so I was
Also
kind of onto
star.
something because I was like,
Yeah.
damn it,
Yeah, so it's
okay.
literally
The
almost star.
other branch.
I was
That's
thinking
why.
the other-
That's why.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why I thought it was very easy because it's Ammonite star.
You
It's
cute.
Ammonistar.
overestimated a lot.
For sure.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, next
Boy.
one, next one.
All right, now I gotta do another randomizer. So let's fucking go. We're still in Gen 1. I'm gonna be
Let's go.
generous.
So sweet.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's start here. Oops.
For sure. Okay, what does everyone think it's going to be before she says it?
Hi, Nizzy. Are you still here?
Oh shit, Naziz's there? What up, dude?
Hi, Nazi.
He said
was
something
there.
before. He was there. I don't know if he's still chatting though. Someone did him a sub. Oh yeah, there's Nazi. Oh, Ace gifted him a sub. Thank you, Ace.
Oh, thanks, Ace.
No, he's home. He says.
Oh, cool.
Oh, he's in Texas?
Yeah. Hold on. Oh no. Hold on. It's
Fine.
doing the thing where.
Oh, darn. Well, as you can tell, I'm not in Texas right now. Otherwise, I'd say let's do something.
Hold on. No, it's doing the the thing where it's like
That's why I never moved mine. I can't deal with it.
For sure.
No, it's the thing where that covers it, so I can't fucking see. Here we go.
There we go.
Okay, now I can finish looking up Pokemon.
We're doing
names.
great.
Yeah,
We
they're
are- dude, we're doing
great.
really
The
good.
more the merrier. First round's on me.
Oh.
That's This one's hard.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hit us with the hard
Okay,
one.
okay.
Lamentine.
You!
Yeah.
Him!
You got it.
No, it's...
You got
He's
it.
that Pokemon.
You're Christian! Hey!
Christian Lamonti.
Oh!
Yeah! Do you get it?
Oh!
Dude, I'm so smart, bitch.
I'm not going to count that as a guess for your sake.
I was like, do you know the answer? Why am I looking at you? Now I understand. Because I've only heard it as Lamont. So when he was like, Lamontier, I was like, what?
Lamontine.
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 Is that the Pokemon or is that a Christian?
What are the origins of
Italian.
What is it? Mountain? Okay, mountain. Ground.
Mountain. Ground.
Ground.
Okay.
Okay, so ground. It's a ground Pokemon. Groudon?
Wait, are those your hints? Is it like
Groudon's
types?
not Gen 1.
I haven't given type yet.
No. We're just trying to
They guess
dissect
3,
it.
and then I give type, and they get 3 more guesses.
Okay.
Or you're also helping.
Okay.
You're involved in this.
Yeah. Okay.
Pull up a
He
chair.
has to be involved in
Your
this.
game origins
Yeah.
in Pokemon Camden. I can't.
Wait, we can't look
What?
at the chat.
No, Paragon Greninja is just laughing at the act of using Christian's name origin.
No, I mean like that's fair.
yeah,
That's
it's
fair.
No, I love that you asked and he said not French and you're still using it as a name origin.
Well,
Italians, basically.
It's like
not
yeah.
not to try to lead it in any direction, but technically French and Italian do have the same. They do have the same romance base.
What is
However,
Mountain.
however,
Okay, I get that.
Okay.
I get it. Okay, so we just have to think of
I
what are
wish I
Pokemon
could
that
have
look
tried to
like.
teach them something and they're like, no, rocket focus.
No, yeah.
What's more mountainy? Dugtrio?
Oh. Okay.
That would probably have a 3 in it. That seems like
That's
the big
true.
joke on Doug Trio.
Oh, the single one.
Diglett. Diglett?
No.
Okay.
That's one.
Okay, so other mountainy one.
Either Geodude or Onyx is my next guess.
Ooh.
Geodude.
No.
No. I feel like. Okay, Onyx is kind of like mountainy, right?
Onyx is
like
nothing.
he's big.
I guess he's big.
He's big. He has like a pointy
Onyx.
No.
Type.
Okay, I want to
Is it ground?
check something. It's not ground. I want to check something first.
Is there a non-mountain?
Lamont.
Non-grounding?
Le
Watch
Mans.
it not be
A non-grounding mountain.
Not
Hold on,
grounding.
I'm checking. I have to do a quick check. To make sure. Okay, giving one of the types. So it is a 2 type.
Okay.
I am going to give you the one that won't narrow it down as aggressively.
Okay.
Because
Why? We're obviously flailing.
only
She wants to
because
see us flail.
the second type has fewer
No, she doesn't.
The second type has fewer Pokemon of that type in the generation, so you would just guess.
Kind of a big giveaway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, water.
Okay.
Don't
Okay.
say Psyduck. Don't say Psyduck.
Wait.
No, it's.
Because it does.
It would
wait,
be
is it
really
like
funny
psychic?
if she gave you Psyduck for fun.
She's right?
Trying to Inception
Say the
me.
name again.
Hold on. Let me say it
He's
again.
guessed Psyduck every single round.
Lamontine.
Okay.
Lemontine, and it's
sounds like a
because
Goldeen.
it's like,
Because it's not mountain. It just sounds pretty.
but like Goldeen has like a point.
Is Goldeen 2 types?
Oh, fuck
no.
no. Okay, smart. So smart. Okay, he's steering
Is
it.
Goldeen's evolution? No, it's Seadra.
No.
Whatever the fuck.
Okay,
I believe
what's
Seeking is also single type, yes.
what's a Pokemon that? What's a type that is few in Generation 1? Like Psychic,
Oh no,
Dark.
I don't want you to play it that way. That's
Okay.
not fair.
Did you give
Okay,
one of
fine.
the elements already?
I get water.
It was water.
Water and
Okay,
something
so
else. I still don't know.
So okay, so if we think about it like mountain, like water of the mountain, like water of the sky. Sea, no.
Seadra's Gen.
So no looking at chat because people are making guesses in chat.
Seadra. Kingdra is the new one.
Kingdra.
Seadra could. Oh.
Kingdra
But
is
what are
Kingdra
the-
is Generation
that
2.
single type.
Kingdra,
No, flying.
Kingdra is also Gen 2, so
No.
I have to point that out.
Seadra is still.
Seadra is Generation 1.
Yeah, but
Kingdra
it's
is Generation
water.
So let me ask you, is half the point that we're winging what all the Gen 1 Pokemon are? Or do you want us to have a list of Gen 1 Pokemon that we can pull from? Both answers are fine.
I don't necessarily want to, but I will help you find the Pokemon. Like I will be. The only reason I didn't want to help too much with the previous one was because it was like that one was so easy that if I said Omastar, you would get it immediately. But yeah, I did help you.
The water.
Are we sure on the mountain part?
No.
Not even a little
Not even
bit.
a little bit. Lamonti. Can you say it again?
Lamontine.
Lemontine.
Like
Teen.
poutine.
Like what?
I'm glad you're okay, Molly. I think that's important. I'm glad you're doing good. You're out here.
I gotta start setting a time limit on this.
No.
We haven't guessed a
No, no,
single
no, no.
Pokemon yet.
Well,
I don't know where to start.
we only
haven't guessed
we
a
only
single-
have 3, so we want to like make sure that we
No,
use
I
it
also
like
just
very
don't know where to
carefully.
start with the 3.
Water.
Okay, water.
Water
but,
Pokemon.
Water, but also something else.
Lapras.
No.
Oh.
Lapras a good guess.
That was
Good
a-
guess.
That was a good guess.
Oh, but it's mono. It's
a good
mono
guess.
water.
Wait, legendary. Lugia? Is
No,
that's
not Gen
definitely
1.
not Gen
Lugia is Gen 2.
I don't think they were
Okay.
legendary. Is it Blastoise?
No, because we already did Blastoise.
Ah, okay.
So I'm not going to count that one because
wasn't
you were
here for
not
that.
here when
Yeah.
Is
we did
Blastoise
Blastoise.
more than one element?
No, Blastoise is monotype.
Is he they were monotype in that first one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
all of the.
This is before they started getting
Actually,
creative.
no, Venusaur was grass poison,
Yes, he was.
and
Right.
Oh!
Charizard was fire flying.
Was Lantern Gen 1 or Gen 2?
That's Gen 3, I think.
Oh,
Lantern,
never mind.
yeah.
Okay.
She sounds like she'd be a Lamonte.
I like Kingdra
You know,
and
I can see
Seadra.
that.
I like
I can
those.
see
There's
that.
something
Kingdra
about-
is Gen 2, though, just
Okay.
as a reminder.
Okay. What
damn.
other water?
Oh, Lantern is Gen 2.
Wait. Like Dragonite?
Dragonair?
Dragonair, Dragonite.
She sounds more Lamonte.
She sounds more Lamonti. Yeah.
but no mountain.
Yeah. No, not mountain, but it sounds like she's elegant.
Dragonair.
No.
Dragonite. No, not Dragonite. No, the other one.
Dratini.
Dratini.
No.
Okay.
That was all 3.
Wait, was that 3?
Before you, it's
No,
already
no.
your point, but can you just give us another hint?
What was the other element?
Ice.
Dugong.
Yes.
Okay.
She also sounds like a Lamonte.
She sounds like a Lamonte.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with mountains.
Oh.
What I was trying to tell you. So what I was trying.
But you could see where I was going with that,
I
right?
was yes. What I
Okay,
was
wait,
trying.
no, point. Dugong has a
Hello.
point. Mountain.
May I speak?
Yes.
What I was trying to tell you is that French and Italian have the same romance basis. However, as someone who speaks both of those languages, that is sometimes a false flag, in particular for French and Italian, because there are dissimilarities as well.
Oh.
Montagne is French for mountain. So mont would work, but at the same time, you were going the wrong path by going with the mountain. You were also thinking of the wrong vowel sound for mont. You were going with mont, and I was saying mont. Montine.
I honestly didn't hear that.
That is some Leo
Yeah,
straight up.
well, it changes the word, doesn't it? Because Montine, not to be confused with Mantine of Generation
Oh, I
3.
can't believe we didn't even think about that.
Mountain.
Well,
manatee.
wrong generation. Montine
Oh.
means manatee.
That makes a lot of
We
sense.
have
But
the
it's a
added
seal.
bonus of not remembering what generation things are.
Dugong. Well, Dugong is a manatee, actually.
No.
We did guess
So-
Dugong. Oh no, we didn't.
No, you
We
didn't.
guessed-
Dugong.
we
You got
guessed
it. That was after the fact. After I told you that.
What,
the
what was the
second
other
type
thing we
ice.
guessed that was like very
Lapras. You guessed Lapras, Dratini, and Dragonair.
Lapras.
Lapras.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm
we're
saying it wrong
kind
way.
of there.
So
If you think about it.
Lamentine is Lamentin, which is a manatee, and Contine, which is a type of music.
Cute.
So knowing Contine probably wouldn't have helped, but it would have at least sold some of the elegance of it.
Okay.
Okay, so that one was tough. I'm taking my point.
Go for it. Yeah. get your
Deserved.
point.
Deserved.
I am
Yeah.
taking my point for that.
For sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Next one.
Okay. We got this.
You guys gotta lock in.
I want you to
guys
know
gotta
at some
lock
point
in.
you like laughed so hard that you spit and it went right in my mouth.
Oh my god, it's like an indirect kiss. Not me pulling out the indirect kiss.
And the worst part is because I was laughing, my mouth was wide open.
Oh.
That's real gay, you guys.
Okay. If you don't get
What?
this one.
Oh no.
If you don't get
Okay.
this one.
That's already.
No. Okay,
No,
we got this.
So it's like an EX Pokemon. This one is 2 points.
We got
No, it's not. It's this one is very easy.
We got
Are you
this.
ready?
this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Golem.
Gollum.
Gollum.
Yes.
Okay.
We're French, dude. We're French.
I feel like,
Like,
Maybe
that's
one-
why-
Maybe 1.5.
Yeah. No,
No.
you know what? I'm gonna grant it because Lamentine was very
It
difficult.
was. It was.
That
She
one
got
was
it.
Golem,
easy. We
Golem
deserve it.
was gros and Golem, which is Golem. So technically, it's a large Golem.
Confirmed. You want to take us to France with you guys to translate. That's what I'm getting from this.
French cons, we don't even need a handler.
No. No translator necessary.
But you know what? Sometimes they're very straightforward, and sometimes there's not. And then sometimes there's this.
Oh, give us the this.
Crustabri.
Okay, so crystal blue.
I love that you immediately are like, I have an answer. Let's go.
Okay, so I'm thinking like mineral. I'm thinking like rock, maybe ground, potentially
Is that
even
what you
like
said? Can you say the word again?
Crustabri. Crustabri.
Blee.
crystal
Brie. 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 Not brie. Brie. With an R.
like an okay.
Brie. Oh.
If we get
Cheese.
it in the
Oh,
evolutionary line.
Miltank.
Brie.
But what about the first part? Krista.
Crystal.
No is a fine answer. I'm just curious.
If you get it in the evolutionary line, and that is your last, and you don't get the final version, I will give you half a point.
That seems fair. Okay.
Okay.
What are we thinking?
I don't know. It feels like I know Starmie and Staryu have the little crystals in them.
See,
And they're
yeah, that's what I was
blue.
thinking too. They are, well, they're brie cheese.
Brie. They're not
Are they
cheesy.
cheesy?
They're not very cheesy.
No,
They're
they're
not.
more elegantly monty. So,
Okay. Krista Bleu.
Crystal.
What are all the
Crustabri.
the crystal-y Pokemon?
Crustabri is
So, and I'm trying to think Gen 1 crystal Pokemon.
Yeah, I keep thinking of the Reggie.
Pokemon.
Okay, I know, I had to call myself saying that. I was like, that is not right. Okay, a crit.
You are one of the 10 stone hearts. You should know this.
Aventurine.
That's not
Fridge.
If Aventurine were a Pokemon, what would his little noise be?
Is it?
Okay, sassy.
Bust,
For
bust, bust, bust.
Is it? Maybe it is Staryu or Starmie.
Merci.
Crystal.
Crustabri. I'll take more water. More water. Crustabri.
Crystal.
Remember, Brie is B-R-I.
Like
So
the
it's
cheese.
R.
No, it's missing E.
Well,
But it's like opposite.
But yeah, close to the cheese.
Is it Starmie?
No.
Damn.
And there is no cheese basis Pokemon in Generation 1, so I will be surprised
Yeah,
if
you and
something.
your Miltank.
I will be surprised if there is a cheese based thing in any of these, but I will
Right.
let you know that cheese is not what you should be thinking of.
Okay, so crystal. More on the crystal side.
You said Stormy, right? Was the
Yeah.
one you guessed? Okay.
Yeah. Which that was fair. I would have guessed that too.
Staryu.
Oh no. Do we want to use that one? Can you say it again, please?
Crustabri.
Crystal.
Staryu.
No.
Okay, not like.
Is that 2 guesses or is that 3?
That's
That's
two.
2.
Star you and Star Me.
Were what you
Are
guessed.
no.
Oops.
So.
Okay, so other things that are minerally, right?
We're guessing.
That's where we're landing. Okay.
Probably.
I mean,
Not cheese.
not cheese.
We've
Yeah.
established.
We've
the not
established that
cheese,
it's
yeah.
not a cheese type.
Yeah.
So we've got, I mean, there's like Geodude and Onyx. Those are like the big ones. But
Oh.
Actually, give me 1 second. You
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
can keep going. I will yell yes or no.
you okay?
Yeah.
Is there something else that's crystalline in some way? Some sort of
Uh.
gemstone thing.
Crystalline.
Why'd you say that?
But leading them in the wrong direction.
No. Just you saying crystalline is
No, thank you.
I'm just, in love with you. That's all.
Well, I appreciate that.
Aww.
Are you in love enough to give me the answer?
No. I mean, I can give it to you, but then you can't help. Oh, sorry, Molly. I dropped your post-it.
That's okay. It's indestructible.
Oh, and my necklace got attached to it. There we go.
Hey.
That was the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
crocheted necklace I have
No.
over here.
Okay.
If I give you
There's
the
a
answer, you
crystal
can't help.
Pokemon in one of the generations, but not Gen 1.
That's Gen 2.
Yeah.
You're thinking you're probably thinking of Suicune in Gen 2. No, it's the mascot of
Yes.
Pokemon
Pink hair,
Crystal.
the pink one.
Oh, were you thinking of
Oh, the-
Diancie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no.
I feel like she'd have like a more.
I actually,
He's
I
right.
actually wouldn't be surprised if Diancie is just Diancie in
Oh.
French as well. I wouldn't be shocked.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know all the French names
Wait!
of Pokemon.
What?
Togepi?
Togepi is Gen 2.
Gen 2.
Oh,
Oh,
fuck.
fuck.
I heard the Brie, and I'm like in the dub they say Togepi or something like that.
It goes
Cute.
Pri is what
Pri.
they're doing.
Yeah, something like that. But not that.
Okay, not that.
P and B are the voiced and unvoiced same sound, but no, it is not.
So do you want to burn a guess on Onyx or something that we know is a rock so
I
that
feel-
we can hear
yeah.
the type?
Yeah.
Onyx.
No. Water.
Not
Okay.
water again.
So they're all water. It's a Lycra. They're all water.
Okay.
I actually am using a randomizer for this.
Okay.
And there are a
It's
lot
meant to
of
be
water
water.
Pokemon in Gen
There are a
1.
lot of
There are a
Pokemon.
lot of water Pokemon in
Okay,
Gen 1.
so there's
Okay,
Tentacool
so-
and Tentacruel.
Oh, they have kind of like a crystal thing
They've got
going
stuff
on.
going on. There's it's not Starmie or Staryu. As we've
No,
determined.
not
Is
those.
it a 2-type or 1-type?
It is a 2-type.
Okay.
Okay.
You doing 2?
It is a 2-types, yes.
Oh.
So
Tentacruel is water
That's
and
like.
poison.
is it?
Oh,
It
is
is-
it poison?
Yes, they are Tentacool and Tentacruel are 2-types.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to burn a guess on
Yeah.
Tentacruel?
No.
Yeah.
It was a good guess. It was a good guess.
But it's
Was it
not-
good enough to be the other one?
I am neither confirming nor denying.
Okay.
But as a reminder,
Yeah.
if you guess 2 other Pokemon that aren't Tentacool, if it does end up being Tentacool, you would get half a point because you guessed Tentacruel.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so I
Okay,
will
so
give.
maybe
I will
let's
give.
veer in another
Yeah,
direction.
I will give half a point for guessing.
Water.
You know.
and crystal.
But if it is Tentacool and you guess, and you say Tentacool, you would get the full
I don't
point.
remember any more water Pokemon in Gen
With, like,
1.
I know.
So you've got Kingdra. Wait. Oh, okay. So you've got Magikarp and Gyarados. You've got Seadra. Did you say Kingdra wasn't?
Kingdra's Gen 2.
Kingdra's Gen 2. So
Horsey.
you've got Horsey and Seadra.
Yeah.
Horsey doesn't make it as striking as.
Like a crystal.
Yeah. You've got
Crustabri.
Crystal.
you've got Goldeen and whatever.
Crustabri.
Seeking.
Crust. Like crusty.
Crustabri.
Crustabri.
Is it not crystal? We just went the wrong direction.
No, it's like crustal.
Okay, wait. Crabs.
Crabs.
Oh.
Okay.
There's a is it it's
Krabby?
not Crusty. Is there Krabby?
Krabby and Kingdra.
Krabby and
Not Kingdra.
Kingler are the
Kingler.
2 crab
And
Pokemon.
Kingler.
And Kingler.
Okay.
Krabby and Kingler.
Crustacean. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Do we want to go for one of
Krabby.
those?
No.
That leaves Kingler. I'm gonna keep
Kingdra.
Yeah.
Kingdra.
Kingdra. Okay. Wait. No.
No,
It is Kingler.
the big Krabby.
The big crab.
The
Kingdra
evolved one?
is
Kingdra's
Is
Seadra.
the horsey.
Is it Kingler?
I think it's Kingler.
Kingler. Kingdra is the
Okay, well, confirmed it's
That-
not
not
Kingler.
that one, yeah,
Damn.
It's not
Dan, help. Yeah, you're right. It is Kingler. You're right. All right.
So-
Yeah.
Okay.
But and the answer is not Kingler. So.
Okay, wait. Is there a clam one? There's a clam one and a
Clam,
clam
Clam
evolution.
Pearl, but I think that's later.
Okay.
Oh, is that not Gen 1?
No. I don't think
Lapras
so.
technically has a shell.
That's true. But Lapras is just water. Didn't we figure that out?
Oh
last time?
yeah, mono water.
Lapras is not mono water.
Oh,
What?
because like dragony. It's kind of well, like
I
there's
am
like a
also
lizard thing
also
going on.
required to inform you because you asked the question. There are shell type Pokemon. Clamperl is not the only shell type Pokemon, and there are other ones in Gen 1.
Yeah.
Sheldon.
Shieldon is something. Shieldon and
Sheldon.
Sheldon.
That's a
No,
later
that's
one, right?
that's later. That's Gen 2, I think.
What the one with the shell and then the tongue.
That's Shelder.
Shelder.
Oh, like a slow poke.
Slowpoke. I forgot because he has a shell too.
Yeah, he has a shell.
Slowbro. I think that
Slow
was-
bro.
Slowpoke is the.
He's
Slowbro is
shellless.
the one with the shell
Slow bro.
on the tail.
Slow king. Is that a later?
No,
Slow
it's
King
Slowking
is Gen
is
2.
later.
Gen 2.
Okay. Do we want to do
There's
slow
a
bro?
lot of motherfuckers
Wait,
with the shell.
doesn't one of them have like a jewel somewhere?
That's the king.
Slow
the
King.
third
Slow
one.
King has the jewel.
Okay. Well, if he gets a jewel, that's kind of crystally, and he's also crusty because he has like a shell.
Don't
And he's also easy breezy.
don't yeah, don't
Easy
consider
breezy, beautiful cover girl. Should we guess slow bro? Krista. What does the brie mean?
What generation is Clamperl?
Clamperl is like Gen 3.
3, I
shit.
think. That was like Ruby.
Yeah.
Fuck. I was about to say who's the water trainer, but it's Misty and she doesn't have shit.
Yeah, she does.
What's
she
the
just,
evolution of Shelder?
it's Cloyster.
Which one was it?
Cloyster Brie.
Oyster brie.
I say go for it. It's the best shot we've got.
Cloyster.
It is correct.
What?
You're so smart, bitch.
I handed you that one. I should.
No,
I did.
No,
you said the
Molly
shell
worked
part.
there.
I did because I was kind enough to inform you.
Yeah.
Ironically, by thinking about slow brew, you were actually not going in the wrong direction.
Hey!
Because
Yeah.
Slowpoke evolves into Slowbro by having a cloister bite its tail.
Oh, you were really close, dude.
So you were heading in the right direction.
That-
I wouldn't
I didn't
I
think
wouldn't
about
have
that.
given you the point, but it was funny how you guys were dancing around that.
There's so many layers of Pokemon lore you need
So
to know
yes,
to get to
so
that point
cloister,
now.
so cloister is water ice. Crustabri is it's for short for crustacé and abri. Crustacé is crustacean.
Oh my God!
Crustacean.
It was crusty.
We thought it was crystal.
Yeah,
We thought it. No, but then
that's why I handed
then she, like,
that to you.
Stopped and was like, "No, it's not crystal."
I started really
crustal.
I started really correcting that vowel sound
Yeah.
for you guys. And abri is a literal shelter. So much
Not
like
a cheese.
cloister.
Not
so,
a cheese.
So like cloister being a shell that is a shelter.
Okay.
Cloister. Because a cloister is literally like it's a building. It's a religious building. So yeah.
Okay.
Crustabri.
Okay.
So
we
I
got
actually,
it.
it was the
We
sort of
got
thing
it.
where it's like, it's not easy to guess, but it is a very clever name when you know cloister is the English name.
Okay.
Okay, that was definitely team effort vibe.
That was that was team effort, and me sitting here going, Camden, I cannot let you keep
That was
saying
a
Crustabri.
team effort.
That was a four-person team effort.
four-person
You
team
got
effort.
like,
You
I
know what?
almost.
Give yourself half a point.
All right, I am giving myself half a point. I am. I'm giving myself half a point because I was like, I simply cannot let you guys keep thinking
This
this.
is fucking whose line at this point.
Yeah.
No, I like that. This is a fun game.
And
So
Next
wait,
one.
you got a randomizer that got you both of the water ice Pokemon?
yeah, in one thing, I had
That's crazy.
Dugong. Yeah, so the because it's randomizing 4 at a time, so it gave me Dugong, Golem, Cloister, and then this last one, which I am going to pull up. And I'm very interested in seeing what this one is because this could just be identical. I'm not sure if it's going to be or not.
Okay.
I think when you give us the type hint, you should show the chat who it is. So they can listen to us flail panic.
Okay. Oof. Really? I will be shocked if you get this.
Oh,
Challenge
no.
accepted.
Okay.
The only thing typing might help you on this one, but Rotad Morve.
No fucking clue.
Okay, no.
Gold,
No, we got this. Goldine. No,
Gold,
but
well,
no,
can you
that's
say the
not our
word
guess.
again?
Grotad Morve.
Mauve, like the color?
Gold.
Okay, wait.
Go.
It's where you're still in Gen 1.
Still in Gen 1.
Still in Gen 1.
I will announce when we leave the generation.
Can you say it slower?
Grotad Morve.
Tadpole. Like poly black.
I like Frog. I think Frog is maybe a good
Okay.
direction. Is it Psyduck? No, I'm kidding.
Poliwhirl?
Yeah, it could be.
He said, "Is it
may be
Psyduck?"
Golduck.
so many times.
Poliwhirls?
Yeah, like Poliwhirl, Polyblag.
There's Poliwhirl, Poliwhirl, there's Golduck.
Tad,
There's
Wait, are you
Golduck.
actually into the sidekick theory or Psyduck theory?
That was like
He's
after
kind
Gen 1,
okay.
maybe.
Wait, no, I can't. Wait, it was Golduck.
You can't
It was
commit to
Golduck.
that with him.
Is
Don't do it.
is Golduck Gen 1 or is that a later?
That's Gen 1.
Because I know that some Pokemon got like
Yeah,
their
yeah, yeah.
evolutions
Gold-
later.
Golduck-
Evolutions. Is
Golduck is Gen 1.
Golduck is Gen 1.
Okay.
Go Tad.
Because otherwise we're dealing with like Goldine, and that's just going off the fact that it sounds like gold, but to be fair, so does Golduck.
Yeah.
Kiss both. Golduck.
No.
Damn.
Were you just guessing because it sounds like gold?
Okay. Well, what if it's something that's completely opposite and it's nothing like the sound?
Yeah, probably nothing.
I think that's probably gonna be it. So what sounds opposite of Goltad Mauve? Like Charmander.
Did we already guess that something?
No,
Charizard.
Charmander was the very first one that we did when we were out there.
Oh, right.
Oh, the salamander.
The
Yeah.
salamander, right. And that's what led to this whole thing.
Yes.
Sort of.
Squirtle.
I need a hint, so
Okay, what does that sound like to you? Like when I say Goltadmov, what does that sound like? I think, you know, it sounds a little strong. So like maybe fighting, maybe rock, maybe.
This is how they came up with the names in France too. It was just a team of 4 people being
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's kinda
What does it
strong.
sound like?
I'm trying to decide if I should. Okay. What I am going to say
Yeah.
is that I had to like literally sit there and be like, wait, what?
Right. it sounds
And
nothing like it.
I looked it up and I was like, oh. So the linguistic base of it is slangy.
Slangy.
It's like more of a less formal linguistic thing. So I would be very surprised if you could figure it out linguistically.
So you have to just get random shit?
No.
So
We have
it's,
to-
it's
this
like
is
you have to
more-
kind
more
of like
thought.
vibe check it
Yeah.
more than anything else. It's
So we're gonna need.
So if it's
you're probably gonna
slangy.
need the typing for
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So wait, but okay, so it's like less. Okay, so what's like a kind of like chill, laid back? Squirtle with the glasses.
That's
I
you know
know.
what it is you know what? Why don't we? You're gonna get fewer hints, but I think I should just jump to the part where I give you a type.
Well, let me guess it first to get it out of the way.
Okay, sure.
Psyduck.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
There you go. You feel better now? We guessed it.
No, because we guessed Golduck.
Yeah, it could be
And it's in the
Psyduck.
same family.
It doesn't matter. We got it over.
Poison.
Poison.
So you only get
Okay,
3 guesses
it's not
now.
Arbok. It's not Arbok. We already guessed Arbok.
Yeah.
Well, you
it
guessed
was-
Arbok
it
for
was-
something.
It was
Oh,
Cobra.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Arbok. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what else is poison? The
Grimer.
is
Muck.
Muck Grimer poison.
Yeah.
I think.
there's also
They're poison.
Is Beedrill poison? Or the
Oh, is
Bug
it
poison
single or
trios?
double?
I'll tell you it's single typing for this, but I'm realizing by saying whether it's single or double typing, I'm really helping you guys narrow it
I
down
don't
like
think
very
we don't
aggressively.
we're as
really
smart
that
as you
much.
think.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm also confirming or denying the typing things for you guys. So you're getting more of a leg up than you think by me saying if it's single or double typing.
Gen 1 or Gen 2?
Tangela is Gen
But I
1.
feel like that's more
Yeah, I think it was
grass.
Gen 1.
Is it poison?
I think it was grass poison.
What about Jinx? Is that kind of
Psychic.
Psychic.
Psychic, yeah.
Psychic ice, I believe.
Okay.
So
Oh, yeah, I
there's-
forgot that bitch was ice.
Right.
Yeah.
Is Butterfree? No, Butterfree is not poison.
No.
Beedrill.
Butterfree was the pop.
We,
Pop it.
yeah,
Butterfree-
we guessed that
Pop
one.
it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
earlier.
Butterfree's also bug flying.
Bug flying, there you go. They say they keep.
I don't even know that many poison Pokemon besides Ekans and Arbok.
No, we got.
Well, it's wheezing
Okay.
and coughing.
Coughing.
Yes.
Ah. Wait, can you say the word again?
Glutadmouth.
She did say it had nothing to do with the linguistics of it.
Well,
And
no,
it's,
no,
like,
no.
kinda
It's the
slang. Well-
it's more like when you like it does mean something, but it's more of a slang thing.
Can it be used as an insult?
I mean, I suppose.
I feel
Okay,
like
okay.
It's giving me Weezer
So kind of
vibes.
like-
why are you
We-
coughing?
like, yeah,
you
Weezer.
gluten smog.
Yeah. You.
What was it?
Guten
Not gluten smog.
Gluten
Not gluten smog.
Should we go with that? Wheezing?
Wheezing.
Wheezing.
Oh
Fine.
darn it.
Okay,
So that's
that
one.
was a good.
It wasn't
That
the
was a
gluten
good one.
smog.
I
Yeah.
really appreciate gluten smog though, and if that's not the German term for wheezing, then I'm gonna be. I'm gonna
Certainly
be.
those ones that have the top hat should be gluten smog.
Okay, so like slangy.
I'm actually gonna look up if that's what the German for wheezing is right now because I think it should be gluten smog.
Okay, so what else was poison in the original 151? Oh, God.
Do you want me to give you the full list of poison Pokemon in
Is
Gen 1?
Beedrill Gen 1?
That would be
Yes.
Bug. Right.
How about I tell you every Pokemon that has a poison typing, whether it is dual type or not.
Okay.
Okay. So I have to do kind of scroll around this a little bit. I apologize. Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur, Weedle, Kakuna, Beedrill. Ekans, Arbok,
No.
Nidoran, Nidorina,
Oh, I forgot about them.
I
Nidoqueen.
thought they were later.
Nidoran, Nidorino,
Oh, yeah.
Nidoking.
That's
I feel-
so many more options.
Yeah.
Slang here. Which one
Zubat,
sounds the most like a drug?
Golbat,
Right.
Oddish,
Golbat sounds like a
Bloom,
drug.
Go back.
Violet
Well, it's,
Plume.
it sounds
Well, I like- hold on, I
Venonat,
like Bloom and Violet.
Venomoth.
Venomoth also.
Oh.
That could also be Goonsmog.
Blossom,
could be correct.
Weeping Bell, Victory Bell, Tentacool, Tentacruel, Ghastly, Haunter, Gengar. Grimer,
Okay,
Muck,
yeah.
Wait, Gengar.
Grimer, Muck, Coughing, Wheezing.
There were a ton of poison.
There are a lot of
so many.
it's a combination of poison and secondary poison types. A lot. Did I say Zubat and Golbat yet?
Yeah.
And then I did miss a couple. Hold on. And then yeah, I said Gengar, Haunter, Gengar. Yeah, I think that's all of them then. I think I did say all
And
of
what
them.
was the
Tentacool
word
and
again? Say
Tentacool.
the word one more time.
Grotadmar.
Give me Haunter.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, if this is true Vasarose, I'm gonna check you on this, but that is actually pretty good. The German for wheezing is oh actually no, I actually can't tell you because it's too close to the French, so I'm gonna have you guess it after this.
Okay.
Goonsmog.
You guess all the different languages.
I like Haunter, I like Vileplume.
I'm feeling Haunter.
No.
Damn.
One more.
Fire.
Have we guessed Vileplume already? In
Definitely
a different
not.
round, I think.
No.
You
guessed
did in a-
the,
you
like,
did in a
the
different round.
Victory Bell or like
You
whatever.
you did guess Vileplume in the round that ended up being Venusaur.
Okay.
Gloom and Vile.
That wasn't the one I was
Feeling
thinking
both.
of then.
I'm feeling that whatever's druggier sounding.
Do the vial.
Vileplume.
Vileplume?
Vileplume.
No.
Give us a hint, but you get the point.
It is so single typing. The single type one. Sorry, that's too many points. The single type pure poison type Pokemon are Ekans, Arbok, Nidoran and Nidoran female, Nidorina, Nidoran male, Nidorino, Grimer, Muck, Coughing, Wheezing.
If it's one of the Nido evolutions, I don't know which one it would be.
There's too many options. With like.
Did you just
them
look it up?
there.
No.
Okay.
Is it part of the Nido family?
No.
Damn.
That's the last guess I'll give you. It is Muck.
What the fuck?
So this
I
is
knew
never
it was
get
gonna be a
that.
short one.
so it's kind of wild. Gros tas de mort is gros and tas de mort. It means big tas de mort. Tas de mort is the French Grimer.
Big Grimer?
Big Grimer.
That is what Muck is. Big
Yes.
Grimer.
Tas de mort. Grimer gets the name tas de mort from the term date de mort, which is slangy, and it literally means a bit of snot. A bit of snot. So it's
We were almost
Thought
on
you
the
were better
right.
than this.
so that's like that's why I said it was
Direction
very
with the drugs?
slangy.
Yeah.
So that's why I said it's very slangy. You're not going to guess it by thinking too much about the linguistics, because the best you're gonna get is you're gonna remember that gros means big.
I
And
didn't know that either.
no, it came up with another
I
one.
know we means yes.
Gros meaning big did
I
come
know
up.
Yowie means Yowie.
Yaoi means yaoi.
I'm
So
really sounding it out.
For sure.
so
Okay, hit us with another one.
okay, I gotta do another randomizer. Do we want to do one more round of 4 of Gen 1 before
Sure,
moving on to
sure.
Gen 2?
Oh
Yeah.
god, I don't
Because
remember
we're
anything.
killing it here.
We really
Hey,
are.
we're winning.
We by half a point.
I'm actually going to.
Yeah.
I'm interested in seeing what this one is.
Okay.
Because
We
this.
need to have a Pokédex pulled up so we remember what Gen 2 even
No,
is.
I know.
Which one is that the Cyndaquil one?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
I don't remember.
love-
This one's gonna be a nice, easy one for you
Okay.
guys. Are you ready?
Okay,
No,
oh,
this
thank
one
goodness.
is truly easy.
Okay.
Okay.
Kikli.
Not Kling Clang?
No,
No, that's a
Gen
later
5.
one.
Kikli.
Keek.
Wait.
Yeah.
Hitmonlee?
Yes.
I.
What the?
How'd you. Oh, Kick?
And
Kick
Bruce Lee. is a
Lee.
big baseball.
Oh.
Kikli.
Oh. Really?
I wouldn't have got that.
I knew Christian would get it because Hitmonlee is literally Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee are based off of Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee.
Really?
Yeah.
So, which is I knew he would know this. So, and
Oh, like hit Pokemon Chan,
and
hit
then
Pokemon
like
League.
kick
Yeah.
the- yeah.
Oh.
so the punching Pokemon is Jackie Chan and the kicking
Wow,
Pokemon
I
is
had
Bruce
no
Lee.
idea.
That's
And
cool.
it literally Kikli
Wow.
is Kick Lee.
I thought it was like Keycling again. The Kling.
Yeah. So
Clef Key.
Yeah, like
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Klefki, Gen 6. So yeah, I knew, I was like, one of them is going to get this immediately, and so I'm not surprised. Like, the thing that was going to make it more difficult, if you saw it written out, you would have gotten it immediately.
Okay.
But the pronunciation makes it a little bit trickier, but Christian picked up what I put down. That's why I was like, that's why I said, oh, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, boyfriend vibe.
Yay!
Oh, so this is actually very interesting. So the in French, Spanish, German, and Italian, they go for the same thing where the basis is Bruce Lee.
Okay.
In Japanese, it's Sawamura. For Japanese kickboxer, Tadashi Sawamura. And I'm going to check Hitmonchan by contrast because I'm very interested in seeing how that one plays out. So I will, obviously, if Hitmonchan is in this bit, I will not use it. Oh, actually, that's fun. So Hitmonchan, Spanish is also Hitmonchan. The German is Nock-chan from Nock and Jackie Chan, and Italian is also Hitmonchan. The Japanese is, I'm gonna give you this one just because I think it's really fun. So the Japanese is Ebiwalar for the Japanese boxer Hiroyuki Ebihara, but the French goes in a completely different direction, which is Tignon.
What?
Tignon. Not Tignon. Not Tignon. Tignon.
Hit martial artist singing from Honda Star.
Actually, you're thinking of the wrong sound. So Tignon is the ng sound. This is a nyun. Like it's a little different. It's a little different.
Like a
It's
car
Nyun.
very
Nyun.
fast.
It's like nyun. Yeah.
Okay.
So and it's for the T in it is T.Y. Mike Tyson.
Oh.
I was never going to guess
Yeah.
that.
So it's the sort of thing where it's like you probably wouldn't guess it hearing
The only
it.
wrestler I know
But
is
I
Arnold
thought that was
Arnold
very.
Schwarzenegger.
But I mean, Mike Tyson is a boxer.
Oh, I don't know anything about
come on.
this.
Guys.
He's world famous.
I know John Cena.
Right.
He's not a boxer.
He's a
Boxer.
so
Name one boxer.
Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson.
Muhammad Ali.
Jake Paul.
Tragically, Jake Paul is a boxer.
Also the guy with the grills.
What is Paul Hogan then?
Hulk Hogan is a wrestler.
Paul Hogan is an actor. Hulk Hogan is a wrestler. And the Hulk is a Marvel character.
He covered all his ground there.
Do we need to teach you any other professional wrestlers, Melly?
I mean, for sure, we will. I'm asking for myself too.
We don't know shit about sports.
Yeah, but we-
Actually, that's really funny. So, Hitmonchan ended up being on this list of the 4. That's so funny. So we are obviously.
Ask us what it is. We don't remember.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that to you. And then another one, it pulled up Charizard again, so we're not going to do that.
Okay.
So the last one we are going to do.
Okay.
The last one we are going to do for Gen 1.
Okay.
Unless we just want to stay on Gen 1, but I kind of like going to other generations too.
Okay. I honestly, some of the names I was like, oh, I don't remember that.
I'm scared.
Okay.
Okay.
Flagados.
Gyarados.
The dose?
Flag.
Try it.
Gyarados.
No.
Fuck.
Flagadose.
It's so like okay,
Hear
what's like
flag.
a flag Pokemon?
I don't think there's a flag Pokemon.
This is interesting.
Can you say it again?
Flagados.
Is there a G after the F, the flag?
Flag.
What?
Say it slowly.
Flagados.
Flagados.
F-L-A.
It is a flag.
Yeah.
Flag god.
So there's a flag and there's a dose.
dose.
Trio.
Doduo.
Doduo.
And it flies.
Wait, I think that's Spanish.
Have they seen John Cena? I have seen John Cena, yes.
What is that bird?
You have
The
at this
language
point.
bird?
Do you actively
Duolingo.
That's what I was thinking of the Pokemon.
Duo. The
Dodo.
duo.
Wait,
Yeah.
what was the word again?
Flagados.
Flagados.
Dos.
Dos. Is that how you say? Well,
Flying two.
what's the numbers? Okay, Ichi-ni-san is Japanese. Uno, dos, tres is Spanish.
Two.
What is
French.
French?
Un, deux, trois.
And
Un,
deux-
deux, trois, dos.
Dos. It starts
Sorry,
with a
I
D.
know that hurt you.
It starts with a D. It starts,
It starts with a D, which means
Okay.
Dos.
So what is
Flagados.
the two-head? Do duo.
do
Do duo.
Do duo.
No.
Fuck. We were onto something there.
What-
guys.
the two
Was
heads
that your?
of
No, no. You
That
saw
was our
two
second.
guys. Their second. Yes, yeah.
What is this? The Diglett evolution. Oh, there's
Doug
no
Trio.
two. There's no two. There's a three.
Yeah.
Diglett and Doug.
Yeah.
What else is two? Are we sticking
Okay.
with two?
If you want to stick with two,
Okay.
legally, I must inform you
Yeah.
that the legendary birds are Articuno, Zapdos.
Oh my god.
Moltres.
Oh, I forgot all about them.
Zapdos.
Very true.
Zapados.
Zapdos.
You wanna go for it?
Wheezing is two, isn't it?
Wheezing! Flagados. Flag.
I love that we're using the Spanish dos.
To help us get to the French.
I mean, technically. Technically-
relevant,
Saying no.
intermingling.
No. I mean, I'm pointing this out because technically the in English
Yeah.
the
Wheeze.
Articuno, Zapdos,
Dos,
Moltres
Moltres,
is
yeah.
the
Zapdos.
Spanish. Yeah. Do you want to go for Zapdos?
Yes.
Why not?
No.
Oh.
But if you were trying to follow the two thing, I did have to at least point out that the other Pokemon that has
Birds
the
have-
word
yeah.
two in it was the
Uh-huh.
So
legendary
it doesn't have
birds.
to be like two as in two things together. It
Well,
can be the sequence
you're
of
getting
two.
you're getting a hint now anyway for typing.
Okay, cool. Wait, Molly, come closer.
I'm sorry, it's water.
The people can't see.
Water.
It's always
there's
water.
always there's water.
Water.
I will.
Is it mono water or
Do I want? I'll be nice. It's not mono water.
Okay.
not mono water? What's a non-mono water that's two?
Boy.
We've had this question like.
Yeah.
I know. How many more are there?
Okay, so let's think about the water Pokemon.
Okay.
There's Squirtle, Wartortle, and Blastoise.
Okay.
And there are...
Those are all. Those are
are
mono
all
water.
There's-
Those are mono
I
water.
don't know all the specific typings, obviously, as evidenced by my 3 hours playing Pokemon today. I don't know all the double typings by any stretch, but
Which one am I playing?
Legends
Arceus.
Arceus.
Oh, that's a good one though.
I'm not being paid. Arceus.
It's Arceus.
As soon as they pay me to say that, I will say Arceus forever. No,
I shamed myself in a
it's-
Pokemon Master session by saying Arceus.
And also, fun fact, it's Pokemon.
Pokemon Arceus.
Okay.
For those of us out there who are saying Pokemon.
There's always water in Allegra
There's-
stream.
there's-
Yeah.
it's-
There's just a
and
lot
then
of
we'll go
water
on to this
Pokemon
list.
in
Magikarp
Gen
and
1.
Gyarados.
Those are
There's-
single, right? And ready to
Magikarp
mingle?
is single,
Dragon.
Gyarados is duo.
Gyarados is like water flying.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yes,
he's
it
not,
is.
He's not technically
Is there
dragon
a Pokemon
type.
with
He just
triple
gets
typing?
dragon rage.
Yeah.
No.
It's
Oh,
not.
is
It,
But
and
that's like a
e-
later.
what?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is
Wait,
there
were you saying
Pokemon
he has a
triple
triple
typing?
typing? Because I don't
No,
think so.
there's no
Oh,
triple
Yeah.
that's
The only thing that can happen is that when a Pokemon Mega evolves, it might have a different typing. So, like for instance, Gyarados is water flying, and Mega Gyarados is water dark. So that is the closest thing to triple typing, but otherwise, there is no triple typing.
There's Vaporeon.
I
Mono water.
love
Mono water.
Vaporeon.
Okay.
What was the word again?
Such a good-
I forgot.
Flagados.
Flagados, yeah.
She doesn't feel like a Vaporeon.
Doesn't feel like a Vaporeon. No, it
Vaporeon is
Vaporeon's mono.
Vaporeon water is mono water.
Okay. So there's Goldeen and Goldene's evolution.
They are both mono water.
Okay.
Everything is water.
There are a lot
There's
of water
Starmie and
Pokemon.
Staryu.
Okay.
There's
Watery.
I think
Dratini.
Starmie might be water psychic.
I think one of them is
Yeah.
One of them is
Starmie doesn't feel like Flagados either.
No, I don't get flag vibes.
advanced.
Or dose vibes.
Or dose vibes. Yeah, no dose vibes on that. Is it Flagados or Flagados?
I can read Flagados. What?
Is it Flagados or Flagados?
I actually. I don't really know how to
Okay.
answer.
That's fair.
So it doesn't actually help you to specify this because you will have a very hard time guessing off of what the thing is because this is another slang term.
No. What's a drug use water Pokemon?
So slang is used for things that aren't drugs.
to answer the one quick the chat for the dawn. I can read the American International Phonetic Alphabet. So American, I think British uses the same phonetic alphabet as the American one. I don't know if you guys can hear me at all right now, or if Molly's laughing is taking over it. So I can't read IPA for other languages because phonetics do obviously switch for other languages, but I can read the American basis one.
Did you hear our
No, I was talking about phonetics.
So were we.
We love a linguistic queen.
What were you?
In a loose sense, yeah. Aren't we all always talking about phonetics? I'm hooked on it, I'll tell you that much. I'm straight up
phonics.
hooked on phonics.
Phonics and
It's derived
and
from phonetics.
Anyway.
Which is talking about phonetics once again.
Okay.
Like drugs.
Yeah, I'm looking for some phonetics if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's a
Phonetics to nil.
That's why they say hooked on cocaine.
You know the popular expression.
hooked on cocaine.
Hooked on cocaine works for me. I'll tell you that much.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Oh
Okay.
my god.
Water Pokemon.
Okay, we were still doing Flagados.
So,
Flagados.
okay, so
We
wait.
got so far from.
Is it Psyduck and Golduck are water as well? They're dual typed.
Right.
Are they both dual type?
I think they're both dual typed.
Actually,
Psychic?
Because Psyduck is just water because I'm always pissed about it because his name is fucking Psyduck and it's
Oh.
not Psychic. But
And then
Golduck, I
Golduck
think it might be
is-
both.
Golduck is mono.
That's.
God
Oh!
damn.
Wow.
Just water?
Just
Okay.
water.
Okay.
More to know.
Okay.
Actually, it should have been a huge hint to you that I was sitting there going, wait, is Golduck monotype?
Yeah,
So.
not Golduck.
Yeah.
I am surrounded by water Pokemon because I live with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yet, I cannot think of a water Pokemon to save my life.
Asha
Lapras.
watches
Asha.
this.
That's
in
Gen 5.
disappointment.
Oh.
He's watching us saying, "Why don't you know French?"
His eyes look a little sad.
A lot of the big contenders here are.
Yeah.
Oh, look at Psyduck.
Yeah, it's
Is
see?
that why you keep guessing Psyduck? Because
Well,
you're looking at Psyduck?
I had initially just got the thought of like Psyduck, wee, because I was like Psyduck's
Psyduck
French.
is here.
So
It's
cute,
this one.
right?
It's the Soda Pop Psyduck.
Soda Pop.
I have the, as far as Soda Pop plushes go, I also have the Oshawott.
I know she said that thing was a clue, but I don't know how.
And
I think
this.
just
No,
by
no,
the
no.
fact that she didn't have an answer.
It's not
offhand.
Golduck.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
thought-
So now there's only 150 Pokemon. It could be.
Yeah, exactly.
Women.
Okay, wait. Give us.
Women.
Give
It's
us a bunch
women.
of water types.
All right, hold on.
So wait, it was
really
a
good at this.
two-typer.
It's dual type. I just want to know the ones that are water type. I want to know what I am forgetting that is.
What are we up against?
Can I? How about? Okay, how about I give you all dual type water Pokemon?
Cool.
Okay.
I'm down.
That's if you want to make it better for us. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, because you're gonna
But we'll
struggle
make it
to
that
guess
much
it.
better.
It's a slang. Remember, it's a slang.
It's a slang.
It could be
Which
drugs.
one like drugs?
Okay,
It could be
so
drugs
just
or
just
not.
know that I didn't specify with this whether water was the first or the second type, and that I have to check. The first list is gonna have water as the primary, and the second list is gonna have water as the secondary.
Okay.
So I just have to check both of those.
Gotcha.
Poliwrath, Tentacool,
Oh.
Tentacruel, Slowpoke, Slowbro,
Women.
Dugong, Cloyster, Starmie, Gyarados, Lapras. And then the other list, Ammonite, Omastar, Kabuto, Kabutops.
Okay, so that's actually not that
Let's
much.
go,
I
lesbians!
like Slowbro
Let's
because
go,
it has
lesbians!
things. If we're
Excuse me,
getting-
lesbians coming through!
As the cloister
Watch out!
Does he have a
discussed.
flag?
He does not have. Well, actually,
I feel like eventually he gets a flag, right?
there's some sort of
What?
flag
No.
going on.
What are you talking about?
I do think
Doesn't
the
one of
word.
them have a flag? Like,
I don't think
am I
flag in French is flag in English. At that point, there would be no difference between English and French.
Well, I
That's
mean,
fine.
Gollum was Gollum.
That's fair. That's fair.
Arbok was Arbok.
Oh, this is Cobra backwards.
So we have the flag, and then we have the dose, which is Spanish origins.
Right. So, meaning French.
Meaning
Okay,
French.
official guess, Slowbro.
Yes, and for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
Oh!
Yes, for all the
Because
wrong.
he has a flag.
That's why you date me too.
Boo. So, this
Wait.
is very interesting. I actually am going to pull up a video because I looked at this and I went, what?
Yeah.
So, the slang term in question and why I couldn't really, like, it wasn't going to help you if I answered where the break was that for flagados, it's flagada and s. And I don't know why it's s because I haven't watched this video. But someone breaks it down here, and I would like to find out why.
Is this French?
Yeah.
Okay.
Une espèce à part entière, le ramolos, qui se transforme.
When we were starting,
En flagado, s'il n'y a plus de lumière. Et flagado, quand t'es très ramolo, t'es flagada.
and she's like, it's.
Oh, c'est ça? C'est juste ça?
So it really
So,
established
yeah.
familiarity with French, as you can see.
The languages are relative to each other.
No,
C'est vraiment ça?
which is really dumb.
Okay, so basically the joke of the names
Uh-huh.
is that Slowpoke and Slowbro are Hamulus and Flagadus, and
Oh, they're both
basically-
dose?
it has nothing to do
Oh.
with two. It has nothing to do
Both toes.
with
Because
two.
they're both one of two.
No. No. Because it's Hamolos and Flagado or Flagadas. And Flagada is a slang term in French for just really fucking tired. Both of them are slang terms for really fucking tired.
Women.
basically.
Why do I have this image of Slowbro with like a flag? I feel
I
like
don't know
remember
where
that.
he's getting this
I am
from.
almost sure there is official art of him with a flag.
Right?
It might be a movie where he's
Yeah.
at.
Yeah,
They're both-
But he's doing like the directing kids. To
Yeah,
school
as
thing.
the Lion Sharky is saying,
Yeah.
Hamulu and Flagada are basically the same thing. They're just two different slang words, way of saying
For
like,
tired.
oh, I'm like really fucking tired,
Okay, so
basically,
it's
like dead
tuckered
fucking
out and
tired.
Exhausted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, basically these Pokemon are tuggered outs and exhausteds.
Nice.
Like it's just kind of like a fun little punny thing.
Okay. So you get a point for that.
You did get a point for it though because you did guess it.
That's right. I
Yeah,
got it.
you did get it. You did
Yes,
you did get
you
it.
sure
You got it for
did.
the wrong reason, but you
That's
did
true.
get it.
But we got it there.
The
and
point
that's
is
what
you got it.
matters.
While we're here, I'm
Yeah.
gonna actually go. I'm gonna pull it up over here because I can.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go ahead and pull up some Gen 1 Pokemon. And we're just gonna look at their French names. Because
Iridium node.
alright, fucking Melly. God damn.
Mel.
Boo. All my homies hate
I don't
all
know
my
who that
homies
is.
hate Melly.
Who's
He's
that?
I don't know.
so
Melly's an arc.
so we're gonna go over here on camera Nunu. Oh no, I have to switch it over to this. Hide the console and bring up display capture. That's easier. Okay. So, what's a Pokemon you would love to know the French name of? Actually, we can go over to
Ninetales. Oh,
actually Psyduck. Yeah, so we can finally answer
Please.
What does Psyduck
Camden's.
Question.
Water.
Yeah, it's at the bottom, so I'm having to like find it every
What's that
time.
mean?
Oh, he's shiny. He's blue.
Yep.
Damn, that's a derp ass face right there.
Sikuquack.
I think we could have gotten that.
We would have absolutely.
Psychic
We would have
and
gotten
Quack.
the fuck
Quack.
out of that.
We could have gotten that one.
Sikuquack. And Golduck
Yeah.
is here. I should just
Something
click
quack.
this.
Something quack?
Probably yeah.
Quack dose.
Aquaquack.
Okay, I might not have gotten
No,
that
Aqua-
one.
because it's water.
No, aqua.
Aqua.
Aquaquack.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like.
Because it's blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 'cause it's a duck.
'Cause it's
I thought
AKWA.
quack was because it was a duck.
Aquatique. Aquatic.
So then why is Psyduck Psychoduck or whatever?
Well, when you think about it,
'Cause he's
Psyduck
psychic.
has the more
Women.
But the
name.
quack in Psyduck's name is not for duck.
In Psyduck's name, yes. Golduck is aquatic quack.
Aqueduct.
No,
Quack.
aquaquack.
What you're telling me is
Aquatic
that the quack in Golduck's name is not for duck.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying. That's
Aquatic quack.
Yes.
It's a quack quack. So the
Aqua
aqua
quack.
is aqua and then
Yes.
quack. Oh my
Aqua
god.
quack.
Good
Yes.
lord.
Okay.
It's a fucking hilarious name. Sikuquack and Aquaquack. It's very funny. What's another one we're curious about?
Ninetales. I love Ninetales.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Wait, go up? What is that?
That's a lowland. That's a lowland duck trio.
Where did the hair come from?
Being on the beach in Hawaii.
Oh my god.
Oh my
That
gosh.
was a jump scare. Going down to that.
In other languages, Fenard. Okay.
I was never gonna guess that.
No.
Fenard. And feu and renard. Renard means
That
fox.
sounds like a brand for Benadryl.
Fenard.
Yeah, renard means is fox. So Fenard.
I was gonna say it probably means something foxy.
And then Vulpix by contrast is Goupix. Okay, yeah, Goupil is
We might
We
have
coulda got
one,
that.
'cause of the
Goupix
X.
because of the
Yeah.
There's actually for 6. Or so it's wait. That's okay. Okay, so that's I'm kind of laughing if that is truly the origin. If it is 6, there.
Women.
Technically, 6 is pronounced sis.
So it's
Seis, Spanish.
No. So my instinct was to go Goupix to match Vulpix, right?
Uh-huh.
But if it's supposed to be pronounced the same way as 6, it would be Goupis. Go piss.
I'm honestly just hearing go piss.
I heard that too.
That's very funny. It's probably Goupix, just by virtue of that. That is my guess. But it does sound like go piss, girl, a little bit. Vulpix, you
Vulpix,
deserve
my
better
new
than
favorite
that.
Pokemon.
You
Go
deserve
piss.
better.
Yeah.
Girl, you deserve better.
Jigglypuff.
We'll go to Jigglypuff in a second. We should actually go look at Weezing because we were talking about
Hell yeah, we were.
Weezing.
Because it's
Oh,
dose.
Guten
Guten
Smog.
Tag.
Guten Smog. It's actually very good. It's not that, but it's
Smogogo.
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 It's in German. It's Smogmog.
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 Smogmog. So
Guten
like
Smog.
literally like
I
smog.
was
You
almost
were
there.
you got half of it right.
Yeah, and
Maybe I'm German now.
I think
My 26 in me said I'm German.
you're all over the world.
I'm Mrs. Worldwide.
You're the multicultural queen.
so it's probably Smogugu and Smogmog in German. That's why I didn't want to give it to you in case Weezing did come up, because
Okay.
then if I had said, oh, the German is Smogmog, you would have heard Smogugu and been like, wait, is that like Weezing? I can't do that to you. Okay, Jigglypuff is up here. There we go. Hondoudou. Oh, that's cute.
'Cause he's a
Hondoudou.
round,
So hondoudou like round.
Yeah.
Dou means soft, but doudou is like, you know, like
soft and
like on
round.
fait dodo, que là mon petit frère. Dodo, literally like dodo like that means like sleep. You know, like fais
Round
dodo.
sleepy.
Because she
que là,
does
mon
like
petit frère.
Jigglypuff.
So it's like
Wait,
little.
what is her French dub
Lullaby.
song then?
It's
Find it.
round doo-doo.
Hold on.
puff.
Jigglypuff. Oh no, I can't spell.
French.
French song.
Cute. Oh my god!
4
Not
languages?
the 4 languages.
Okay, hold on.
Rondoudou.
Round doo-doo.
Hold
Round
on. I have to switch the browser audio to a different one.
Oh, yours is complicated.
For sure.
Well, it's because I have it. Rather than having desktop audio, because last time I had desktop audio on, it was like playing too much. Okay. This should be here. All right.
Cute. Iconic.
Ah, it's
I
cute.
can tell that's Japanese.
Legendary.
Pudding, yeah. It's
Pudding.
just. Yeah, something
Pudding.
cutting pudding.
Puddin'.
Oh. Oh, she's going up.
Oh god, oh god.
So pudding, yeah.
Puddin'? So
This is
cute.
the icon I grew up with.
This is the legend herself.
Diva.
Wait, can we talk about over here?
She's
Jigglypuff
icon
song,
week.
a Jigglypuff song, 1
It does
hour
not help
version.
with
Help
sleep.
sleep?
Are you
That's
sure?
So
I'm gonna
funny.
try it tonight.
Oh my god, please do. I'm gonna listen.
Is there a French poker rap? We're gonna find out.
I just hear do 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 do. Oh, she sings more.
Oh.
What?
She sounds like
Wait, what?
Pamela. Pomelu.
Wait, so she's going ha 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 Pomelu.
I love that.
From Pumalig. What does that mean? Chubby? Oh, that's Danish. That's Danish.
That's nice.
But that might be the same. Hold on. Chubby. Chubby fluff?
That's so cute.
Bitch, don't. Oh.
What?
Hold on.
Not
Most replayed.
Not the. Oi. Oh. The face. It's already too late.
When you enter the wrong house in Undella Town. Oh, 1 year anniversary, Cynthia.
Her hair.
Legendary.
She has a Jangmo-O as her partner Pokemon.
Ah, I see it.
Yeah.
Oh, straight up piano this time.
Hell yeah.
W song. Yeah, the Unova Long Island Cynthia jump scare was an experience. Yeah, because that part, she's literally chilling on Long Island. That's my favorite part. She's on Long Island.
And then she's like,
Cynthia's just
fight?
there, and she's like, "Oh, you want to fight?" Actually,
Yeah.
French poke rap.
This
Hell
has
yeah.
to exist.
Wait.
Karaoke. Oh.
Salut! C'est l'heure du Pokémon!
Salut!
On y va!
Real?
Yes.
Real.
C'est vrai ça?
Barely works in English.
Electro, Topiqueur, Nidoran, Ferrosin, Sorisa, Ratata, Rapace, Piquerou, Cool, Poisson Roi, Botali, Dracolos, Fantomilus, Juanita, Aqua...
Ponyta!
Is it a different order? I don't remember the original one.
Aéromix, Pizza, Nidorina, Agatha, Erizar, Nidoking, Canarticho, Abra,
Okay, so they said Jigglypuff and they said Golduck. Look at us learning French.
Nosferatu.
Nosferapti, I'm going to guess is
Zubat.
It no.
Gengar.
It's either one of the ghost Pokemon or it could be Drowsy or Hypno.
I vote Zubat because.
Oh
bat.
my god, is Onyx Onyx?
Yes,
Onyx,
it is.
yes.
Oh my god.
Magneton, I'm betting, is Magnemite.
Leviathor.
Magneton is a Pokemon.
That could be.
Gyarados?
Oh.
What?
Nosferapti
Zubat?
is Zubat, yeah.
Shut up! I'm French! Give me a point! Give me a point! Give me a point!
Bad.
Because Bat and
you know
Nosferatu.
what?
Give me a point. I deserve that one.
I'm gonna specifically let's go. Camden.
No, we're part of the team. We're one of the team.
I know, and Camden deserves it.
We're one of the team. No. Make that 5 a 6.
Okay, fine.
Oh my
Some of
god.
these are not What is that one? Sakutudunu.
What was that again? Can you pronounce that for the class?
26 and me said that I'm French.
Oh, there's Smogogo. There's Smogogo there. Oh,
Smogogo?
boy, I wonder who that one is.
Magnemite.
Magneton. Mr. Kisa.
Meows?
That's Meow.
Oh.
Meow. That's how you spell meow in French. M-I-A-O-U is meow.
Meowie?
Man, they just got
Meowie?
fancy about everything, don't they?
They sure
Meowie?
do.
Ronflex, I'm guessing
Who
is
is Otaria?
Otaria. I'm not sure. Ronflex. Who do you think Ronflex is?
Wait,
one-
which
which one
one
is
are you looking at?
Ronflex.
Oh, is that how you say that?
Ronflex. Yeah.
Is there a watch Pokemon?
Honflex.
You think
No,
Rolex?
Flex. Oh my god, Machoke,
Yeah,
Machamp.
Rolex.
Machop. One
I
of
am,
those.
I am guessing
like
not.
Flex.
Hold on.
Mach...
Hold on.
Ma something.
Something.
Ma one of the three.
No, she did the. Oh no, that was Hitmon.
No, it is not.
Oh, damn.
It was a good guess though, with a flex, but because you never know when it's going to randomly have an English word.
Right.
In it.
Exactly.
Is
You know-
Ectoplasma Ghastly?
Probably, yeah. It is.
Because I'm French.
You are.
Do you actually know?
We
what-
all have a little bit of French in us. That's what we.
Yes,
that's the
I have
lesson of
so
today's
much
story.
French in me.
Molly's the Frenchest of us all.
One person
And
in
moving
chat
on.
got it. Ronflex is Snorlax. Because
Oh.
ronfler is snore.
Honflé.
There
Ronfler.
was. You got there with the flex.
I got there with the flex. It was like kind of two different,
Yeah, that's what we're going
but
with.
like
That's what we're going with.
Yeah.
they circled
Fighting
back.
Pokemon, which is
Yeah,
strong against normal type Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
for sure.
Yeah.
Poissirène is gotta be
Poissirène?
Goldeen.
I was never gonna guess that.
For sure.
Poissirène poisson.
Poisson.
A
Like a
poisson
croissant.
is a fish. So that's you now. That's your fish.
Oh my god, that's you.
Croissant?
No,
She's that
poisson.
croissant with a P.
Excuse me, les poissons.
Oh,
I love
les poissons!
poissons! To chop and to serve little fish.
Les
First I cut off their head, then I pull out the bones. Ah mais oui, ça c'est toujours délice. Les poissons, les
Les
poissons.
poissons, how I love les poissons!
When
So
they
you're
quiver,
French.
I
Yeah,
chop
yeah.
them in two. I pull out what's inside and I serve it up right. God, I love little fishes, don't you?
Hey.
I heard croissant.
You heard
It's
croissant.
still croissant.
Oh, Galupa.
Like a big
I'm guessing Galupa is probably Ponyta. I said the
Oh,
Ponyta.
yeah.
Galupa.
No.
Galupa.
Ponyta was Ponyta, so that's the other
So that's
one.
Galupa is probably
Rapidash.
Rapidash then. Yeah, let's check.
Why are they so different?
I don't know.
Because it's French
Ponyta's
puns
Ponyta,
instead of.
but Rapidash is not Rapidash, it's Galupa.
It is Galupa? Yeah.
Hey,
So, yeah. So
we're
you
so
got
smart.
it. Yeah. Well,
Process of
Galupa.
elimination.
Well, Hakayu, I'm guessing is because I think they probably
Hakayu?
kept.
Ra-
I'm
Rattata.
guessing it. No, Hakayu. I
Oh.
think is.
I thought that was like
I think
Ratatouille.
it's Raichu.
Raichu. Oh, I could see that. Flagados. What was that again?
Oh no, it's actually no.
Slow, bro.
You know what? It might be Rattata because Raichu is actually Raichu.
Stop it. I'm gonna throw up.
It's either it could be Rattata or Raticate, because keep in mind it's also a rat. No, Rattata is the same.
Okay.
So, is it Raticate? But Ratata is very satisfying in French.
Hey,
No,
that
it's
was-
Ratata. Oh no, that's
which
good.
one's
It's
that one, huh?
Ratata et Ratatak.
Magnemite.
Rakayu, mais c'est quoi le Rakayu?
Isn't there a Magneton?
Magneton?
Is
Is it?
Rakayu
Is that the,
Geodude?
like, evolved one?
What's the base one called?
Magnemite.
Oh,
So, is Magneton the three?
is.
Ah, mais c'est vraiment c'est Rakayu pour Geodude?
Yeah, that one, Geodude.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was like,
Oh ouais, c'est vrai. Caillou is a rock. Yeah, Rakayu.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay, hit us with the Gen 2 French.
Okay, t'en veux? Léviator. Ooh, it's like a Leviathan.
She's like Gyarados.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm not even gonna check because I'm gonna.
Ronflex, Ectoplasma Sagueneux, Poissirène, Smogogo, Otaria, Léviator,
Attrapez-les tous. Attrapez-les tous. Attrapez-les tous.
Kabuto, Persian, Para.
Boy, who could some of these
Kabuto.
be? Magnéti,
Persian.
Kadabra. Mais c'est qui Kadabra? Salamèche.
Is that-
Bulbizarre.
Pikachu.
Grolem.
Bulbasaur.
Wow. Boostifleur. I'm guessing that might be Violet Plume.
Oh, there's Crustabri.
Crustabri.
Crustabri. Boostifleur. I'm curious who that
Fleur
one is.
is
Flower.
flower.
Yeah, that's what I'm
and
saying. That
it's
could
a
be-
busty flower.
I'm checking. Oh my god.
Violet
Yeah, that's
Plume.
what I said. I'm guessing it's Violet Plume.
Okay.
Metamorph is the one before Butterfree.
That's Ditto. No, Metamorph could be Ditto.
Transform.
Oh. never
Okay.
mind.
No, actually, no. That makes sense. Boost.
Metapod.
No. So, Boostifleur is not Violet Plume because
Is it one of the bell?
so I'm gonna check in a second, but actually Violet Plume's is really cool. It's Rafflesia.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
Never would have guessed Violet
Yeah.
Plume.
Let's see.
There's a Final Fantasy Rafflesia.
Cute.
Might have gotten there eventually.
I want to see what Gloom is. I want to see what Gloom is. Orchid. Oh. Okay. Okay, we're checking. I'm gonna check Victory Bell.
Victory Bell. Oui. Victory Bell.
No, there are a number of them. Actually, it could.
Maybe.
I think Boostifleur is going to be Weepin' Bell.
Oh.
Yes.
Is Boosie?
Yep. Boostifleur.
What does Boosie mean?
flower.
Boostify, I'm guessing is
Is it actually Bussy Flower?
Yeah.
no Boostify. I
There's
actually
no
don't know
boobs
what
on
it
this
is.
Plant, Camden.
Boostify
You can find boobs on anything.
in English.
Do you like girls? Do you find boobs on everything?
I like how I said that and Camden is catching flack for it.
He didn't deny.
Oh, Boostify is very slangy. I think it's just like eating.
Slangy
Eating
drugs.
flour. Eating flour.
Okay. Oh,
Drugs.
like kind of like a.
Eating flowers, eating drugs. It's like weed.
They're based off of Venus flytraps. Venus
That's
flytraps
what
are flowers that
You
eat.
can smoke that too. I don't even drink. I don't know anything.
Hold on, I'm checking to see if Ditto is Metamorph. Yeah, I was right.
Metamorph.
Sabalette is no.
I would've
that was Sandshrew, I think.
Oh yeah. It's Flash.
Don't do it.
Look at this.
Machopeur. Boy, I wonder who that is. Yeah.
It's different.
Attrapez-les tous, attrapez-les tous. Goukonfort is Executor.
Oh my god.
Krabby is just Krabby. Yeah.
We should pronounce all of these things. Okay. I
just want to know where the line for racism is.
Spectrum.
What's my internet doing here?
Wait, what Pokemon is that?
Spectrum, I'm guessing, is one of the ghosts.
Camden. That's the only one I can. Parasect.
Parasite.
Lipotol. What is
Lamancy.
Lipotol?
Which one is?
Lipotol.
Lipotou? Lipotou.
Lipotou.
C'est qui Lipotou? Je ne sais pas.
Like liposuction.
Lipo.
Lipotou? So Ghastly is Fantominus.
Spectrum.
I'm guessing Spectrum is probably either Haunter or Gengar.
Spectrum.
Spectrum? Yep, it's Haunter.
Can we sue Spectrum, the internet service, because they stole a Pokemon name in French?
Yes. All in favor of justice for Haunter. Say aye.
Aye.
Christian,
What's up?
did you not say aye?
I'm assuming
Wait.
what's happening.
All in favor of justice for Haunter because French Haunter is Spectrum, which means that Spectrum, our internet service, stole it.
Is Haunter?
I don't know that that's true. I would really. When was Spectrum founded?
Spectrum wasn't always called Spectrum, though.
What was it called before?
Oh, so Goopis is
Something
Vulpix?
French.
What?
Goopis is
Goopix? Goopix, yeah.
Oh,
Actually,
are we
wait,
saying the X?
wait, let's see.
How do they say it? Goopix.
Wait, did they say Goopis?
He said Goopix.
No, shh.
Lopez.
I can't see. I can't tell. It sounded more
I
like
think
Goopis.
it's an X.
Go peace.
I heard more of a Goopis. I couldn't. I can't tell if it was Goopix or Goopis.
So when we go to France, I'm gonna tell you to goopy.
Goopis, girl. It's nice where you don't pronounce it Goopis. So it's Goopix. It is Goopix. Okay, merci beaucoup. Yeah, it used to be Time Warner Caber. So Time Warner stole it from French Haunter.
Time Warner.
Liputu, Lion Sharky, who's Liputu? It's faster to ask you than it is to look it up myself.
Les poissons.
Liputu, Goopix. Oh, is Liputu Jinx? Oh, it's Jinx.
Oh, cause lips.
Lips. That's funny. How to deal with the racist looking Pokemon.
They say Pokemon.
Pokemon. So they say Pokemon, but they go. Smoko, I'm guessing, is coughing.
Tentacool is just Tentacool? We guessed Tentacool so many times.
Look at
We
Magmar.
did.
Draco. Draco.
Malfoy.
Draco is probably. I'm guessing. It could be Draco's probably
Dragon-
Dratini.
Okay.
I'm guessing Draco. Draco is definitely part of the
can see that.
Dratini line. I would imagine
Starry,
it's
too.
Dracofeu.
Dracafeu. Dracafeu is
Dracafeu.
a Charizard. We talked about that one.
Okay, yeah.
Mini Draco is Dratini. Oh,
Mini
that's
Draco.
cute.
Oh, then that one's Dragonair?
It could be. Is it?
Yeah.
Draco is Dragonair. And then Dragonite is Draco something else, I'm guessing. Dracolos. Oh, that's funny. So mini Draco means mini dragon. Dragonair is Draco, is basically dragon. And Dracolos, Colos is colossal. So Dracolos.
The big one.
That's cute.
I
No,
do
no,
wonder
Magmar c'est qui?
If as time went on,
Yeah.
if they adopted more of what the English translation was and trying to make that French as the series got more popular.
Well, easy way to find out. Let's go to Gen 9.
I love that one. It's so cute.
Galarian
right?
Ponyta. I just bought it.
I do like
Good.
Galarian Rapidash a lot too, but I don't remember what it looks like right now.
The Ponyta one's
Less,
cuter.
it's less cute,
Oh,
Yeah.
is it?
in my opinion.
Okay, I don't-
Honestly,
what does it look like? I thought
It's
I liked
just
it.
bigger.
I'll show you in a
Oh,
sec.
yeah, I
Hold
don't
on.
even know.
It's just
Big, yeah, that one's
Okay, well
cuter.
let's check by going for.
What's Galarian Rapidash's name?
It's just Rapidash.
Oh.
Galarian Rapidash, yeah. Let's go for Sprigatito. Actually, so this one is Spanish base. So
Should we try guessing
okay, no, it is the
Spanish
same.
Pokemon?
So French.
Every generation that we guess is a different language.
So French Sprigatito is Pusacha.
I was not gonna get that.
Sprigatito?
Sprigatito,
Wait, which
Pusacha.
one is that?
The grass cat.
What?
Is that
Like
is
Meowth?
that the hand signal?
No,
Yeah.
this one,
Grass
Gen
cat?
9.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's Pusacha.
It's whiskers, but drug.
What?
Do you guys have a
Okay, Molly, alright.
Like drugs.
Does someone have like a list of like all the Pokemon names in French? Because I went, oh, Matourjon. Okay, Bourgeon. That's funny.
Bonjour. Bonjour.
No, Bourgeon, like bourgeois. And
What
then
does that mean?
Hello, Pokemon.
you do Soul Mechanism. Can you send it to me? Can you just put it in the chat? Oh, and then Meowscarada is Miascarade, so it's very, very close.
Like
There it
mascara?
is.
Oh, list of French Pokemon names. Okay, I can just do
Hey.
it there. Thank you so much.
Okay. Starry.
You just saw that.
Starry?
Yes. Is that one Star Me
I'm
or Star You?
okay. Oh, this is so much
Is
easier.
it
Oh my
Star
god.
Me or is
Okay.
it Star You?
Star.
Star We?
It's almost done.
Wait, guess what? Guess which one it is.
Star
Oh,
me.
Starry.
Star
Me.
you. Star you or Star me?
Star Me.
Star me.
Staryu.
Oh.
Starry. And Starmie is Staros.
Staros?
Oh,
It sounds fancier.
It does.
okay. So you will be unsurprised to know that Mr. Mime is Monsieur Mime.
Oh,
That's
But it's
cute
written
as
as, but Monsieur in French, when you like abbreviate it, it's just M dot.
Oh, cute.
So it's M dot Mime.
Ma-
Which is
mine.
why M Bison is very funny to me because it looks like Monsieur Bison. Yeah, Jinx is Liputu. Here, let me just go through it, the whole list. So, Bulbasaur is Bulbizarre, Ivysaur is Herbizarre, and Venusaur is Florizarre. Charmander is Salamèche, Charmeleon is Reptancelle, and Charizard is Dracofeu. Squirtle is Carapuce, Wartortle is Carabath, and Blastoise is Tortank. Caterpie is Chenipon, Metapod is Chrysacea, like a chrysalis, chrysalis. And Butterfree is Papillusion. Weedle is Aspicot, Kakuna is Coconfort, and Beedrill is Dardagnon. Pidgey is Roucoule, Pidgeotto is Roucoups, or Roucou.
Hoot hoot.
No, Rou,
I don't
Rou,
think they know the sound
with an
pigeons
R.
make.
Oh.
R.
Hoot.
Roucou. Cooing.
Huku.
Cooing.
That is the sound pigeons make.
So yeah, I think you know the sound. I think they do know the sound pigeons make.
Huku.
Yeah. Hukul, hukul, huku, and hukarnage.
What sound do
Hukalnage.
French cows make?
Ratata and ratata. So it goes so ratat. So ratat. What? So are you saying French cows?
Yeah.
What sound is
Me.
meh?
Me. Yeah.
So what you're saying to me right now is that Family Guy lied to me.
What did
What
they?
did they say? it was?
Shazul.
Yes, they did.
They said that French cows say Jazul.
Shazul.
Okay.
So
Maybe it was Polish.
so
cows.
ratata and raticate are
Hey.
ratata and ratatak, which I think is really
Ratata.
cute. Spiro is piafabek. Firo is rapace de pique. Rapace de pique. Ekens is abo. So actually, that's cute. So you know how Arbok is still Arbok because it's cobra backwards. So snake Ekens is that it's snake backwards. Abo is like boa, but turned out abo. So that's actually so there's a okay. So there's something French slang called verlan. Verlan. So it's think of verlan kind of like Christian would definitely know this as like Cockney riding slang, as far as like it's not the same kind of composition or construction, but it has that same sort of feel where it doesn't sound like the right word, but like the best way to explain it is that like bonjour is French for hello, right?
Okay, I know that
So in verlan, it's jourbon. Because what you do is you take the last syllable and you put it at the front.
Well, it's kind of like
So
Big Latin.
basically, it's more like Pig Latin, yeah. But it's used more like Cockney rhyming slang in that it is an actual considered a language in that sense. It's dialect.
So that's also hello.
But verlan is if you move the ver to the end, it's l'envers, and l'envers means backwards. So verlan, l'envers. So
Like vice versa.
abo is verlan for boa.
That's some thieves' camp shit. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
My brain's also trying.
Sorry for our overuse of verlan. Well, verlan is great. I saw that. I was like, oh yeah, it's verlan for boa. So Arbok, and then Pikachu et Raichu, Sablette and Sablero. The Nidoran family is identical all the way through.
That one identical.
Clefairy, oh that's cute. Clefairy and Clefable are Melofée and Melodelph. So Melofée like melody, and Fée like fairy, and Delph like an elf.
I like the
Elf.
Delph.
They are musical.
Vulpix and Ninetales are Goupix et Fenard. Jigglypuff is Rondoudou. And Wigglytuff is Gros Doudou. So you'll notice that a lot of the Pokemon sometimes, if it's like the bigger version,
The
it will have
evolved
Gros.
one.
It'll have Gros, like big.
Goal is big.
Gros, G-R-O is big. Gros. It could mean big. It could also mean fat. So like.
That's mean.
So, but it's the same word. So gros, it's like
big
bigger,
Jigglypuff.
bigger Jigglypuff.
Wigglypuff.
So Wigglytuff is
Tough.
big Jigglypuff.
Okay.
Wigglytuff.
Nosferapti and Nosferalto are Zubat and Golbat. Oddish is Misterbe, like mist and herb. Gloom is Orchide and Vileplume is Rafflesia. Paris and Parasect are the same. Venonat is Mimitos and Venomoth is Eromite. Diglett is Topiqueur and a Doug Trio is Triopiqueur. So it still has the trio in it.
3 Pikachus.
Meowth is Meowth and Persian is Persian.
Meowth
It's the same.
is mouse.
Meowth.
Mouse.
Meow.
Like
Meows.
cat and mouse, but like
No,
reverse
meow.
it.
Meow.
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 Like a cat mouse.
No,
Like a cat
meow.
mouse.
Meow. It's meowing in French.
Is
Meow.
the word purr the same in French? Because that's onomatopoeia as well.
Oh, I love that
I don't
word.
know.
Onomatopoeia.
Mankey is Ferrosange and Primeape is Coulosange. So Sange is monkey,
We love a song.
like how Mankey is that and Primeape is that. The Coulosange is colossal, so it's Caninos is Growlithe and Arcanin is Arcanine.
Arcanine?
Yeah, Arcanine.
Hey!
You would have gotten one.
We would have gotten that.
You would have gotten
Yeah.
that.
Okay, give us a point.
Arcanin. Yeah, no. I literally said it immediately after Growlithe too. That was easy mode.
I had no idea.
Poliwag
what the words
is-
that were coming out.
Poliwag is Petitard or Titard. You wouldn't necessarily pronounce the P.
'Cause it's petite.
Poliwhirl is Titart, and Poliwrath is Tartare.
Tit tat.
Abracadabra, Alakazam are the same. Machop is Machoke. Machoke is Machoupeur, and Machamp is Macogneur. Bellsprout is shitty fleur.
Shitty fleur?
Not shitty. Shitty. Shitty.
You're saying shitty.
Oh my god.
You're saying shitty.
Shitty.
She said shitty, not
Shit.
shitty.
Shit.
Shit.
Shitty.
Shitty. Shitty. You're
Wait,
pronouncing
can you
the
say
T's
this
in
again?
shitty.
Shit.
Shitty fleur and shitty flower.
It's the thing que les Américains ne comprennent pas. Les voyelles en français, the E sounds and the E sounds and the difference between them.
Is it an E?
What did Bellsprout do to fucking Molly here? Okay, shitty flower. Boostifleur and Ampifleur are breaking bell and victory bell.
What Pokemon was it?
Boostifleur?
Bellsprout.
A Bellsprout.
Oh yeah, it's a shitty flower.
Oh my god. Tentacle and Tentacle are identical. Geodude is Rakayu, and Graveler is Gravalanche, and Golem is Grolem. Ponyta is the same, and Rapidash is Galupa, as we said. Ramolus and Flagados are Slowpoke and Slowbro. Magnemite is Magneti, and Magneton is Magneton. Farfetch'd is Canartichaud. Canartichaud, that's cute. Canartichaud. Is it like canard and artichoke? That's really cute. C'est ça? Canartichaud?
Artichoke? Is that what he's holding?
No, he's holding
thought
a
it was
leek.
Okay.
He's holding a leek.
Oh,
But-
I thought it was like a green onion.
They're very similar.
Oh, okay. Hello, welcome
c'est
in.
Canard artichaut. C'est vrai ça. Oh, that's so cute. Canard artichaut. Yeah, it is like canard is a duck and artichaut is like artichoke. So yeah, canard artichaut. Doduo and Dodrio are the same. Seal is Otaria, and Duogang is Lamentine, as we said. Grimer and Muck are Tadmorve and Gros Tadmorve. Shelder is Coquillas. Oh, that's cute. And Cloyster is Crustabri, as we said. Ghastly, Haunter.
That's a cheese.
It is.
Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar are Phantominus, Spectrum, and Ectoplasma.
Spectrum.
Ectoplasma, ce n'est pas très dur. Onyx is Onyx. Drowsy is Topopherique, and Hypno is Hypnomad. Krabby is Krabby, and Kingler is Krabos, like Crab Boss.
Could've
That's
gotten
cute.
Krabby.
Yeah, that would have been easy. Oh, you would have gotten Voltorb and Electrode too, because it's Voltorb and Electrode. C'est pas dur ça. Execute is Neuf. Oh, c'est mignon ça. Œuf
Part
means
of that
egg.
was the
Neuf. Oh, Neuf, c'est mignon ça. Oh. And Noix de Coco. Yeah, Noix de Coco is Executor.
Cute.
Noix de Coco is
Wait,
it's basically a misspelling
What were you
of
saying? It was a
coconut.
seed,
Noix de
not
Coco.
an egg.
Yes, Execute are technically supposed to be seeds, even though they look like eggs.
Oh.
It's stupid.
I didn't know that.
Cubone is
they were
Ocelet.
eggs.
He's an egg in my heart.
Me too.
Broken
eggs.
So for Ocelet, is that supposed to be like
I always
bone
wonder
and
why
milk?
eggs evolved into trees.
And then Marowak is
I
Ossature.
never wondered that.
coconuts.
But you know what?
Kikli
Now
and
that you say
Tignon.
it-
They like go from eggs. to
Excellent.
Oh. Something happened.
Licky tongue is excellent. Excellent
Extra
tongue.
long?
Excellent tongue.
Okay.
That's right up there with cunning linguist. That's real.
So
Really easy.
Lion Sharky is Cubone supposed to be like Ocelet, like is the lait supposed to be milk in this situation? Because us is bone.
Us is bone.
Us is bone, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it lait? Like Lait, like lait, like milk, yeah. Then yes, it would be, yeah. There we go. And then we got Smugo and Smugugo, Rhyhorn and Rhydon, Rhinocorn and Rhinophéros. So I think you guys would have gotten that one, because it's Rhyhorn, Rhino.
It would have taken me a minute to figure out that was like a
I
rrr
agree.
sound.
Le Vénard is Chansey.
Seal is massive.
Dude, I'm
Sac
telling you,
de
the
nœud.
seal is the cutest thing ever. Isn't
I'm just sitting here because I'm just here. Kangourex is Kangaskhan. Hippotrampe.
I like the little
Oh, it's
kisses.
horsey. Yeah, and
That one's really
Hippocéan.
cute.
No, I know.
Oh, I get it. Okay, Hypocéan Cidre.
It's so precious.
Goldine is
There you go.
Poissirène and Poisson
I
Roy
need to get,
is Sea
like,
King, okay.
a bunch of
Starry and
questions.
Staros, Monsieur Mime. Insécateur is Scyther. Liputu is Jinx. Electek is Electabuzz. Magmar is Magmar. Scarabrute is Pinsir. Tauros is Tauros. Magikarp is Magikarp. And
Hey, we would've got that one.
Actually,
Would've gotten that one.
Actually, you were wrong about the No, I think you said Liviator was Gyarados. Yeah, you said
Leviathan.
Was that the one
Leviathan.
Leviator?
Yeah.
Yeah, Liviator. Liviator is Gyarados.
Well, if
yeah.
you said it that way, I don't know
No,
about
we
what
wouldn't
Yeah.
have gotten it.
Look
It would've-
last-
Lo, levitate is
There's
what
a
we
lot
would've
of
kinda
context
got.
clues for the
Luclas is
spelling.
Lapras.
Yeah.
Metamorph is Ditto. Evoli is Eevee. Aquali is Vaporeon. So it looks like the evolutions like have Li, L-I at the end. So it's Evoli is Eevee. And then Aquali, Voltali, and Pyroli are Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Flareon. Porygon is just Porygon. Amonita and Amonistar are Ammonite and Omastar. Kabuto and Kabutops are the same. Aerodactyl is Terra, but it's P-T-E, E accent aigu, R-A. So it would look like pterodactyl with the PT at the beginning. Snorlax is Ronflex. Articuno is Articodin. Zapdos is Elector. And Moltres is Sulfura, like sulfur. Mini Draco, Draco, and Dracolas. And then Mew and Mewtwo are the same.
Mew and Mewtwo.
Yeah.
Cute.
So, okay. Let's, because it's kind of late right now. Let's just go favorite Pokemon. We're gonna see the French name. How does that sound?
Cute.
Do it.
Okay. Molly, who do you want? Okay, well, Furret.
Froakie.
Oh my
We
god.
have to start with Furret for Camden because
Furret
we're
is
going now.
so-
Is that your favorite Furret?
Not
Well,
his favorite, but he's remembered how much he loves
I
Furret.
know. It's like a newfound awakening. I was like, oh my god,
Furret.
Furret's so cute.
What's the
Okay, wait.
pre-evolution called?
Sentret.
Centret.
Yeah. Okay, wait.
I don't
Ninetales
remember
is
Furret.
like.
I like
Probably.
Furret, but I like
Furret's
how
cute as fuck,
how
right?
Sentret
round
is
the-
round.
Yeah, I think
He's
that
very
one's
round
really
and stands on
cute.
his tail. Oh no, I went down to the bottom.
No.
Nar. Oh,
Sentret
nar.
reminds me of Kirby.
Okay.
Kirby.
So-
Sentret X Ditto would be Kirby. That sounds horrible together though.
Oh, Nightline Sharky.
There's a game out
Merci
there where
pour
you
votre
can
aide.
merge Pokemon.
Third is
It'll be like
Fouinard.
pixels merge. Have you heard that before? Where you can like merge Pokemon.
Yeah, I've done it.
What is that called? Do you remember?
Really?
Pokefusions, I think, or
You would have a
Yeah,
blast.
they're- it's pretty silly.
That
It's
kind of made me
pretty
think of
silly.
like Shin Megami Tensei.
oh yeah.
I like.
Oh
series,
mon
you can choose your
dieu! You mean
demons.
the foundation of Persona?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, like when you're.
I do know.
merging
So yes,
them-
I'm also in 2 of those games. So yes, I
For
do in
Well, you
fact
merge
know Shin
them and they
Megami
become, like,
Tensei.
something stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
but
this is,
this is
you
even
fuse
more
aesthetically
they,
merging,
aesthetically
yeah.
like they literally look
It's
like it's
not
like the
like-
head of one and the body of the other.
Yeah,
It's
this
very
isn't
funny.
like Jack Frost plus Black Frost equals.
So because this one came up a
Somebody.
bunch, Togepi is just Togepi.
Okay.
Not very hard
Could have
here.
gotten that one.
Yeah, and for it was Fouinard.
Wait, what?
Fouinard.
That's Ferret?
so cute.
That's Ferret, yeah.
Wait, what was Ninetales again? It was like feet. It was something else with like an F.
I'm not going up there right now. I don't want to scroll. Blossom, because it one did come up, was Jolie Fleur. Jolie
Jolie
Fleur.
There's a Fleur
It is a
Jolie,
fleur.
Jolie Fleur, but it's Jolie is pretty. So pretty flower.
versus Shitty Flower. Damn, they have their favorites, all right. Damn. The English didn't make it that clear.
Oh my god. Oh wait, that's so cute.
What?
Whooper is Axolotl.
Axolotl.
Yeah.
Axolotl.
Axolotl.
Isn't
Mais
that
c'est
like a
mignon
species?
ça.
Yeah, it's those.
Okay.
It says Nizzy. Are you still here? Nizzy has a bunch of
There's
axolotls.
no.
Oh my god, you do? I don't know if Nizzy's here right now.
Oh,
It is.
he
It is.
does?
It is rather
Like-
late in Texas.
It's
so.
like what time is it?
It's 2 a.m. in Texas, basically.
So technically, it's like 3 a.m.
Oh,
because
Lyra!
of-
Oh, Lyra! You would be very happy about that. Mermaid Princess Lyra is the #1 Whooper stan.
Oh, cute.
Okay, so Espion is Montali.
Montali, because the mountain.
No, Monta. Monta, like mental.
Oh, like
Cute.
mental Eevee.
And then
Cute.
Umbreon is Noctali, like
Nocturne.
Yes, like
Ah.
night.
Like us. We're all nocturnal.
Girafarig is just Girafarig.
Cute.
We talked about Girafarig yesterday. Teddiursa and Ursaring are identical.
That should have been King Bear.
Kingdra, because Kingdra did come up, was Iporoi.
I was never gonna guess that one.
I feel like we would have found our way there eventually.
Oh, Lufori, that's cute. Okay. Raiko, Entei, and Suicune are identical. I feel like they
Say
usually
Suicune and with the French accent.
probably Suicune.
Oh my god, I love your French accent.
Okay. Oh wait, I never did the starters of Gen 2. I feel like we always have to do the starters. So Chikorita is Germignon.
Wait, say that
Filet
again.
mignon.
Germignon. Well, you know what you know what a filet
no, I
mignon
was just gonna
sounds
ask
like.
you.
So filet is like the cut, and then mignon means cute, so or like small.
Oh, it's a cute cut. That's
It's
what
like a
filet
smaller
mignon
cut.
means?
Yeah, like a small cut.
All I know is Gordon Ramsay goes, "You burned your filet mignon."
So germignon, like germinate, like how like a seed germinates.
So it's, wait, what was the name?
Wait for
Germignon. Yeah, so Chikorita is germignon. So like you know how like a
Cute
like a
germinating
cute like
scoop
seed.
seed.
Yeah, basically.
Interesting.
Macronium and Meganium is Meganium. Cyndaquil, babe, I'm getting to Cyndaquil. Wow. Okay.
Oh.
C'est Hérissonde. Whatever.
Wait, what was Bayleaf?
Bayleaf is Macronium.
Necron.
Macronium, like
I
macro.
used to love Bayleaf.
Bonsoir, Kaito. Roi. I know how to say roi. I know how to say that. Where did I say the wrong thing?
Oh, Hua,
Oh,
Hua.
did I say roi instead of roi somewhere?
Oh, roundabout. Jigglypuff.
No, did I say it? Where did I say it for which which Pokemon did I say roi instead of roi?
Hyporui.
Oh, Iporoi. Yeah, you're right, Kingdra. There we go. I got a little too Italian with it. So that sometimes my French and my Italian, sometimes they swap a little bit in my brain, and I will use the wrong sound or look at it the wrong way. Like at one point, I literally thought it was out instead of just ut, because in Italian, every single consonant is pronounced as the pure vowel sound. So I'm used to, if I see every single vowel in Italian, I literally pronounce every single thing. But in my brain, I was like, oh yeah, j'étais là en août. And someone looked at me, it's like, c'est août, Allegra. And I was like, sorry, Italian. Like,
I really love that name. 3 non-francophone sharing a
anyway.
TNFSAB.
Trico is Arco, Masco, and Jonku.
Jungkook from the hit K-pop band.
That's funny. It is very. Oh, Torchic is Poussifleux.
Pussy what?
Poussifleux. Poussin.
You know when they're like, don't pussyfoot around it?
So poussin means chick. Like
puss.
Like poussin, like little chick. Like the little chickies that we were hatching in Range Simulator. Poussin.
We should
Yeah.
name it
Wait.
Poussin.
Poussin.
That's how you say it, chick?
Yeah. Poussin.
Cute.
C'est ça.
We should
Oh,
name
my
it-
kip is Gooboo.
Wait, is that kind of like,
Gobu.
is that somewhat relevant to like le poisson?
No, that's a different word entirely.
Okay.
Poussin and poisson are two different words.
Okay.
Yeah, pussy. Let's see what else is like. I'm interested in seeing what Beautifly is. Charmeleon. Oh, Charmeleon. Yeah.
Cute.
Like you know how like papillon, like butterfly.
Papillon. Oh,
Like
yeah.
the way that I always look at, like, I know it's Vivillon, but I'm like, it makes me really angry because it should be Vivillon. Like, so it's Charmeleon, charming, butterfly.
Okay.
Beautifly.
Okay. Love that.
What's it called? Surskit is Arakido.
What?
Never gonna get that.
Yeah, you wouldn't get that one.
Surskit,
Yeah. Arakido.
Because
Arachnid?
like arachnid.
Okay, maybe.
But I would have guessed the
well,
you know the
do-
green spider.
Well, do having like Papillusion, but I'm talking like Vivillon from Pokemon Gen 6. Should be like Vivillon, you know.
That's not a Pokemon.
No, that's not.
That is not.
What is it?
It's a little guy that Mina got me from a crane
It's just a
machine,
little
and
Is it from
and
a French?
I don't remember what it's. I don't know what it's from. It's something Japanese. It was in Japan.
Sanrio.
Yeah, it's one of the little Sanrio guys.
Wow,
I don't know.
Mina's really good at crane machines.
Right.
I don't remember if I got that one or if she got that one for me, but it was from like a mini one. Oh, Spoink is just Spoink.
Spoink. I could have gotten that one.
Oh, Altaria is Altaria, but Swablu is Tilton.
This is incredibly ugly.
It's very stupid, and I love it. It's a blobfish.
We love a blobfish.
Morphew is cast form. Okay, Kecleon is the same. Okay, Spheel is Ubali.
Oh, belly.
Ubali. Let me see the actual basis for it.
Oh, for round.
Oh, for round
Oh,
and
belly.
for
Oh my
belly.
god, it fits. We
Okay.
could have gotten there eventually. Eventually.
Don't think that is.
Probably not.
It is. Trust me. I'm French from my 27 and
You really are. You're like surprising.
You were at
French.
27.
Every time we bring it up, I'm just gonna use a random number.
Well, the Bali.
Did you know I was born with 33.9?
So Bali. So the
339
Ubali.
chromosomes.
The Bali doesn't come from belly. Technically, it comes from
Oh.
ballon, like which is literally a ball.
Belly? Like,
So not a belly, but a ball.
What is a belly if not a ball?
okay, philosophy.
Clamperl came up. It's Cookie Perle.
Cookie bear?
Cookie Perle.
Cookie
Cookie
pearl.
Wait, that's cute.
Close enough. Close enough. Latias and Latios are just Latias and Latios. Those didn't change.
Oh my gosh, I
The
love
legend.
that.
I'm finding that the legendaries and mythical Pokemon stay the same.
Right.
So Deoxys is still Deoxys.
Oh, I love Deoxys.
Kyogre and Groudon and Rayquaza are the same.
Oh, I love those.
Okay, Turtwig is Tortipousse.
That's so cute.
You have got to stop thinking of pussy. You have got to stop thinking of.
How did you know?
You're not even gay. I should be of the three of us, I should be thinking of it the most.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Chimchar is Ousticron and Piplup is Tiplouf. Oh, that's cute. Starly is Etourmi. Aww. Because the star in it is so star and in French is étoile, so it's Etourmi.
Oh, that's
And
cute.
Etourvol and Etouraptor for Staraptor. Bidoof is Quenotor.
Which
You
is-
love your kid.
We do love.
Is that shiny
Quenotor.
Bidoof or is that regular Bidoof?
No, that's a regular Bidoof, but it's the soda pop line.
Oh, so
of-
they're like more pastel?
it's just like a little bit more stylized and slightly brighter
Oh,
colors.
cute.
Yeah. We gotta get some of Cynthia's party in here. So Gastrodon is Tritosaur. Yeah. What else is important? Mime Junior is Mime Junior. It did not change.
Bonjour.
Garchakroc is Garchomp. Garchakroc. That's fun. Lucario is just Lucario.
Oh, darn.
Lumineon is Lumineon. Écaillon and
Is it the
Lumineon.
fish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Coup de langue. Oh, that's funny. Coup de langue is funny. Oh my god.
Wooper been brown?
Alolan?
Alolan. No. Paldean Wooper.
Okay.
Oh, it's a new one.
So cute though, right?
Filali and Givrali. That's cute. Galam. Okay, Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf have different names, so that's funny. It's Créelf, Créfolet, and Créfadet. And then everything else is, all the other legendaries are the same. Okay. Snivy is Vipellière. Tapig is Grucuit. Archwood is Moustillon. Oh, mon petit Moustillon. Moustillon.
Miss Mousillon. Does that break down into anything?
I will pull it. No! Oh my god, I lost my spot. Putain. No, I found it, okay. Let me open up a tab. I shall want. For my baby, for I shall want the best Pokemon that there ever was. Moussaillon, and Mustelide. So Mustelide is basically the otter family.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cute.
The greatest Pokemon in the world. That's Oshawott, my favorite Pokemon. I love you so much. Oshawott.
Milo, don't listen to this.
No, I said the greatest Pokemon.
Milo's a Pokemon.
He's a
Milo is not a Pokemon. Milo is not a Pokemon.
No, Milo, just Don't listen to this.
Okay, I'm curious to see Miamisme. Oh, that's cute for Trubbish. Chanchidou is cute for Minchino. And Pashmia for Chinchino. That's cute. Ducklet is Quaneton. Oh, that's cute. Oh, Vanillite is Sorbébé. Like sorbet, baby.
Oh.
Sorbet.
Sorbébé.
Vanilla sorbet.
Sorbébé. Joltik, this is just for Will when they catch the VOD or if they happen to be lurking right now, is Statitique. Static.
Is that the yellow?
It's a yellow one.
The little guy.
The little yellow one.
Oh.
He's so cute.
Chandelier is Lugulabre. That's cute. Poularume. Okay. Oh, c'est cute ça. Oh! So Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion have slightly different names. Cobaltium, Terrakium, and Viridium. So they have instead of Eon, it's Eum at the end. So it's like close, but not quite the same. Tornadus is Boreas. Thunderous is Fulguris. And Landorus is Demeteros. Oh, putain, that was pretty cool. Keldeo and Meloetta, Genesect, Zekrom, Reshiram, and Kyurem are all the same. Chespin is Marisson. Okay, we're now in the France part of Pokemon. We've gotten to France. Marisson, Fenec, and Grenousse. Grenousse. Grenouille is French. Is frog in French.
Cute.
Amphinobi is Greninja. That's cute. Passe Rouge, Bressillon, and Flambusard. Prismillon. Oh, that's cute. Vivillon is Prismillon.
Prismillon.
Amphinobi. Yeah, that's Greninja. Flabébé, Floette, and Florges are the same in French. Wow. And I bet they say it better than we do in English. People are like, Flabébé!
Flabébé!
Flabébé, Floette, and Florges. I always say it like Flabébé. I always say Flabébé. You can't make me say it the American way. Monorpal, Dimocles. Dimocles! That's a fucking cool name.
Dimocles.
God damn. Okay.
Dimocles.
Fluvetin, Cocotine, Sucroquin, and Cube-Canaille. Oh, c'est mignon. Scralp is Vernalg, and Krabarech is Dragalge. The baby. Sylveon is Nymphali. That's cute.
Nymphali?
Nymphali, like a nymph.
Nymphali.
Deden is the same. That's funny. They actually even have like the word mucus even more in the Gumi line than they do. Klefki is Trousselon. Chevroom for Gogoat is really cute. La baby.
How do you say river?
We're not there yet. Cernia, Silvertoes, Zygarde, Dancy, Hoopa, Volcanion. Okay, Rowlet is Brandibou. Litten is Flamiao. Oh, that's cute. Flamiao. And Popplio is Utakan. I feel like it's very important to hit the starters at least, because the starters are iconic from every generation.
I wouldn't have gotten Popplio.
No.
That one's tougher.
The water ones are just harder.
Drayoy. Okay, this is really funny. So you know how Drampa is like the old dragon. So it's Dragon Grandpa Drampa.
I think I stopped.
Well, yeah, this is Gen 7. I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah, so Dragon Grandpa is Drampa.
In French, it's
Drayoy, because it's Dragon and Vieil is old. So old dragon. Yeah.
That is what Drampa is.
Oh, Primarina. Primarina, c'est... not Primarina, I'll tell you that. Otaruria. Oh, that's cute. Otakan, Otarlet, and Otaruya. Oh, that's cute. Oh, wait. I just saw it. Where did it go? Where's my baby? My Oricorio is Plumeline. Plume is a feather. So Plumeline.
Which one is this?
Oricorio. It's the dancing bird that changes forms depending on the nectar. AKA one of my favorite fucking Pokemon of all time.
I need to get into these games.
They're really cute. Engloutirant is Guzzlord.
There is a new one coming. Eventually.
Was it ZA?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that like
it's a
whole
Legends.
other-
It's not a whole new game.
Legends
it takes
is
place.
Really fun though.
Their Legends games are really good.
Was it Arceus?
Oui Tempo. Oui Tempo.
Legally,
That's
Arceus.
cute. Babadouin and Gorithmique is good.
Have you played all
Flambino
the
is
Switch
Scorbunny.
ones?
Yeah.
L'Arméléon. Oh, is Sobble.
Was Sapphire? No, that was on 3DS.
Yeah.
The Sapphire remakes.
Dude, I love Ruby.
Wooloo is
on
Moumouton,
3DS.
and I think that one is
like the
really
Switch
fucking
ones.
cute.
I did, but I don't remember, like, I think Arceus was my favorite.
Okay.
Verpon,
Because the
Ondraki, and
capturing system was
Ratatan.
more dynamic.
Okay,
Okay.
that's really good.
And
This is
other Pokemon ones get a little repetitive.
okay.
I need to play the newer ones.
Cinderace, I will tell you, is Pyrobut. Pyrobut. So fire,
Pyrobut.
and un but is a goal in
Wait.
soccer.
Say fire again?
Pyro, that's
that?
le feu. The pyro is like pyro.
Oh, okay.
So pyro,
What Pokemon
but.
was this for?
This is Gen 8, so Sword and Shield.
That was for...
Oh, Cinderace. It's the soccer, the football playing rabbit.
Oh, okay.
The football playing rabbit.
If I'm talking about it in the French context, I am going to say football instead of soccer. But I love this. Appleton is Dratatan, which is really funny. Because think about it, dragon, like, because that family is the dragon, apple dragons.
Okay.
And instead of, like, since it's a little pie, it's like tatin, like a tarte tatin. So Dratatan is very cute.
Cute.
Let me see what else. Oh, Tifroi is Sinistea. So T, like, is tea. So Tifroi. That's cute.
Give us the tea.
Balartichaut. Oh, that's cute. Surfetched is an evolution of Farfetch'd.
Farfetch.
So Balartichaut. So it still has the tichaut, like the artichoke, like the other one did, like an artichaut. But
The nuts.
Balartichaut is like almost like a paladin.
Oh.
Like that's what I'm getting from it.
It is.
Mr. M is Monsieur
Niagara.
Glaquette. Oh, but c'est
Right.
oh, c'est mignon ça. Morpeko is Morpeko.
That's me.
What's that? Quaxley.
Yeah.
We're getting there right now though. So Pusacha is Sprigatito, Fuecoco is
Quaxley.
Chochodil.
hair.
Oh, Chochodil. And Quaxley is Coiffeton.
Qua-
That's actually perfect. Coiffeton. So coiffe is like
Coiffe the
coiffure.
hair?
Yeah,
Coiffe?
coiffure. And he does, that's like little hair. So Coiffeton.
Cute.
Yeah, it's very cute. Voice actor plus Zila. Well, she's also the voice of Zila, so it's still the Silva. Lechonk is Gourmelet, that's cute. Palmy is Pont.
Is that Oshawott Evolution, the darker blue?
Yeah, that's Duat.
Oh.
Smoliv is Olivini. Smoliv is Olivini.
Like an olive?
Like it's a little, yeah, it's a little olive Pokemon.
There's a smaller.
Charbabon, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Terracool and Terracruel are Toadscool and Toadscruel.
I don't even know.
Cloth is Craparois. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's like iconic. Oh, Revavroom is Vrombotor.
Vroom.
Vrombotor.
Vrombota.
Now you know how to say your partner Pokemon in French.
Vrombota.
Vrombotor.
I wish I could speak French.
Pietacé, and
are.
Balbalaise.
We're
According
good at
to your-
French,
Yeah.
Right?
34 and me. You're
By 34 and me, we
Yes.
are part French.
It's biologically proven.
Hurlequeue, Sphinx,
By
Fongufurie,
science.
Flotte Mèche, Rampeille. Oh, that's cute. Pélage sablé, roue de fer, haute de fer, pomme de fer, tête de fer. Oh, yeah, because it's all iron. Yeah, de fer. Okay. That's kind of funny. Wow, they changed all of the. Okay, so this falls into your understanding here.
Okay.
How would you say these? Starting here, obviously.
Where's the Chinese? Oh, what is this the French?
That's the
for it?
French version of it, yeah.
Whoa.
Chongqian. Is this a sword in any way?
I think it's based off of things.
That's not Mandarin Chinese.
I'll pull up the actual names in a second. Hold on.
What gen is this? I've
That's
never
Gen
seen
9.
This is beyond me.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm gonna go over to them right
What's
now.
the newest Pokemon game that came out?
Scarlet and Violet. They're from Scarlet and Violet.
Oh.
Okay.
Gua.
Here, I'm gonna pull up the. I'll pull them up here so we can actually see them. Whoop. It's
What is this Pokemon called in English?
that.
The fuck? That is not what that said. Oh, it's probably because the Chinese are trying to go with the Japanese.
Hold on, let me go here. So here's where we are here. So this is origin modeled after that. So they're maybe based on the 4 perils of Chinese mythology. So.
Gu Jian. I don't know what the last word is. Wo. Gu Jian Wo. Is he a nest? Is he a...
It's kind of a snail. Yeah.
Oh.
It's kind of nasty.
Does it kind of feel that way or?
No. Not at all. The Japanese, the chong, that means bug.
So
the Chinese doesn't have that though. That's
the Chinese
weird.
is the Chinese just kind of doing its own thing.
I don't know. And it says Nyo here, so these are different too. I don't know. Guan Nyo. Is that what snail is? I don't know. Chong. See, that's the Japanese. Chongjian might be a combination of bamboo slips. Oh.
Oh, okay.
It is grass.
I only
darkened
recognize
grass,
this one
yeah.
here, but they didn't use that for the Chinese. Wo. Oh, wo is Chinese for snail. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never heard it. I don't even know what Chinese for snail is.
Next one.
What is that? Oh, that one looks kind of cool.
That one is cool. I really like that one from a design
Is it a
standpoint.
cat or?
It's dark ice.
That one looks
Snow could be snow leopard.
Cute.
Bao. Oh yeah, leopard is bao.
Okay.
Jian is sword. So Japanese is bao jian, which is leopard sword. The Chinese, I don't know what the fuck is doing. It's going 3 syllables. Gu jian bao.
So it's like weirdly the Japanese almost feels more
Chinese.
like
I wonder if they're adding the gu to make it sound like a legendary, because that's like fabled or old.
Yeah.
Or of legend.
Yeah, Pikachu in French is just Pikachu, by the way.
That's really funny. Ding lu. Lu means deer. Is it a deer?
Yeah.
Ding. I don't know what ding means. I've never seen that word before. Oh, all of them are using
Vessel.
gu. So maybe gu is just what they're using to make it sound like an older legendary Pokemon.
Yeah.
Because gu is like fairy tale kind of thing.
Okay.
Gu ding lu.
Yeah, ancient Chinese
Legendary-
cauldron, yeah.
Legendary cauldron deer.
Yeah, well because it has it has a that.
Oh, that's a weird looking motherfucker.
It's I'm not going to say it, but ding. Is it that? Am I saying it properly?
Ding. It's third tone.
Ding.
Of ding.
Ding.
Yeah.
So ding.
So the Chinese tones are really funny because there's like that one.
They're straight,
That one.
down.
Arrow and that one. So it goes ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, it's literally
You follow
it's
the tone.
it's the melody of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oops. And then the last one is this little fire fishy.
Oh my god,
So
it's
cute.
me.
It's you when you're on fire.
You, I saw YU. That means fish in Chinese.
Yeah.
You. Oh, so this is a good example of the tones. You. So this is you means jade, or I think it's jade in this context.
Yeah.
Does it say jade anywhere?
Yeah, jade.
Yeah, so it's jade
Okay.
fish.
Jade fish. So
And then Chinese says gu yu. So gu must mean like
that must be what they're using
yeah,
for
for legendary.
Yeah. So it's you.
Yeah, that was really good.
Wow!
Hey!
Let's fucking go!
Those are hard too because the U's are kind of a bitch.
Well, that's the French. You.
Yeah. The like Li Yue is also been the it's a W. So this isn't a W. Double dotted U like Li Yue is, but it's
And
it's
is it like
Yue,
like, well,
yue.
but like the at the end goes up.
Yue.
It-
Yue. Yeah, it goes up. Yue.
No, I what?
Oh my gosh.
The trick with a lot of the Chinese words is that it sounds like 2 syllables in one.
Okay.
So it's like yue. Just make it
Yue.
one.
Yeah.
You eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
It's you just have to do it
Yue.
like as 1 syllable. Li Yue. You follow the
Yeah.
music of it.
It looks like they're going
Yue.
down here.
Yue. Li Yue. Oh, it's Li Yue.
You eh?
Li Yue. Li Yue.
I thought it was. I have never seen the Chinese word for it, but yes, but that.
Li Yue.
Yeah.
So Liyue.
Yeah.
So Liyue. So I've actually
Yeah.
been saying it pretty
Liyue.
well.
Yeah.
So if I go Liyue, I'm
They
saying
sh-
saying it pretty well. Because I know a lot of
Liyue-
people go like the.
Leeway is the worst I've heard.
Oh no, leeway.
Leeway.
I also hear Liyue. A little bit leeway.
Leeway. I've never
Liyue.
heard that yet, but
Liyue.
it's definitely the most
Liyue.
inconsistent one. That they've
Oh
done.
boy, it is.
Liyue.
For me, the one that killed me. Here, I know how to get to it by clicking on my wife. It's the chi. So
Chi
chi
Xing?
sing chi
So Chi Xing.
chi shing.
Xixing.
Yeah, that one's actually really easy.
Chi
'cause
shing.
it's-
Well,
they're
no,
both
because
first
sometimes they would
Xing.
tell me that it was, but sometimes they would tell me that the X is supposed to be
Xixing?
C.
No, it's
Chi Xing.
Xing.
Ching.
S-H.
Xing.
Xixing.
So it is shing.
Chi Xing.
So I would go chi
Xixing.
shing. Sometimes I would go chi
Yeah.
shing, and they would be like, "No, you're wrong," and I'm like, "What
Yeah.
am I doing wrong?"
That's literally the 7 stars of Liu. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chi Xing.
Chi shing.
Xixing.
So
Chi is
chi
7.
shing.
Xing is star. Yeah.
Chi shing.
Xixing.
You got it.
Yeah. Liu chi shing.
I think I remember hearing them say like
Liu.
Liu Chi Xing. Chi.
I probably got it wrong in my initial sessions, which is all the times I had to say it. So Liu chi shing.
Yeah, that was perfect.
Whoa! It's amazing how you can. Yeah, might be a regional difference because with Xing, Ace knows sing. With
I've
a
never heard of
C,
sing.
like a k sound or a s sound.
At least for Mandarin, I've only ever heard stars pronounced as Xing. Xing, it literally means starry.
I think. Oh, and in Cantonese, what would it be?
Oh no, Cantonese.
In Cantonese, would it be? Yeah, Cantonese. They were doing more Cantonese in the initial sessions. I remember that. I remember it specifically being Cantonese, which is why if I said Qixing, they'd be like, "No, you're wrong."
But why would they use Cantonese for this region?
I don't know why. I don't remember. I mean, at this point, it was like over 5 years ago, so I
That's
sincerely
weird.
don't remember. But I remember being told that, which was why I'd have to I don't want to listen to my early lines, both as an actor and also as someone who has gotten better at saying liu, someone who's better at saying it now. I don't want to listen to my early attempts because literally it was Gabe when I started recording the my hangout. He was my first time working with him, and he was just like, "Oh wait, you speak French? The U is like the French U," and
then
it
you
was
were
like, and I was like,
"Oh."
"Why didn't anyone tell me this?" This makes my life so much easier. And it's like I finally understood.
Oh, Gabe Hoyo, we love you.
We love Gabe.
They probably wouldn't let me say everything. And if they ever let Beto go to Fontaine, they would never let me say everything properly. No, they wouldn't. They would have me simplify it like they do with having Susie say everything. Like she had to kind of neutralize some of the stuff in on the Cien Show, I think.
Oh.
Because of because she's too good.
We do be having it. I've never had a Hoyo character that speaks Chinese ever.
Boy, I want that for you. I want a Hoyo character that speaks the languages I speak so that I can
flex.
But they're not gonna let me do it. That's why they will never put me. They'll even though they knew they could, they would never fucking put me in as NPCs in Fontaine or something like that. Because in the first place I'd be like, Fontaine?
There's an NPC in Fontaine that says, "Que sera sera."
Not actually French.
No, but the way that the actor says it is so funny. And Josh's partner Min, you know how Discord, when you join the channel, it plays a sound?
Yeah.
Every time he joins, he has that line ripped from the game.
No.
So every time he joins our voice calls, you just hear "Que sera sera," and it's great.
That's so funny. Wendy, your message got held for sex-based reasons because you said 3 ways to sound things, and my automod. We leave the automod on for sexual terms, really strictly, because we think it's really funny when automod gets mad for things that are innocuous, like 3 ways. We just think it's really funny when that happens. Mm-hmm. The mods and I are very chaotic, as you can tell. Oh my god. Yeah, no, I would be like, oh, so according to the judgment of the oratrice mécanique d'analyse cardinale. Dun 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 dun. They would never.
The whole meme online.
Yeah, they would never let me get away with it with the oratrice mécanique d'analyse cardinale. They would never let me get away with saying it properly.
What is the way that it got said?
Ray actually does a pretty good job with it.
Okay.
He does it like he. I mean, he's not saying it the French way. He is not using the French sounds for it, but he's going oratrice mécanique d'analyse cardinale, and so it's like it's correct. It's like an anglicized French, and like. Given that they were not going to try to make it sound like proper French, I was just like, I will accept this. Sometimes he kind of like, he'll tap the R sometimes, which isn't it's not the French R, but I'm like, an attempt is made. The French R is really difficult to do. You either know how to do it or you don't. It's like a really hard thing. Sure don't. Yeah, like to the point where like sometimes you guys will hear me do
You're French, don't you remember?
Okay, I'm French. I am French.
Don't say
why aren't we allowed to pronounce words correctly? Because sometimes it is literally the case where it's like, okay, so if my character doesn't speak French, like I can't go like like c'est un déjà vu, like I'm having a déjà vu.
Easiest pronunciation for everyone.
Yeah,
to do.
They want to make sure that everyone can do it. So
because I promise you, what's gonna bother you more is the lack of consistency.
Yeah. So like what are you gonna do? You're gonna have me go in and go like oratrice mécanique d'analyse cardinale, and like everyone else go like
oratrice mécanique
d'analyse cardinale.
I forgot the rest.
Oratrice mécanique d'analyse cardinale is an acceptable way of saying it. I will say that is acceptable. It is acceptable. But there are other words that are way harder, like neuvillette. Yeah, is people sometimes you go nu. Some people go neuvillette and some people go nervillette, and the R kills me. So what it is like I think what they probably tried to do is in order to teach the sound, you're not doing it. You're adding too much. You're adding a diphthong to it. It's just in order to have it work, they probably said it's kind of like you're going It's not, because there's no sound to it. You're not adding that rhoticism to it, but like they're probably going like, oh, it's kind of like you're going nervillette, but don't do the R. Neuvillette. If I were to say if I were to Americanize or anglicize it, it would be neuvillette. Neuvillette is how I would say like, okay, fine, if you're gonna do it that way as a thing. But it's not new, because that new is a diphthong that does not exist in French. So neuvillette would be the proper way of saying it. Neuvillette.
Is that how you say Farina?
Furina isn't like, I mean, like if I were to like francify it, it would be a Furina, but like, Furina is not really a French word. Oh. Sometimes it's like, but what was so funny was Alejandro, like what Alejandro will do, he'll like fucking call me in the middle of like him streaming and go like, hey bro, how do you say this? And it'll just be like a voice message, like, hey bro, how'd you say this? And I'll just be like, okay, I'll say it the right way for you. And he tried to get me about like fucking Joe's character, Risley, or however the fuck you say his name. Gosh, and everyone's like, how do you say that, Allegra? I'm like, that's some British bullshit. France has nothing to do with that shit. Risley, I don't know how do you say. Is it Risley? Is that how they say it in the game? I just think calling him Risley is really funny because I know people really like his ass.
Horsley. Because it has whore in it.
Risley?
I thought you
I'm hearing Risley, Risley. They say Risley. They say Risley in the game.
You're Christian.
Yeah, he does suck. He is, I'll put it politely, he is an Anglophile. Wasn't I kind?
I feel like if you're asking for me to tell you you're kind, it loses the kindness.
Okay, that's funny. Joe says Risley, because I guess that's how they had them do it in the game. And he calls the character Rye Bread. I'm like, that's funny.
Cute.
Yeah. So my favorite thing about Assassin's Creed Valhalla was you see the, like, every single syllable version of all the things that eventually got, like, shortened in modern parlance. So, so, you end up with, like, Leicestershire, in modern English. But in the game, in ye olde English, it was written out as Leicestershire, and they would pronounce every single fucking syllable in it, and I'd be like, good, this is chaotic. I want to say the full ass Leicestershire. I do. Wait, in game you've heard actual people named Risley. I didn't know that was an actual name. Worcester, Massachusetts. You like singing as the first like writhe, like writhing in pain. So Risley. No, it's but like British
I thought
people.
At some point in this word there was a word whore in it, but I think it's just a W.
Yeah, no, it's.
I really thought there was whore in it.
This fucker.
Close.
There's a W and an E.
There's an H
And
in
an
there
H.
somewhere.
Wait, you can spell out whore. Oh no,
It's-
you can spell out whore.
Not you like
W-H-R-O-L-E.
Not you Voldemorting it.
You can
Oh,
spell
W-H.
Oh my god, this is not
O-R-E.
working.
Wait,
You
there's
can
no R.
spell.
There is an R. Yeah, you can spell
No, point it
whore.
at her.
You can spell whore.
There we go. I fixed it. Yeah. On
Do
there.
you see what I mean, though?
I mean,
This is why
If you do the
whores
Tom Riddle
leave.
Voldemort thing,
I
then
mean, yes.
yeah.
If you were to rearrange the letters, you could have the word whore. I wonder. Okay,
Horsely.
I never got this. The Numa and Weezia thing. It's just like the two opposing energies. What's the bit?
Avatar.
What's the bit of what's the current region in game? Fuck, why am I blanking on it? Why have I forgotten it?
Sumeru.
No.
Fontaine?
Nope.
No.
After that.
I
Not
don't
one.
know.
Yeah, what's the bit of
Natlan, your captain.
Notlin? Yeah, what's the bit of
It's
Crotland.
Philoston?
I don't know.
Yeah, what's the bit that they do? Well, no, not the okay. Yeah, no, we don't have to talk about the not the culture, but you know how like when they got to Sumeru, they introduced Dendro finally. When they got to
is there a new element?
Well, no, there's not a new element, but like
You're talking to people who never play.
yeah. Okay, this different souls. Okay, nice.
You're definitely talking to people who never play.
Night Soul, nice.
I know.
I
in
dig it.
Genshin,
Yeah.
There's
Men?
no, not really.
There are men in Genshin.
Not very many.
Yeah.
Starra does it more.
Yeah, but he's got a beautiful ass for her, so I've
Yeah,
heard.
but he's like from like a year ago or something.
It's been a minute.
Who are your latest men in Genshin?
Let's find out. Who are the latest men? Who are the latest men?
Aloy. There's your latest.
Aloy.
man. Oh shit. Aloy.
I wish I would show the who's the latest man
The
of
Time
Genshin.
Order.
Kinich? Oh god, wasn't he at the beginning of the He was at the beginning of the patch, wasn't
Oh,
he?
sort by region, I think, because then the new
Oh
one-
yeah. Oh, well, at least we
Well,
can go to
if you go
there we go.
there.
No, Auroron. Wasn't he? He was after, wasn't he?
Okay.
We had more in Sorrow.
Oh, why is he so pale? Anyway, he's supposed to be Olorun. He's a 4-star, bro.
I don't go to Genshin, man. I don't know.
This guy here.
I don't recognize any of these characters. I truly do not follow Genshin that way anymore.
Why does he have a pixel dragon?
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cute.
That's
I like it.
vibes.
I'm not mad about it. I just want to understand. Do they have like technology?
He's an isekai protagonist.
Do they have technology in that one?
That's the answer for everything.
That's his ninja way. What's another quote from anime?
I love him. I love. This is just a little guy.
He is a little.
He's a little guy. There are zero complaints. I have zero complaints. It's a summon.
It's like a silver wolf.
That's what Himmel.
It's so it is kind of futuristic. Okay, I'm really not caught up at all. I have no idea what's going on whatsoever. So.
I don't know any of the new characters.
Pas mal.
Well, we gotta get to the end. Monsieur Mime? Oh, c'est Mime instead of Monsieur Mime. Two tentacle aerodactyl on the night.
Hello. Oh. No, they didn't do it. It's not. Women. It's not. Charmeleon, Wartortle, Mewtwo, Tentacruel, Aerodactyl, Almanite, Slowpoke, Pidgeot, Arbok. That's all, folks.
I only remember certain parts of the rap.
Let's see if we can do it. Hold on.
I definitely can't.
Oh, that's very. I should show you that later.
Okay, guys, we gotta rap some Pokemon. You just do the sing.
Let's see if I can keep up with it.
Let's get it on.
I want to be the best
I
there
wanna
ever
be
was.
very best.
Get all the rest.
That's
That's my
That's the only one I
cause. Electro, Diglett, Nidoran, Mankey, Metazoa, Rattata, Zero, Pidgey, King, Goteon, Knight, Ghastly, Vaporeon, Poliwag, Butterfree.
I'll search across the land. Look far and wide. Release from my hand.
Oh my gosh, this anime was so good.
Venomoth, Poliwag, Nidorina, Golduck, Rhinosaur, Grimer, Finkerbell, Smoltres. Wigglytuff. Yeah, it's Kingler, not me, Kingler over here. That's where I made Chronic Skill. Pyro, Amazing, Gleal, Tornado, Scarecrow, gotta catch them all, gotta catch them all. I did not remember some of these middle sections.
I don't remember any of them.
So, Persian, Ignorance, Sir Commander, Golem, Pikachu!
Hey.
I knew that part.
Pikachu's in there somewhere.
All I remember is the war.
The last 10. Flareon.
We're at the
You love
halfway
Starmie.
point. Doing great so far.
What's all this we stuff? I'm doing all the hard work.
Break time's over. Here we go.
Metapod, Marowak, Kakuna, Trio, Trio, Seedra.
I told you.
10.
Articuno, Jinx, Nidorina, Beedrill, Haunter, Squirtle.
On my phone, it's dark mode. Don't worry.
Hey.
I don't watch a lot of YouTube on PC, to be honest.
Charizard, Machamp, Pinsir, Coffee, Dugtrio, Golbat, Staryu, Magikarp, Ninetales, Ekans, Omastar.
My baby.
Breath, man. Shake out those legs.
Ah!
Just 24 more to
And I was like, what episode
Now
is
it
that?
gets tricky, so listen real good.
Like Mr. Mime Cubone, Agriculture, begin with. Gotta catch them all, gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all, gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Here we go!
Oh.
Charmeleon, Wartortle, Mewtwo, Tentacle, Aerodactyl, Almanite, Slowpoke, Pidgeot, Arbok. That's all, folks.
I only remember small sections.
Can I just point out? It's Wartortle. You're like Wartortor.
That's what I remember it as.
Wartortor.
That's
For
fair. That's
some
fair.
reason, I thought War Tor was Omastar. I got really confused in my head. That's why when I was like, oh, it's Omastar. I was thinking this motherfucker.
Wartortor.
I was so confused.
Wartortor. This is Wartortor. Okay, all in favor of renaming Wartortle as Wartortor.
Wartortor.
I like that.
If my in-game Wartortle in my
Wartortor.
War never
Wartortor.
changes.
War never tortors. War never tortors. All right, I will do it for. I think I have. I have like my sunglasses one in PokeGo has to be called Squad because of the Squirtle Squad. I can't change that name, but I will see if I have any other Wartortles to change the name to Wartortle.
You have to.
I have to see. A lot of my Pokemon are honestly like named their IVs because it's easier for me to notice them. Oh no, number. Here we go. Here, you know what? The one wearing the party hat is going to be Wartortor.
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 War never tortors.
Wartortor. I gotta make sure he's got a little heart in front of his
Cute.
name.
He has to.
There you go. Tor.
Beautiful. Gorgeous.
Yeah, what is it, Tor? The war. Good God. No, what is it, Tor? Absolutely nothing. Camden, do you want to explain the 4 a.m. stream I didn't get to see? You streamed at 4 a.m.?
Yeah.
Why did you start a stream at 4 a.m.?
Because my roommate was awake, so I was talking with my roommate. And then
And
I
then
was
you
like,
just didn't go to bed?
yeah.
Was this last night?
Yeah.
So you got home from our place
Yeah.
late last
Well,
night.
because I drove home and it was supposed to take me an hour, and then it took me 2 hours because the time changed. Well, because the time changed.
Still only took a
So then I was like, oh, well, I'm up anyway, and it's so late.
So he didn't just go to bed.
No.
You know what? No, thank you for snitching. Thank you.
Oh my god. Poor Milu's playground.
This is honestly it's a little sharp and pointy, but like
Someone else
in a
is
cool way.
someone else is snitching now. Molly, do you want to tell us about the Ahmed story?
The what?
Oh.
Not the
Yes.
War flashbacks went through my eyes. I have a thing I do called the monthly. The name's not finalized, but it's like the monthly Astra Shaming Friendsless Club, where I go
I've
through-
heard about this.
If your Astra is insufficient for my army, you're terminated.
Insufficient is crazy.
My requirements are reasonable and fair.
My requirements are reasonable and fair.
Oh my God.
And so, someone named Ahmed did not meet my requirements. But they preemptively gifted 5 subs so that I would not delete them off my friends list.
That's
God
iconic.
But
damn.
then,
Yeah.
Shin, another person in chat, donated $100 for me to delete them off my friends list.
Oh my god.
And
Did
then
you
I
have
was,
to?
I
Did
was
you?
like, whoa, I can't do that. That's so mean. And then he donated another 100.
Oh, you had to at that
And
point.
then, it gets worse.
Doing it you right now.
It gets worse.
No, what do you mean it gets worse?
And then Ahmed
Yeah.
extended an olive branch in friendship, and he gifted
Stop.
subs to Shin.
That's
And I was
sweet.
like, oh, maybe this is the start of an enemies to lovers friendship.
Right.
I was shipping my chat.
Right. Yeah.
I was writing the fanfic as we were waiting. And then Shin said, no. And he donated another $100 to delete Ahmed. And so I was like, let's call Mina. Oh, and this is also Entropy, my editor, donated $1. I think $1,
That's so
$4.20 or $6.90 or $1.23. I can't remember.
Okay.
Some combination of those numbers.
Yeah.
Not
Ace
funny
also
numbers.
donated in support of Ahmed.
So
Okay.
My
sweet.
chat was split into a dono war on which side. One side, Quantum Banana, I saw your ass in there earlier. Quantum Banana also was like, I don't support bribers. Therefore, we did a vote, we did a bid war. The chat was split. It came down to the morals, the ethics of the act, you know?
Yeah.
It was
And
quite
so you called
frightening.
Mina.
So, well, I called Mina.
Yeah.
And I asked her, I gave her like the first, so somebody in chat donated $100. She's like, okay, pick them. I
Right.
didn't even explain the full story. She just automatically chose Shin.
For sure.
She didn't even hear Ahmed out because Ahmed, you know, he was a nice guy. He's
Yeah.
he gives subs in friendship.
That's
So
so
he
nice.
gifted
And
a
Mina.
total. Shin gifted a total of $300. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. That's pretty solid.
yeah.
But damn.
Yeah.
But
It was
Mina-
the attempted
Mina heard-
olive branch.
I know.
Heard
was
that dono.
messy.
Mina heard that dono and was like,
That sounds, yeah.
and was
She
like
is a-
streamer brain.
She is
Yeah.
a cruel
Streamer-
mistress.
Like
a
she-
wicked
La-
businesswoman.
She is.
A
She
wicked-
is a wicked businesswoman. She literally
so-
has
yeah.
like, 5 subs and you hear me saying, "You are not baby girl." And then 10 subs, it's Alice going, "I think you're baby girl." And 20 subs, and it's a poorly edited version of me saying "you are not baby girl" to cut the word "not" out and squish
You
the
are
words
baby girl.
together. Which I will not say it out
that's
loud
so
because
funny.
I cannot give Mina any material.
No, you
No.
cannot.
All right, what are we ratting on me for?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, is there something to chat? Do you want to rat on me for something?
I didn't do any. I just wanted to, like, this ratting out. That's what we're calling it. I did not partake in a negative way.
Okay.
Okay,
I was
but
just a streamer.
okay, say like you don't
That
have
was
to meet my
truly a top
requirements
10 Molly
thing.
moment.
You say like there wasn't a meet my requirements.
Oh,
other
wait.
thing.
Then I called Alejandro.
Okay.
Did he do
was
the
in
same thing?
bed.
Oh no.
Okay.
He was not the most thrilled with me. But he also sided with money.
Damn.
That's what made my because I phoned in a friend.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't make the decision to delete Ahmed, but ultimately I did delete it.
Oh my god.
Damn.
Because I thought about it without the bribery, without the donos.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he didn't meet the requirements.
You know what? That's fair. That's fair. I will grant that. With zero bribery, none of that. He didn't
It just
meet
took
the
me
requirements.
$300 to get to that decision.
It did. But you know what? You made a lot of money getting to that decision. You did earn a lot of money
I was
to make
frightened
that
every
decision.
time I heard the donation sound. I was like, please stop. This is not what you want to spend your money on.
Ahmed is on his training arc now.
Yeah, he's gonna apply again next month and see how he does.
Damn.
Oh, it gets worse, by the way.
What do you mean it gets worse?
Ahmed plays the game. He has Astra. And the
Cute.
one bidding against him doesn't play Zenless Zone Zero.
Just choosing to be messy.
Yeah. He woke up that day. He said, war. It doesn't turtle.
War torso. Oh my god. I saw a request for someone to rat out Christian for hating Mwamba.
Oh.
What is Mwamba?
Don't worry about it.
Oh.
He's not acknowledging this.
Uh-oh.
He's like, I said, someone brought up in chat to call out Christian for hating Mwamba.
Confirmed.
Are you just choosing to ignore this? Is that what's going on?
No, confirmed. He hates Wamba.
Yeah, it sounds like he hates Mwamba to me. Wait, hold on. Is he just like ignoring me?
Oh, maybe he has headphones on.
Violence is occurring.
Oh no, he's asleep. He passed out in his chair. So, yeah, so he hates Mwamba.
Confirmed.
Confirmed. I'm his
Double
girlfriend,
confirmed.
I know best.
Yeah. What's Wamba?
we taken over his bedroom. And that's what he said.
It is technically our bedroom. He felt like when we were streaming until like fucking 3 a.m. the other night, he fell asleep on the couch in there. And then I had to walk in like, hi, cutie, and I startled him awake.
Oh my god.
No.
He startles really easily. So never walk up to him when he's asleep. He will be like, ah! Yeah.
I do need to sleep soon, though. Because my session's at 9.
In the AM?
It's awful.
Wait, is the Papuma event on May 10th? When is that event? No, someone said it. Someone said it in chat. Papuma is having an event on May 10th. In chat.
I don't think they've announced their guests
Okay,
yet.
well, then nothing is announced right
Well,
now.
actually, they did an art. Does that count as announcing the guests?
No, because the Hoyoeen one didn't have any.
Okay,
Fatal
well, in that
Rock
case,
on
it's
it.
not. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have no idea.
I don't know. We'll see what I can do. What is what am I? Are we ratting me out or no? Apparently they announced it last Friday.
I don't.
The event, but maybe not
Yeah.
the guests. Oh, and it is Mario Day now that it's past midnight.
Hey!
Happy Mario Day!
It's a Mario.
Oh man, we should have gone to Universal on Mario Day.
Mario.
We can go. We can go.
It's a little Mario.
But it might be a little crazy. That's the thing. It might be a little crazy.
Yeah.
So,
For sure.
are we gonna rat me out for anything, or am I safe?
Wow, that's a
I
good-
don't think you've got toxic traits
I don't know. I have plenty of toxic traits.
on stream.
Think I'm safe? I do a lot of toxic shit.
Oh, fun.
Allegra's great. Aw. I'm too lovely for a read. Now that is not true, and we all know it. Word, I'm not too lovely for a read because I will read anyone to filth. And that makes me not lovely. I did do a lot of screaming about Mina's bad taste in men when I started playing Amnesia Memories again. Because that's
No.
I started playing I played it again before.
Don't tell me that, because she and I have the same taste in Men and Amnesia.
You like Toma?
Yeah.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
I was young.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Get better taste.
young.
You were young. Grow up.
That's how we got into talking about Caleb.
cage.
Yeah, but he gives you dolls.
Oh, well, that's nice of him.
No, it's not. He put you in a cage.
But
He put you in the Yandere cage.
in a cage because he really likes
Is it a
you.
cage of love?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's not.
No.
What the fuck is wrong with
I had
y'all?
this conversation with Mina, and I realized we have a lot in common.
No, well, okay. Love in Deep Space is also, that's how the Caleb Yandere shit came up.
Yeah.
No, Amnesia
I'm not into
memories.
Caleb because I didn't play the game when Caleb's out. So I could be into Caleb, but as of right now, I'm not. Also, the fact that his name is Caleb really bothers me because I already know a Caleb.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
prominent
So
Caleb.
when Mina first talked about it, I was like, I seriously thought you were talking about Caleb Yen for a second. I was
That's
just
so
like,
funny because when she was talking about Caleb to me, she had to preface it with, "This is not Caleb yet."
she mentioned it. I crashed her streamiversary, and
That's really funny.
and I went on a call and I dragged her over this, and you know what? I think I blocked out the fact that you also liked Toma, because I was like, you know, surely no one else I know has such abysmal fucking taste in men.
I'm a different person now.
So you got to replay the game.
I have not played the game since the start. Well, I vividly remember one guy pushes you off a cliff. I don't think he was very good.
Oh shit. Amnesia memories.
Okay, these are the no. Let's not take that picture. Let's take this picture. Take
This
this
one
picture.
pushes you off a cliff or some shit.
Which one?
That guy.
Yeah, but it was an accident though.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Maybe he actually
okay.
put me in a cage.
No,
okay,
I actually
because
judge him because he's wearing like the collar, and I'm just like, what are you, little
Bottom
fucking
bitch.
butt? Yeah, bottom. Also, he has a stupid piercing. I'm just gonna say, if he's gonna have a piercing on his chest, he should get nipple
That's a piercing?
It's a piercing.
You
He's
have
got
a
a little
piercing on
bar
your-
That was a
piercing on it.
wart.
No, he's got a bar piercing on his titty, and I'm just gonna say that
doesn't
if he
even
wanted to
have
have a
a
titty
titty.
piercing, he could have nipple piercings like a normal
He's
person.
barely got
He's
titties.
different.
He could have nipple
But
piercings
like,
like
out
a
of
we
all of
support
your
the
options here,
individuality.
he's murdery. He's murdery.
No, he's an accidental boy. He puts you in a
Accidental.
cage out of love.
It's an accident.
I would rather take the accident over the guy who's like, I can't
You
let
don't
you outside.
have to be in a cage.
What game is this?
Amnesia.
have to pick
It's
the
one of
right
these fucking
answers.
Otome games. I just want to know,
This was
why
Love
can't
and Deep
we?
Space before Love and Deep Space.
Why can't we have like normal taste in men? You know what? He's just too popular for his own good, and he's just like
He
a
was
shy little smart
annoying.
boy.
He was cute.
He was cute.
annoying.
I think I liked him the most.
Yeah.
I think I liked
I
him
can
a
see
little
that.
bit in the end.
His fan club was annoying. I can't deal with that shit.
Oh my god, no! I can't deal with any of this shit.
That's
I'm
why
just
I like Toma. It better be about me. I don't want to deal with
what the
your
fuck?
Oh my god.
Greenwell Yang. No, not
Greenwell,
Greenwell
and then
Yang.
that one's Novelet. However you say
Nervalet.
Yeah, we have had way too many pronunciations shouted out about that name. Y'all know
The
them
four of
all.
them are cards. He's the Joker.
Yeah, his was fucky.
Joker-fied. Someone
the
he's
blue one?
He choked. No, the green. This
Green
guy
one.
chokes you and shit.
he like fucking like kills you at the end of one of the routes. He's just like, if you get out of
and
the
the
bad ending on one of
cage
the
is
routes.
the problem.
I'm not.
Oh, so he's the bad cage.
I'm
but
not
he's the good
defending.
cage.
I'm not defending Ukyo right now. Okay, I'm not defending that. You will notice I am not defending that man at this moment in time.
Okay.
All I am doing is stating that he does do a murder, and I don't think that's okay. But I also don't think going, I love you now, I must put you in a cage. Here, you can have some dolls
for your
to keep
safety.
you company.
Oh,
No!
that's nice. That's so thoughtful.
No, no, you want to know what that bullshit is? That's Sunday doing shit to Robin. Sunday would put Robin in a cage. I said it. I said it.
I honestly don't remember the story anymore.
I
The
said
Sunday
it.
story.
I do remember he had a dog and he
They
was
all
cute.
look like lesbians. You know what they do? They
I think
all
that's
look
why I
like
liked it.
lesbians.
Everyone looked like a pretty girl back in the day.
You know, you think I'd like them more because they look so feminine. They also have noodle arms. I'm more ripped than they are, and that I think
I
about
thought
that
he
sometimes.
looked like a bee.
We can do better than that.
He looks like
Sometimes
a bee.
Toma's like, I'm putting my arm up, and he's got the noodliest arm on the planet, and I've
Oh,
got
when
guns.
he's staring at you through the cage, she's like, and I
Oh.
don't know what that means, but his eyes get really creepy.
Huh.
There's something appealing about deranged men in fiction only.
Hold on.
Gotcha.
Men in real life?
I'm not. We're not
Well,
playing the
you're-
game.
you're-
You're
an
an
exception.
right now.
You're an exception always.
Hold on. We're not. And so is Christian.
And Christian.
For
not
sure.
Howard, though.
Not.
And
Of course
not,
not.
Hold on, I'm just.
not
pulling up-
Alejandro either.
No.
I'm just. This is. Of course I do. I was streaming it the other day. I streamed it before I played Pokemon Go.
Goodness.
Yeah. No. You think? All I do is roast the shit out of everything. Here, just need fast effects off. I'm gonna
Not
turn
the
all this
SFX.
off right now. I don't need that shit. I don't need that shit.
Okay.
Oh shit!
What?
No, I was
What?
stupid. I
Okay.
pressed cancel instead of
Oh
confirm.
no.
Okay.
Okay.
We're just going to the album
Not the confirm.
galleries. No, I had confirm. I was turning off the sound.
Oh.
Hold on. Where's the fucking? Yeah, they're just like dumb boys arguing or whatever. Like, what's going on? C key. Oh, that's the other thing. Whatever. What? Why are they fighting? I don't care. The girls are fighting in a stupid way, and I don't care about them.
They
I don't
really
care
do
about
look like
any of them.
lesbians.
I don't care about any of them. I don't care about this shit. Oh, here, this is the Shin route. Here, you ready for the fucking cage? Are you ready for the cage? You're in a fucking cage.
No, but she looks so happy.
No, she doesn't.
She's got candy in there. Candy
But
from
look,
something
she has
else.
everything she needs.
Yeah.
What more could you ask
Oh,
for?
I should preface this with
Bombastic side eye.
But like in a cute way.
Criminal
That
offensive
one wasn't as cute.
side
I
eye.
will say.
There's nothing cute about it. There's nothing fucking cute about it.
But there's a lot of.
And
scenes
he's
in
there
the
doing this
cage.
shit.
Okay, that one was kind of cute.
Yeah, but look how fucking traumatized she looks there.
She's blushing.
No, she's traumatized.
She is a little traumatized. Oh, that one. Oh, yeah. This is cute.
Oh.
No, it's not.
His hair is so dumb looking.
There's nothing cute about this.
So this is the bad
it's
ending.
a
This is the bad ending, or?
This is the bad ending.
Oh yeah, because he keeps you chained up.
Well, he keeps you drugged and chained up.
Oh.
What kind of fuckery is this?
Thank you, Bonzeel. Thank you.
You know, this one was kind of. Oh, that's pretty messy.
Yeah,
Ooh.
she's got bruises on her arms and she's crying. Yeah?
Huh.
We like this.
So wait, this is Mina and your favorite?
Okay.
Yeah.
To be fair, we
And then you
didn't
can
have
good
many
ending this
options.
shit, and I'm just
Okay.
like, what in the Stockholm? What
To
in the
be-
fucking
to be
Stockholm?
Fair, to be fair, we don't have. Slim Pickens.
More passion, more passion, more
I want to see if we can find the one where
energy,
Kyo kills
more
I thought it was the
footwork,
Pokemon.
Yeah, here's my other option.
Oh yeah.
more passion,
Oh.
Here's my
more
other option.
energy.
Cute.
I'm not. Oops, sorry.
Do you,
I'm not.
Do you prefer cage or death?
I don't prefer. We're not. This isn't a binary
Is
choice.
that, like-
there are 5 options
Those
here.
are the
we're
options
not,
that
we're,
you get?
We're going like, oh, which of these 2 do you want? I'm like, you can get any of the other 3. Actually,
I don't like. I don't like the other one.
I played Harvest
He's fucking
Moon.
strangling
They
her.
They were a little different than this.
Yeah, I like Harvest Moon.
I love Harvest Moon.
Yeah, so there's he's really.
Wait, why does he look like a Pokemon gym leader?
He does.
For N?
He does kind of like N with like
a little
with
bit.
like a
Yandere N. All right, Mina, who's your new favorite?
Yeah, right.
Oh, and then this is if he stabs himself.
We kill
Oh.
the evil is defeated.
He does have good endings. I just don't remember them at all.
I don't remember any of that
You
shit.
only remember the bad ones?
Yeah.
Oh,
Look at this.
cute.
Like, how about we take none of these? How about none of that? Hold on,
Emotional
He was the.
Bless you.
He's the one with the fucking fan club. He hates the fact that he's as popular as he is. He just wants to have friends.
I just didn't like his design.
Novelette?
That's fine. This one. Yeah, he's just like, can these bitches stay away? I hate you.
Oh,
I
that's
love my
mean.
girly. I appreciated that. He just wanted to be happy. And then he's a nerd and
He was the
tutors
cute.
you.
Actually, out of all the guys, he was probably the cool. He has a dog.
Doesn't he tutor you? Or, like, isn't that part
I
of
don't
it?
fucking. I just remember he was the least red flaggy, but he
He
was also
is
the least
problematic.
memorable.
Wait, why are her
Ah.
boobs so big and he's such a beanpole? Like, she's got, like, titty, and he looks like he needs to eat more Taco Bell. Like, what if we fed him Taco Bell?
Love.
Without his glasses, I don't even know who he is.
I don't know who this man is. I don't know. I don't fucking know. Oh, look, is he letting you have the? He's letting you have the cake that Shin's
Half
like.
month anniversary. I'm so thoughtful.
He's
Half
letting
month?
you have the
Half
cake
month
that Shin is like, you
anniversary.
can't have cake, you're gonna get fat. Look, I don't defend Shin that
Shin
hard.
is pretty.
We literally have a command now. Hold on.
Not a command. Do you still have the Camden command?
I don't know. Hold on. We have a thing. That's the Shin command.
I lied about
having
having.
lied about having lied about having lied.
Oh, good lord.
That man does that shit, and I'm just like, what the fuck?
That's nice.
Here, I want to see the bit where he pushes you off a cliff.
Oh,
Oh, I guess we don't see it.
Yeah, that's like what starts the game.
Well, no, you don't know. You
And
don't,
you
'cause
wake
you
up
don't
in the
remember. You wake
hospital.
up in the
Wait,
hospital.
you start the game by being pushed off a cliff?
Yeah.
Wait, are y'all fucking here? I thought for a second from the thing, I thought he like had like her leg up or
Right.
something, and I was like, oh shit, we're steamy, we're spicy, we're doing things.
Okay, a little cliffside vibe.
Well, cliffside vibe. I guess they're here. They're talking about the camping trip where she fell off a cliff and got covered. At least he blames himself rather than like Toma being like, I gotta put you in the cage.
Only I can protect you. Only I can prevent
But like, look at
forest
the
fires.
plushies she's with.
You know what? I
You know.
think I can enjoy plushies without being in a cage. Look how small that fucking cage is. Can she even lay down all the way?
Well, it's
Can
like,
she stretch out? Can she stretch out, Camden? She can't stand. She can't stretch. She's not a dog, Camden.
I'm here to support Molly's interests.
Molly and Mina.
Molly and Mina's
Thank you,
interests.
thank you.
I'm
Wait,
know,
I
we're
wanna
like
see-
the devil on the shoulder.
I want to see if we can. Oh wait, no, that's different. I want to see if we can find like that shot of him doing the finger thing
Okay.
that you were talking about.
Yeah, find the finger thing.
It's aesthetically attractive,
Yeah.
morally bankrupt.
Okay.
Edie Toma. What is this? Oh, is this like the?
End credits.
I guess.
If there's a picture of it on Google somewhere.
I'm sure.
I know
Okay.
because Mina made me look at it.
Oh, fun.
Hold on.
So really, we can just blame Mina for everything always.
Oh well, I mean, yes, this is known.
Of course.
This is.
Hold on.
I like that there's something on your
Toma.
desktop called OMG Mina.
Oh,
Go to images.
I'll
Go
pull
to
it up.
images.
Hold on. Look at him. If I can't
This is
find you,
normal.
I won't
This
be
is
able to forgive
Mina likes
myself.
Shandarius. I'm not like that. I would never.
You liked this choice though.
Okay, again.
Where
slim
is it? Is
pickings.
it the?
Click this, and I think it gives you some options. No, there. Hang on, click that.
That?
Surely, this. Yeah, he looks at you. This isn't the full body, but he does do the thing. And he stares at you.
The way that you
Here.
knew the picture
That.
that needed to be clipped.
I told you, Mina made me look at this other day.
The other day?
Yeah, we had a conversation about this very recently.
Yeah, I think
Because she's playing Collar X Malice right now, and that's the one that this artist did, the new one, which is significantly less red flaggy.
Okay.
That I love fewer red flags. I like
We do
I like
love
men
it.
with
No
green
Yandere.
flags.
Yeah.
No Yandere. Oh, thank
Well,
Green is a nice color.
you know what? If it's an improvement over the red flags in this one, then
there
are
are
a lot
still
of
red flags. They're just different red flags.
I'll give
She
it a
likes
shot.
the guy in a Collar Malice that treats you badly.
I mean,
Well, he doesn't treat you bad. He's just a tsundere about it. He doesn't treat you bad.
Oh, that's
Okay.
not bad.
He's just like
I'm tsundere. It's fine.
he calls you things in the beginning, and then he gets nicer. But it's
Oh.
Oh,
okay.
does he call you an
because-
idiot and stuff like that?
But
or?
he likes to eat sweets, therefore he's
Oh, okay. So he
So
truly
he's
has a
he's
pure and
sweet.
noble heart.
yes, because of his like of sugar. You see.
right. That's the redeemable
Yes,
quality.
Yes.
I just want to like open this. Oh no,
Oh, okay. Listen, your other option is after your life. So I'm just
he
saying.
is. He's like in a sat. Look at him.
Yeah. Would
It's,
you?
it's
prefer-
not. He's not your only other option though. It's just
Okay.
there are many options.
I
It's-
reiterate, they're slim pickings.
Yeah, that's fair. All bad endings. Oh yeah, this is the one where he kills you.
There's like a very specific reason why he's killing you, and I don't remember this.
It
exact
has
moment.
something to do with like the jumping timelines or something. like
Yeah.
that.
Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Yuna Ann.
Oh, that's nice. He's
俺の
saying
こと
good
を
morning.
わかる
His voice is
それとも
nice. The
忘れ
music is not.
No.
Oh, hey.
俺は
You're
トーマだよ
drugged.
呼んでごらん
He's so cute.
それでいい
Right. Look, he's so
明
happy.
日の朝にはまた忘れてしまうんだろうけど
See,
そ
he's
う
so
したら
patient.
何度でも
Right.
教えてあげるずっとそばにいるよ
That's
That's
commitment.
nice. Like he's always there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with
ね
that.
え僕の声まだ聞こえる
This little demon
こ
guy
こ
that
に
lives
閉
in
じ
your
込め
head.
られてどのくらい時間が経ったんだろう君の心はどんどん消え失せてそして多分もう戻らないね
ああ窓の外が
Oh,
白
this
い
game starts in August.
Oh, we
I
love the
think.
snow.
I don't remember.
We love the snow.
Yeah.
Is that what's making you happy right
鳥が元気よく鳴いて
That's so nice.
寒くないのか
See, it's like keeping you warm inside away from the snow.
外の鳥たちは知らないけど、お前は寒くないよな。
Okay, that's nice of him.
Yeah.
ここは冬も夏も関係がないからね。
Because he always has climate control.
でも外は危険だ。危険がいっぱいすぎて何が起きるかわからない。
Yeah.
Why is this a trope anyway? Like,
でも安心し
Yeah,
て。
the green-haired guys out there ready to kill you, you know?
you know, fair, but like, here's the thing.
怖いこ
Like,
とからも
Yeah.
why is this a narrative trope where it's like
I think it's the idea of having someone care enough to like
to hurt you, basically?
not to hurt you, but like to
こ
keep
こにいる
you.
限り
Yeah, no, I'd rather not.
Now, if they're gonna hurt me,
だから
I just think this.
No, it
this
isn't. It is a narrative
good
trope. It is a
lord.
narrative trope. It is worth saying.
Like,
In real life
He's
circumstances,
particularly ugly here, I will say.
I will say, in real life circumstances, is it abuse? 5,000,000%. In narrative, it is technically like in in Japanese media, it's a trope. It is a trope. Yandere is a trope.
It's also very like this game is very trope. It's early
It's
Otome.
very tropey.
When
yeah.
was it released?
2015, 2014.
Earlier.
Really?
I think earlier.
I played it in 2015.
Okay.
I think like 2008.
Okay.
Amnesia Memories.
And
No,
he
never
puts
mind,
her in the
2015, you're right.
Hey, and he puts her in the maid outfit. Ugh, ugh, ugh,
That was so long ago.
ugh,
Shit.
ugh, ugh. Welcome to the Cage Club, Toma.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I'm guessing this is the one. Yeah, his fucking girlies probably murder you because.
なんだ
Yeah,
ろう
there's
今日
multiple
の
endings where his girlies murder you.
This girl is murdered.
ああやだ
Wait,
な
why does he have
こ
a
んな
fan
ところにあなた
Because he's like popular. It's
But, like,
again,
for
it's
what?
the no, just for being hot. I think it's like it's tropey. It's the tropey idea of like, you know, like, oh, he's so hot, all the girls love him and they have a fan club, you know. You know, and so they're just like, meh. Yeah, she sure is a
Okay, you know,
Wait.
she's kind of campy. I can appreciate that.
ください
You know, like the hat.
I mean, she's got a Luke going.
戻ろう
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
The pearls on her ribbon look like nipples, don't they?
I thought they were like overalls.
They look like nipples. Like she's got like her nipples thing.
Okay,
Isn't it? Like
that's fun.
it's like they're the wrong color, but it's like they're like boop, like hi, look at the little things over here.
Right.
Right? It's nips.
No, but she looks nice.
Or does she?
戻ろうさっきの間に一
She
つ
has like a smile.
見せません
See?
付き合おうって言われたじゃないよいついて私たち本当にこの方にごきょイキ様のご希望ではないイキ様をご自
Yeah.
Not the look where her face goes away.
死ね涼しいことそうですのよ
Is this their only one? Oh, yeah, she falls off a cliff in this one too, I guess.
Maybe she should stay away from cliffs. If she has
Yeah.
a tendency.
What's this one?
そうだよちゃんと
Oh, you just fucking reject him?
That's messy.
Or something? I don't know.
Damn.
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 Who's Orion? He's like a little ant spirit kid who lives in your head. I'm not. Oh, Heartworld bad endings.
誰のそばしてくれるんだね
な
What are the bad endings here?
と
Oh boy.
お部屋
Oh, so she can't protect you. So is the
なんで
Oh yeah, he kills you. I get.
In a cafe.
Does he kill you in every playthrough?
It's just always choosing.
Does he kill you in every like as a bad end in every run?
いろんな意味で危険だよ
Oh,
他にもっと安全な人
and then like
俺と寝るのは考え直した方がいいと思う
and then like
危機意識を持った方がいいよ
how about he's like trying here?
俺みたいのはね
I'm really
物心の騒ぎ
dangerous.
じゃない
そこまで自分の
君のこと
今ここでこあの部屋に行った方がいい
確か子供しだね
とでも思って
Oh boy. There he is!
さその
These are the bad
信頼
ends.
してるのはじ
What's
って
this
場所
one?
行かなきゃ
What's that version of the ending? May you dream forever.
そういう僕じゃ
俺たちに今ってのとら僕を失くだろう夢
ってるのもしかしてさっきの
信頼を裏切ら
Oh
ない
no! Oh, he puts you in a cage in this one too?
やめて
What does he do?
この子に
Did he poison her?
見たくないよ夢を見っちんだって俺たちのそばにずっといる俺はお前
さっきの
What? Oh yeah, no. Fucking, I guess that's really, it is actually kind of funny. I don't know what the Toma ones. Hold
ここからなら
on. Normal end. Hold on. Where's the... I want to see the oh, Kent endings. All right. What are some of them? We'll forget he wasn't in a beautiful night. Oh no. Is one of them... Is he gonna fucking show up and stab you? Hold on, hold
ど
on,
うか
hold
な
on. No.
家族は
Okay,
遠方だ
I wanna
連
see
絡
the
先
endings
はお
where
そ
he
ら
shows
く
up
本
to
人にもわ
stab
から
you.
ないと思う
は
そういう複雑な家庭の子な
Like
の
it's not funny if what's his face doesn't just like randomly still up to stab you. I guess
そ
he
のあたりの事情を知っ
doesn't.
ているのは私だけだ
That's disappointing.
私が代理としていくのが妥当だとは思うが
Like what's the point if
もう
what's his
時
name
間だね
doesn't like show up and randomly stab you? Oh, is he doing it here? Oh shit. Shit. Ah. Kent? Where is this? In Beautiful
夜
Night?
景で大丈夫だと思った病院に警
There
告
he
して
is!
ただ
There he is!
愛してたよ
He showed up to kill you! There he is!
Which one is this?
This is the other guy's ending. Okay, so he really does. He really does just like just shows up in every single ending.
You know what? Consistency.
It's consistency. You know
And
what?
we can appreciate that.
I gotta give him. I
Yeah.
really gotta give him the consistency. He's
Yeah.
gonna show up in every path and be like, "Oopsie,
Yeah.
oopsie doodle, gotta murder
Right,
you."
Right.
It's like a little oopsie doodle. I'm not defending it. Like I'm really not defending it, and I also closed the tab I wanted to keep out. I gotta like stare at these boys. So really, like, no, you can die in any of them. Hold on. No, I just wanna open this tab, this image. There we go. There we go.
Cool.
So he murders you all the time.
Okay.
I guess he murders you in his own route too. Wait, can I find the Heart World? No. Hold on. Amnesia memories bad ending. Yeah, Ukyo bad ending. Here we go. 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 All bad endings. 44 minutes of bad endings. Holy shit.
That's a lot.
There's so many different ways.
Wow. Okay, well, you know,
There's so many different ways.
they're the names of them seem nice.
地図の場所に来て私何言ってんのこの人だな何おなんかうつ
Steel frame. What? Wait, hold on. Smash my right hand. One side couldn't move. The rest severed. My body? Is it what? I couldn't even move my left hand. Well, yeah, it severed your body. I guess it severed your body. What did this do exactly? It severed your body.
Like dropped a metal building frame.
Yeah, I guess. I need to see you suffer? What?
二人は絶対楽だろ
I love that that's like a romance.
What if we just like dated people who were healthy?
But then what would the plot be?
Picking out sheets. I don't know. Like
I think people are here for the drama, you know, the thrill.
Yeah, what color sheets are we gonna get?
Right. See,
That's
that's a
drama.
little less thrill than.
He needs to know what the good ending is for him. Yeah, let's see. Let's see what we have. Hold on. Good ending. All right. Good end?
Okay.
Far fewer options. Oh, you have to forgive him.
That's so sweet.
Something I killed him to save myself. Okay. Okay, what happens? Where do you go? Oh, he like hops off an ant form or something.
Cute.
Aw, look at him. I thought they're kids. Do they have kids?
No, that's the Orion.
That's him.
Yeah.
Oh, in like another
in like
world.
Another realm.
We were laughing about this, like.
The long-haired green guy has
He
like
has
45
minutes of bad ends. That's so fucking funny.
Because canonically, he's like the true guy.
Yeah, and he's like killing you in all the routes. It's so fucking.
Well, it's because I think you're also doomed to die in all the routes, and so like
Messy.
he's been driven crazy by how many times he's seen you die, that eventually he was like trying to save you, and he's seen you end up with so many different guys that he started to hate you, and then that's why he's like killing you now because he's gone fully crazy.
He cares. Like,
they get real
you know?
dirty. I don't know what to tell you, Camden. Men, we're not playing this because we like real men.
right. It's the
honestly-
escapism.
I'm not playing this because I like men.
Why are you playing this?
Because I really like roasting
Truthfully,
people.
I've never dated anybody before, so who knows what I am.
Okay.
I could be anything.
No limits.
What if I just like fictional men?
That's
something people the 2Ds, like the 2D men instead of the 3D men.
Who knows?
I don't know. I'm just like,
every like real man I've liked has been gay. The first one was in middle school. I liked him from 7th grade until graduation.
He came out.
Well, I don't know for sure, but my friend saw him at a gay bar, so I'm assuming.
Slay.
That's pretty out.
Oh my god. Mixan says, "Yeah, I'd never date a man, but am I gonna replay Mystic Messenger for the 8 millionth time? Yes."
What's
Pretty
Mystic
much.
Messenger?
Yeah.
No, that one's another dating sim.
2D.
Is it as like, you know,
Is Mystic
thrilling as
Messenger
that?
as like Yandere or that one's a little bit more chill,
That one's,
right?
like pathetically PG.
Oh, okay.
PG for pathetically general.
Yeah.
There's like nothing to that one.
I just, you know, it's like, it's so funny. I was talking about this on stream yesterday. I was like, you know, there are absolutely some men that interest me 100%, and I am dating a man, yeah. But like, you know, like I've been interested in men in the past, and I'm interested in some fictional men. But like, boy, if you give me the choice between a hot lady and a hot guy, I'm always looking at the lady. I think I am too queer for straight people shit sometimes. So the fact that I'm dating a straight man is like, how did I end up like this?
Christian's very nice.
He's a good boy.
He's so
There's
nice.
exceptions.
Where's
just like the human part.
Yeah.
And then you see other men like.
Wait,
Like
one of the
with
guys
this
in
guy.
Mystic Messenger kills you?
I didn't know about that.
You need to unlock that route.
I honestly could not get.
Does one of the guys in Mystic Messenger kill you?
What is this one called? Togoden?
Toga kiss? Toga.
Oh, Toga kiss.
Aww.
It looks like American Airlines.
Wait, what? Wait. What? Wait.
What?
Wait.
What?
I'm waiting.
Where? What?
You can't just show me that image and then not show me where it is.
What image?
It was a good image. It was a good image. It was a good image. Look at that image.
Oh, cute.
Looks like girls.
There's girls in
It
the
does.
Messenger.
Look at that. Enhance. No.
Oh.
No, don't show me that.
Oh.
Enhance.
Move, I'm gay.
Enhance.
Okay.
Hello?
I don't think that is that still Mystic Messenger?
Hello?
Is that an ad for a Yuri?
Enhance? Is that who is that?
I see
Is that
the
a
word
lady?
Suicide, and I'm confused once again.
Oh, that's Rika?
Yeah.
Wait, you can fuck Rika? You can fuck the girl?
There's girls in Mystic Messenger.
I guess she's what? Secret.
Let me paint you a picture.
Let me paint you boyfriend. Is V the pro tag? No. Who's the pro tag?
Is that the red? I don't remember.
No.
It's like called Boom Boom or Shank Shank or something.
I got that boom boom
Pow, this chick is jacking my style. I trying to cover my swagger.
What was the government name?
Let's go, lesbians! Let's go, lesbians!
Milotech, yeah.
Excuse me, lesbians coming through! Watch out!
No, be nice to the baby. Where the fuck is that fan art, or can it actually happen? I just wanna. Where's the bit?
There was a K-pop MV in the early 2000s called Neurotic.
Oh, was that an edit? No, I don't want that. I want.
There's no women in women in Messenger app. What's it called?
Oh wait. Oh, I don't know. Hold on. Wait. Rosa Raid.
Oh.
Hello.
Oh, fun.
See, this is what I'm here for.
Can you name the Pokédex of her plushies?
Yeah.
Wait, here it is.
Okay.
Here it is. Here it is. Here it is.
This
Are there
one?
Funko
Oh my
Pops
God.
Pokemon?
Yeah.
There's no way that's real.
Yeah, they have some Funko Pokemon. Yeah.
Inside Allegra's favorite Pokemon.
Oh, I like the bottle ones.
No.
All right, what's her name?
What? How do you get
Why do you
this?
have to go for that one? I was
Guys,
like, this one's sweet.
Guys, this is really important.
Spiel and what?
Can you fuck her? Do you get to? Hi, Greg. I have an idea. Greg, I'm trying to find out if you could be gay with this lady in Mystic Messenger.
Greg's on the stream.
Yeah, Greg just read it. Hi, Greg.
Hi.
You can romance her. Women.
Hey.
You can romance her.
Romance.
In V's route? Is it in V's route? You can just fuck her instead?
Groundbreaking.
What?
Anyway, back to the Pokédex.
Back to the Pokédex.
A good ending?
Okay.
How do you?
Nipple up.
Yeah,
No,
it is.
endings.
Horsey
I wanna-
and
These are
loved
so
it.
cute.
Loved it.
How do I do it? How do I kiss girl? It's a bad ending?
Oh, fuck.
How is that a bad ending?
Relicanth and Clampearl.
Clampearl. What's the
How is that a bad ending? How is that a bad ending? How is this a bad ending? How is kissing girls a bad ending? How is that a bad ending? How is that a bad ending? It seems like the best ending.
Cute. A little muppet.
How is that a bad ending?
That is precious.
Yeah, calling that. This is one of the endings. You and the girl fuck. And it's considered a bad ending. I'm like, no, it's not.
Like, actually fuck?
Yeah.
Legally?
Yeah, the scene shifts to Rika and the player laying in bed together wearing lingerie. Rika is reading, but the player feels like being intimate with her. Rika appreciates the player's aggressive and straightforward nature in bed together. And the two confess their love/hate/adoration for each other as they begin taking turns making love.
Oh.
Okay.
I love this segment.
You okay, cutie?
Yeah.
How do you kiss girls? How do you kiss girls? Wait, is this a girl? Wait, can you kiss her? Can you kiss her? MC, hi. Can you kiss her? Oh.
Hi. Her bed is so nice.
Oh.
Right?
You sink down.
Nice and large.
You can.
Can we see your legs on stream?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi.
You can.
Goodness. If you go, did you know if you can do it more than 90 degrees, you're a slut? I made it up just now. Oh my god.
I don't know if they did.
Village bicycle. Steven, you're a slut.
Did you guys hear what they were saying? Or did you just hear me dying and coughing, laughing?
Probably just heard you dying.
No, they heard you, Molly.
No, there's a time they're doing a cooking stream house and he had like,
Another cooking stream?
No, this was ages ago, but he had like that shotgun mic, and I was like sitting there with Caleb going like,
Is there like?
something piece of shit.
Can they scissor?
Random shit, and alt chat heard everything.
Can they scissor?
I was like talking about stupid shit. These mics are sensitive, dude.
It's a different world.
Is there art of them scissoring?
After this set, if we're finishing tonight at 2:00, and I have to wake up at 7 to get ready for the session.
Yeah.
Next day?
Well,
Oh,
'cause-
today.
Yeah, we should probably stop.
Well, because it's gonna take a while to get to the studio.
No, it's not gonna take that long to get to the studio.
Well, I need to be dropped off and then figure out how I'm gonna get into the
It's
studio.
not. It's.
Oh.
Don't worry.
Well, either way, I'll wake up a little early, warm up my voice. Because if it's that early,
They have a little cafe
Yeah,
together?
you need to be
It's like-
awake in order for your
I just think they should scissor.
it's also I'm in Texas time.
True.
Yeah. I will find someone to raid now that Greg's chat came in and just saw me.
Is it cancel the poison?
Oops.
Yeah, it's poison.
Now it's someone's talking about. Oh. Wait, Emily's live. Oh, let's raid Emily.
Good old Emily.
Why are people awake at this time?
Right.
It's 3 a.m. for Texas.
Okay. Tell Emily that Allegra, Molly, and Camden say hi.
Hi.
Tell her that I gotta go. We gotta make sure Molly gets some seeps.
I'm saying hi.
Oh, you're saying hi.
Hi.
That's the hi. And then
Hey, do a
Send
90
that
degree.
by.
Do a 91 degree. Oh, slut.
sli-
Why do you spread your legs so wide? Never mind. Never mind. They can't see your waist from that angle, so I have to do the other way. Damn.
What can I say? I'm flexible.
Why are you so flexible?
I auditioned for Power Ranger.
You know what? Hold on.
I had to teach myself gymnastics
What's
in 2 weeks.
your hip to waist ratio?
That's a good question.
Why do you have childbirthing? What's that line? That line that women use to describe their fictional pookies? What is that line? Do you know what I'm talking about?
We're just gonna stare at Yuri for a second.
No, it's
Box
like,
clam.
Why is your waist so thin so that men can hold it? Is that how it goes? It's something along those lines.
Is this something that straight people say?
I don't know. I thought it was like when you I swear to God, venturing has been described as.
Anyway, bye guys.
It's about the hip to waist